Hello everyone. Thanks for being here if you're here. We are going to do the Reverie Roundtable in just a moment. It'll be great. Um, any which way? Uh, right. Okay, alright, sorry. I had to read something. Alright, so, let's get started. Let's see, who's around? There are people here. Awesome. Great. They're black. They're not black, so they're gonna be here on time. Ba, ba, ba. Go. Okay. Hey.
You see that our boy Gibbs might be abandoning us?
What?
Yeah, maybe.
That's
Oh,
son of a
Chaos at
bitch.
work.
Yeah.
He's dodging
No, I'll
Scott.
be able to. Oh no, I'll be able to keep my volume up. What a horrible thing.
Corey?
Actually, Lactoid. This is very important. This is now a weekly thing. Can you stand up and give a leg check?
I have my legs.
You have it.
I promise you, I have my legs.
Okay, good. Wanted to double check. I'm still hoping for the best that you'll wise up. I'm curious, Scott, if you want to share. Since I know, well, I think you're the only one here that has children. But if when your child is able to ride a motorcycle and they share that, hey, I want to ride a motorcycle, would you discourage that? Encourage that? You don't care?
So, I think motorcycles are probably a bad idea for teenage children, especially teenage boys, because of risks. It's not something that
What
I would
about developmentally teenage boys?
What do you mean?
But
Fuck you.
Yeah, Lactoid knows what I mean.
So here's what I would say it also depends on how we grew up, right? So like if my kid was like rode up bicycles all the time growing up and then like begged me for like a dirt bike and like begged me to like and did it appropriately with safety in like the backyard and stuff. When he's like 17, whether or not I'm willing to allow him to have a motorcycle for that kid is going to be wildly different than like some kid that thinks it's cool and going to get him pussy. Because that kid's going to get brain damage, right? Like that kid's going to die. But like the kid that's been riding bikes and motorcycles and riding motocross and doing those type of things and been responsible and proven himself responsible as we've moved from like 50cc up to a real dirt bike, proven himself responsible and safe that entire time, I think is an entirely different person that loves it because of like the feel of the wind and the feel of the control. And is it more dangerous? Yes. But if that kid wants to upgrade to a motorcycle, like he's going to do it with me or without me at the day he turns 18 anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like
you can get behind that.
my approval is really just going to mean that I have less say so in being able to steer that in a safer, better direction. Because if I approve, but I have some things to say, that's a voice he might listen to. But if I completely cut him out, vice versa. And the same is probably true with a daughter. I just find this problem to be less likely to occur with a daughter.
I
it's
agree.
Not that I'm like saying it has to be a boy. So that would be my answer. So it really just depends on the context of how they grew up. I'm not getting a fucking 17-year-old. We're not going to just go out and start trying to get our hours in and fudge the numbers real quick to get my 17-year-old a motorcycle who's never ridden a fucking anything more than a tricycle a day in his life.
Yeah. Well, so then I'm like, obviously, I don't have any numbers to back this up, but let's just say if you were to maybe like separate, like, because I can pretty much get aboard what you outlined of like, yeah, if you had a child that like, they've been involved in whatever motocross and, whatever biking or some variant thereof, and then they want to invest in a motorcycle, they would hopefully have cultivated some sort of, technical expertise and skill. But do you think that represents the majority of motorcycle riders, or?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. But I think we play a dangerous game in these conversations, right? Where there's such a vast difference, and I think this is a big part of libertarianism too, is that there's such a vast difference between what the metadata says and how we ought live our individual life with our individual choices. Because the data really tells us trends and helps us kind of understand a big picture, but it is a low resolution thing. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree that most motorcyclists don't drive as safe as they ought to, that the practice itself is inherently more dangerous, even if you're being safe, because of other drivers, because it's harder to see you, it's harder to react, it's easier to hydroplane on the road, for various circumstances.
And you might
again,
know,
yeah.
but you might know that, like, what do you think in terms of like personality profiles? In terms of risk-taking behaviors, like you think.
Right, and that's why I said it was a combination of both skill and having proven himself as someone that acted safely, right? Like, this is someone that like understands. No, I wear my fucking helmet every time I'm on the dirt bike because I don't want to break my fucking neck, right? As opposed to someone being like, I don't look cool with my helmet on. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm not upgrading you to the new, faster, badass bike when I can't even trust you to wear your helmet when I'm not around you, right? Like, there's a gradient of choices and behavior that we hopefully incentivize that led up to a point of someone that is safe as well as skilled.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally take your point and agree with you that, like, aggregating data, okay, is not like doesn't really zoom down at the individual level necessarily, or not inherently. But then I think we had this conversation before, where it's like you have now, from what I understand, I'm like visually, like you've stopped or quit vaping. I'm curious, like, if one of your child like wanted to take out vaping, or like they were going down that path, like
or whatever it is in like 15 years when they're like old enough. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Obviously now.
This is the individual thing too, right? Is that like it really it depends on what it is, right? And it depends on a lot of things, because I'm an every other weekend dad, right? So what control I have?
I was
over
never
my
the weekend
children's
child.
life, right? So what control I have over my children's behavior is very limited. Like, I can control to a certain degree what they do when they're with me, for 48 hours, twice a month.
Right.
Right. Like 4 days a month. Sometimes if I'm
And
lucky, 5
some
or 6,
holidays and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So like, the question then becomes, what's more important? Doing everything I can in a fruitless effort to try and stop a child from a behavior that they've already picked up in an environment or in a place that I had very little control of, or trying to cultivate trust and understanding with my children and make them hopefully elucidate some of the reasons why I used to do these things and I don't do them anymore, and why I don't think it's good for them. As much as it pains me to say, I would probably take the less authoritative position, but that's mostly because I'm an every other weekend dad. Like, if I wasn't
Yeah,
an every other
I totally
weekend
understand
dad,
that.
I would probably be like, fuck you, not in my goddamn house. You're a child. You're not fucking smoking nicotine fucking grape sticks so you can smell like cotton candy fucking, fruity Pride Month celebrating ass every time you walk out the fucking house. Fuck you. You're going to wear normal clothes.
I don't know why you're going
Stop
there.
sucking on the douche flute. Like, like whatever. I was just I was trying to channel my Gen X, fucking dad.
Douche
that was a
flute.
dick,
I like that. That's a good one.
Douche flute. Yeah.
I'm taking notes. Yeah,
I
that's
That
totally
one-
fair.
that one a lot.
Have
Did you
y'all
miss me or
heard?
something? Like, I came into questions. What's up?
What's up, Bam?
So, yeah, I was wondering if y'all heard about. Well, maybe not. This is kind of like in Black people's circle.
Sometimes I'm on Black Twitter. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Basically, there was a sexual assault involving Michael Rainey Jr., which is the star of one of the power shows. Basically, it involved the stream thing. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up related to stream. The only thing that happened. Well, let me not weigh down the things. Basically, he was on a guy's stream, as a famous actor, and the guy's little sister basically went walked up to him and I guess grabbed his dick, and he you could tell like, oh, okay, he felt uncomfortable about it, and then a few minutes later he ended up leaving. And now it's becoming like bigger sort of breaking news, blah blah blah, this thing happened to him, sexual assault happens to men too, yada yada.
I
And
find it. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, I was saying like, I don't know, I think that I don't know. I find a lot of the outrage to be performed of, like, because really what it was a groping, and I get that groping falls under this category of sexual assault, like, but I feel like the only reason we use the word sexual assault isn't to be like more correct. I feel like it's to bring in all the like weight and gravity of like, you know raped in a dark alley, when there just is a different weight to the situation. There just is a different of the thing, because people are like, oh wow, she needs to be in jail, she needs to be on the sex offenders list, like prison time, like all of these things. And I don't know, he's
So
allowed to feel how he feels. He hasn't said any of these things. He said he feels uncomfortable about it, but I don't know. It just feels really performative.
if
And I
I
can
can
find the video.
if I can separate the specific instance and have a little bit more of a meta conversation about what we're talking about here, and not to get too weird and millennial about the good old days of the internet, but I'm noticing a trend that is occurring over time, which is that it seems to be that things like this used to happen, and in days gone by of the internet, there was like we would use a case, kind of like how case studies are done in psychology, right? Where we would go, well, this doesn't really tell us anything, but we'll use this to try and understand a phenomenon, and then have a bigger conversation about, for example, sexual assault of men and how it differs from women, etc. And what I think has occurred over time is, as our kind of narcissistic tendencies have fallen in love with the likes that we get on social media, and as the business model has grown of social media infotainment and entertainers, it has become far more and maybe we can talk about leftism, et cetera, but setting that aside, it's become like a competition to be offended, a competition to be shocked, a competition to have the spiciest take about the current thing, a competition to garner the most attention, and to say the thing that will get people talking the most, which distracts from what used to be a process of using a case study to have a greater conversation. And I think maybe that's kind of what you're talking about a little bit with this specific case, which is like we should talk about male sexual assault and how it differs from sexual assault that females go through, and that it is real, and that like it's difficult to talk about sometimes because it's not taken seriously, which creates a culture of silence and all those lovely things. And yet at the same time, you'll have random people being like, this person should be raped in a jail, and it's like there's this noise of a struggle for attention around an issue that drowns out conversation, and it feels like it's gotten worse and worse. And I don't know when that pendulum swings back.
Hmm. Yeah, I dropped a link in the chat for anyone looking to see it. But yeah, I think that's probably what it is. But it's not even just men. Like, I think that I just think that groping, while is inappropriate and like a loser behavior, I don't like groping isn't like something people should go to prison for.
It's
It,
context dependent, right? Like there's a difference between like jokingly grabbing your friend's butt, right? And being like, hey, good game, even though there was no game or anything. And it kind of got weird and you were uncomfortable. And then like walking up to a woman in a cubicle and being like, oh, sometimes when you laugh, God, it's so fun to see your tits jiggle, and then grabbing her tit, right? Like those are hugely different things, and yet they're both groping, right?
well, sure, no,
And so
but
I
I'm
do think
saying
it's
I don't think
context
either
dependent.
one of those are prison. I think that like the second one probably is a little bit worse, and like, oh, you're fired, like you're a loser, like like there can be like a social element of shaming, but I don't know if the
Yeah.
like jail makes that even the second guy, even though that's like a terrible thing to do, I don't know if that makes society better. It's like, oh
Well,
well, these are people
Yeah,
who
I mean,
walk the
I
street.
feel like that's a I think yeah, I mean, I feel like groping in general is an issue for courts to handle in terms of like monetary settlements, like fuck you, pay
Mhm.
me. But
could you even I don't know the law, but like does groping fall under like sexual assault, and can you face potential prison time for that? I don't know.
There's-
I feel like it has to be
There
by
are
definition.
so
Yeah.
many different
Sexual
fucking
assault.
things. Like,
Yeah.
if you actually look at criminal charges for like sexual assault, rape, and things like that, there's like 100 different categories. It's like there's rape, there's
First
forcible
degree,
sodomy,
second degree,
there's, like,
third degree,
first degree,
fourth
yeah, there's-
degree.
yeah.
Yeah,
Groping is usually under fourth degree, and most of the time it's going to be like a misdemeanor. You're probably not going to see any real prison time, but you could get arrested and go to jail.
Restraining
That's very
order?
real.
You probably restraining
Well,
order.
I mean, yeah,
Sexual
anybody can file. Yeah, anybody can file a restraining order. I'm saying,
Anybody
like,
can
in
get
terms
a
of this.
restraining order for anything.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
saying,
in
like,
Texas
the
it's
state
a class A
puts you in
misdemeanor, and
Class A
it's
misdemeanor.
a year in jail. But it's up to a year in jail, and of course we all know first offense isn't. gonna
Actually,
get you-
why would you know that off the top of your head? That seems odd.
I just looked it up while you guys were talking.
Okay.
Can you be put on like a sex offender list for that?
No, I don't.
It's so rare.
see
Like, I
that
don't
in
know
the
of any
penalties.
examples.
Because I
feel
know
like if you're a
technically, like, you
repeater-
can for peeing outside,
It
but like
could
it doesn't
be-
actually happen.
It
Technically,
could be
I think you need a
possible,
felony
especially if there's
charge
repeat.
for
Oh,
most.
and you lose your right to
think you
carry
need
a
a felony
firearm for
charge.
5 years, which is a little bit surprising for Texas.
Don't
for a
you need a
misdemeanor.
felony charge to be on a registered sex offender list in most states?
It says, "Oh, well, I don't know about
I actually don't
registered
know
sex
the answer to that.
offender, but
what the felony charge can be, but if it's but if it can't be a felony, I think it has to be some other offense that's a felony.
The
Which
wildest
is
one
why
that I
it's, like,
saw.
controversial if like streaking becomes felony charge. Because
Right.
It's like, well, that automatically puts you on the registered sex offender list, and it's like, why? Like that's not the same thing as like other things, etc.
But
The
it's
weirdest one
kind
that
of
I
interesting to
saw-
me that something like that would get you you can lose your gun rights for 5 years in Texas. In Texas,
It's not that weird, dude.
Bam. Well, I saw one story. A dude grabbed, I think either the butt or boobs of a stripper, and he got at a strip club, and he got charged with fourth degree sexual assault and went to jail.
I actually,
What do you think
actually
about that?
think,
He deserved it.
Isn't
That's-
it typically like
deserve
explicitly stated like you don't?
don't
I
yeah.
don't really go to
No, no,
strip
no.
clubs, but isn't it like the rules of
That
like?
dude
yeah,
deserved it.
unless you're in like the back room, like out
That
on the
dude
floor,
deserves
there's
it.
almost,
Depends
it
on what
almost
strip
is like
club.
yeah,
stated.
they kind of need extra protections in places like that.
99.7% arbitrarily making up this statistic percent chance, right, that he deserved it, because that strip club is not doing that to every dude that touches girls, right? That strip club is doing that because that dude is a problem, and like and either was a serious problem that night or is a repeat problem.
Yeah,
And
he
that's
probably
why
like
that guy
he
got
probably
it.
like smacked his hand and then like he like
Yeah.
I gave you money,
Yeah.
bitch.
I'm
Either a first
Yeah,
timer
that's
or
a
a repeat
problem.
offender.
I'm with Scott on this one.
It's like first time he would have been just kicked out, you know.
No.
The strip. So like I told you guys before, you know, I had a stripper phase, right? I was very honest about that.
Strip
a
club
stripper?
phase or both.
Strip club. I mean, both. I mean, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I told you guys about this. I've mentioned this multiple times. But in any case,
Well, I'm new here.
Before he got the cancer and lost all the muscles, he had a chip in his face. He used to be very jacked.
okay. But yeah, and the ones that I went to, you actually could touch, right? That was
Yep.
fine. It's not a universal rule. Some people think it's that way. It's not.
These are in Haiti.
You say?
No, it's dependent.
No, I'm sorry.
Just being silly.
Yeah.
So
So,
these are in Haiti. When you're in Haiti and
yeah. When I was Haiti,
like
indeed.
you're in the motherland. You can touch the strippers.
Yeah. But yeah. So in some places, you can, and it's fine. Like you'll like they'll take your hand
You're
and put it
encouraged.
on them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly
you're
that. You're encouraged. But yeah, it just depends on where you're at.
I mean, yeah, I can like
I just want to touch a stripper. It's so
I recognize
Well, I
sort
mean,
of
if you're already
so
there,
fucking gross.
if you're already there, right? That's kind of the whole goal and the point.
the goal. Again,
I feel
from
you. I
100%
have
of
a
the
hard
rules
time
of most strip
empathizing.
clubs in North America, like it explicitly states that
I'm
I'm
not sure
sorry,
if
you
it's
think most strip
That's
clubs
something I
in
don't even
North
know.
America follow the rules? Is this the
That's another
implication that we're
thing.
under?
well,
These are strip-
that was
these
like
are
I
strip
don't know.
clubs.
I have no problem pleading ignorance. I don't really know how it works in strip clubs. Like,
Yeah,
If
it's
you
kind
have
of
enough
a
money, you're getting your dick sucked. at the
yeah, it's a
fucking
little
strip
wild,
club.
wild west.
But that's against the rules. You know what I mean?
I actually, so I've never been to a strip club, but I did see that one strip club. It had a rule where it totally gaming the system. It's like the Delta 8 of strip clubs, where you can't touch them, but you can jerk off when you're in a room with them. They just can't touch you. and then it's not prostitution.
They found the loophole.
Yeah,
It's a loop. It's kind of a loophole, I
I
guess.
don't know if I
Yeah.
would advertise that loophole. You know what I mean? Like that's weird.
Also,
It's
I
one of
mean,
kind. It's unique. You know, you go for the experience.
if I'm
So
walking
that
into
they're providing a
one of those
vibe,
rooms,
an ambiance.
if I'm walking into one of those back rooms, I need to see like cleaning material, like there, like presently.
Bring a black light.
Yeah,
Yes.
like
Yeah. If you bring a black light, you see everything. Then you hope you're probably
There's
walking.
this-
I'm hoping you're walking out.
there's
Why would you?
this-
You're just gonna see the horror.
There's this older black lady at the gym, and she always brings a towel with her to like set down. And I saw that shit, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna start doing that because like wiping down with the sanitizer every time is a little bit of a hassle, but also just having a towel so I don't have to sit on that shit. But I'm just imagining prime guys now, like coming in with like a little bottle of sanitizer, and a little towel, like being like, I'm here to jerk off. Hold on one second. Now that that's clean.
Let's get dirty.
There you go.
But
Thank you. Somebody fucking spike that back down.
So I think this question is interesting. We've talked about it before, right? I know our friend Doobie has talked about this subject with us. About like what it means for like women to get handsy, and like the lack of consequences, and that like men can just be uncomfortable with this. In fact, and Ali, you talked about this as well, right? Like with your female coworkers, right? Yeah. So like, do you guys, do you think this is a big problem though? Right? Like I hear it comes up every so often, but like, is this like something needs to be done about, right? Whether it's on the legal level or
yeah.
societal level. Yeah.
I was going to to comment on what Bam was saying in terms of like the legal aspect. Like, I agree. There's a spectrum of groping in reality, and some lesser offenses than other. But I tend to err on the side of caution. Of like, I think there probably should be maybe on average like harsher penalties for even just like groping and maybe classifying as sexual assault, because like I do view and experience like a double standard. I don't drink, never been drunk, but I am around drunk people, including women from time to time. And like, yeah, they can get, very handsy because there's this implicit assumption that, I'm not going to mind it, or, I'm not going to, whatever, press charges or like, put up any sort of fight. And like, does it in reality like offend me? No, but I do find it strange that like a little bit of disinhibition or less inhibited. It's like all consent sometimes can go out the window, which is why I think they should be punished to the same standard as men.
So there's a concept, and this is kind of more like lactoid school of like libertarians, right? From Chicago
Socialism.
School of Economics. Was like Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, et cetera. That like, and I think Thomas Sowell might have popularized it, but I think Friedman might have said it first. But whenever you deal with a government program, you shouldn't think of it as like costs. You should think of it as trade-offs, right? Like anytime any law or any punishment, any tax, anything occurs, it's a trade-off, right? You're taking from one sector of the economy and you're giving to another sector, or you're creating a law which slows down business or disincentivizes behavior, and there's going to be good behavior and bad behavior, right? And the question then becomes from the statist, maybe the minarchist perspective, right? Like is the trade-off worth it? And so like I don't necessarily disagree with you, Corey Campbell, that like we ought be just as harsh to women in these scenarios. But there is a trade-off, right? And so there is and some of that is going to be unmeasured, unknown, right? That like if we take a phenomena that men are kind of like silently suffering with and we place that into the legal system, like what does that trade-off look like? And we don't really know, right? Like it could be overall beneficial, like it could be a beneficial trade-off. Men feel safer, they feel more or it can have that kind of like that deleterious like kind of opposite effect, right? Like where women have become such a scarce and problematic thing with the Me Too movement that many men are like, why would I mentor a woman if that means I have to be alone with her at times in the office? That's the dumbest thing I could ever do. I'm going to mentor a young man because I don't have to worry about sexual assault charges or accusations or like, people being like, oh, you're with her because she's pretty, etc. Like, so we just have to be careful anytime we say we need something to be harsher or we need something to be more strictly enforced, recognizing that trade-off exists. And so kind of to switch back to prime guys, is this a big enough problem? It depends on the context, right? So from a social conversation, absolutely. From a legal perspective, I worry about the chilling effects of further increasing a culture of like he said, she said, around workplace relationships. Whether or not that's good or bad, I don't know whether or not those outcomes are good or bad. I just know that it's fraught with danger.
Let's go to
Fair.
Ali. I'm sure Lacto has something to say. Bam.
So socially, I feel like women agree. I feel like the issue is that you have a large population of the men that are just like, I don't see the issue. If anything, they would love that kind of attention, right? They're like, what do you mean? A girl groped you and you're sitting here like, how dare
Nice.
you, right?
That's
A girl,
bullshit. That's
like
bullshit.
for me,
Just interject something
Until it happens to 'em.
because just to highlight the issue where
well, it's
I, I would change it. What if it's a bunch of gay guys giving attention to heterosexual men? Would that be treated the same?
No, I was actually about to bring that up for the Bams when Bam brought that up. I was like, if it were a guy groping him on thing, that would have been way different.
Exactly.
But that's because okay. So I was watching that video, and my first thought is like, man, if you're that uncomfortable, just launch her off of you. What do you like? Push her off of you. What are you doing? But then it was like, well, he's on some dude's stream. That's his sister. So if that dude isn't paying attention to what's happening, and I just push his sister, well, now there's a whole like separate altercation that's happening.
There's also
right?
children present too. Is
Yeah,
another,
there's
like,
kids
element.
present. You're not trying to make a scene. But let's just say he pulls like, do it off to the side. I'm assuming he's like, man, if I tell this guy that his sister was groping me on screen, he's gonna beat his sister. Which, like, I mean, a lot of people, we've seen the videos, especially if you're doing that kind of shit publicly on stream, people kind of lose their temper, lose their minds. There's a lot that comes with like the guy going ahead and doing it, and then what's the benefit that he gets from it, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't want to like sue. He's not going to try to sue the girl. Most guys don't care to do the lawsuit thing. And honestly, for the most part, because like for me at work, this has happened to me where like I've been like sexually harassed or whatever it may be, and it's like, I don't want you to lose your job. I just want you to stop, right? And if we could just mitigate this, I don't feel like going through the lawsuit. It's a hassle.
Do you know what the number one deterrent of crime is? If you had to guess,
People don't want to go to court.
Nope. Number one deterrent is whether or not the crime is socially accepted within your community.
No.
That is the number one cause or deterrence of crime. So when you look at, for example, why are certain areas having like people just randomly shoplift like crazy? It's people blame like, woke DAs or like the laws in California being too loose, etc. And like, yes, that has a kind of chicken and egg kind of open systems theory perspective, right? Where like, if it's seen as permissible, it changes the way, people view it. But the number one reason all those things are occurring is because people aren't being socially shamed when they're open about it. Like you can find on Twitter people being like, look at all these things I got from Walmart for free, wink, wink. And there'll be like thousands of people being like, get your bag, sister. And you're like, what the fuck? Right? So if you want to stop crime, law is actually it's actually going to have less of an effect than changing the culture around it.
Stigma.
Right? Like the stigma, if you're a girl and you openly admit that like you grabbed some dude and all of your girlfriends are like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like you're fucking disgusting. Like you're a creep.
Well, yeah.
Like, I don't even know who you are, Sarah.
You're just gonna have to convince a majority of dudes that can't get any attention from girls, much less that kind of attention, that what happened to this person is like traumatic or like even a negative thing, right? Which I think is a large problem. Is like I think it's a majority. I think it'd be the majority of men, which would be the people to like take the stance, because women have been complaining about like rape culture and sexual assault forever, right? But like now, even if men are doing it, you're gonna have to convince the men to agree. And so I think there's a large population of men that are just like, well, I don't get how this is a problem. You could have just pushed her off. If you didn't want that attention, you look like you're giggling. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. You could have just walked away, ha ha ha.
Mhm.
And then it's gonna be a whole thing. And with the guy thing, if it was like a gay guy, the idea would be like, well, no, you could really just defend yourself. And why didn't you just like fight them if you were so inclined?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Oh.
I'm saying like when we have this conversation about like what we involve the law, I'm simply saying that that's one way to do it, but changing the culture is going to be far more effective.
Well, so I just wanted to say I'd actually agree with you. Changing culture is better. You might disagree, but I would want to use the law to shape the culture.
Let's go to Lactoid. Bam. I want to see if Doobie wants to say anything. All right. I know you, friend. And then we'll go to Aiko. I'm gonna bully him to say something. All right. So let's go to Lactoid.
So I don't necessarily hold this opinion, but I got a friend who's he's Eastern European, and they got some based opinions sometimes. And his opinion is that men cannot be sexually assaulted because, in his words, women are nothing more than slightly taller children. If you don't want it, just stand up and walk away. They can't do anything. They're pathetic, right? They can't hurt you. And
Your friend's retarded.
well, that's a pretty extended. He makes it very convincingly. I do think that there is one nugget of truth.
Okay.
No, there's a nugget of truth in what he's saying, which is that in any crime, but I think sexual assault specifically, there is an element of intimidation and fear of reprisal and inability to stop the behavior that is present when one party is physically larger than the other. And in 9 times out of 10 cases, right, the male is going to be larger or stronger than the female,
Yeah,
right?
but I agree, but that's one small aspect, right?
It's one aspect, but it's a big aspect.
We live right, but it is. Okay, maybe small was the wrong word there because that's going to be subjective, but it's one element. And I do agree with you, right, that there is under a majority of circumstances, that's going to be the thing. Now, what do we know about sexual predators? Is that they don't go after Chad, right? What do we know about one of the things we know, for example, when we want to talk about protecting your children from child molesters? One of the things that they used to teach you is stranger danger, stranger danger, stranger danger, right? Don't talk to strangers. And what we learned over time with psychological studies is that the best thing to teach your children is to be assertive and to be outspoken. And there's a reason that child molestation rates are far lower in the Black community. Part of it is because Blacks don't commit child molestation at the same rates. That is debatable, given the data. Some people would disagree. But one of the things is that it's harder to victimize children that are assertive. Black children tend to be more assertive. And when you're more assertive, when you are more assertive about your boundaries, when you are more
Must be the
assertive
warrior
about
genes in
your
us. Sorry, go ahead.
don't.
I'm sorry.
Look, I'm so fucking close to saying something racist. You did not have to get me over the ledge.
You couldn't even defend. You couldn't even give the statistic without the caveat. You're like,
Hold on, but isn't it just true that the rates of reporting are much lower in those communities?
That's gonna be a part of it.
Even
Also, it's not even true.
It's a huge thing in the Hispanic community.
There are lies, there are damn lies, and then there are statistics, right? So I'm going off of best guess based off of what we have. Nothing that I say about social science is based on hard science because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a hard science with social science. So yes, there are. If you would like to critique that opinion that I hold, it's a perfectly valid critique. My position still is that there is also psychological research that supports the fact that sexual predators tend to look for meek-mannered people that do not speak out as much, people that are more likely to be quiet because they're softer targets. And most importantly, they go for people that you already know and trust, and they're in the family, right? Majority of this shit is happening with it, but it's irrelevant to the point. What I mean to say here in this situation is to piggyback off of Lactoid, that a sexual predator that is a female that is looking for men is not going to go after assertive, dominant men that they think are going to, turn around and be like, hey, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Don't put your hands on me, right? Or that there might, have some other response. What they're going to do is they're going to be a woman in a position of maybe workplace power, and they're going to go after an intern that's younger, that's unsure of themselves, that seems to be, that seems to not speak out about these things because there's likely a power dynamic to that sexual assault. There's a reason that rape and arson are so closely linked psychologically, and that's very often we find that rapists, serial rapists, are arsonists when they're younger. It's because it's a power thing. It's the sexuality is not just about the act of the sex itself, but about the domineering power. And so I think it's a little bit more complex than just, men tend to be bigger than women.
Well,
therefore,
so
men
like
can punch women. You know what I mean?
There are like cases where if like a girl will go up to a guy and ask her to sleep, and this is like younger, the guy says no, and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna tell my brothers you did anyways," and he's like, "They're gonna beat you up," right? It's like there's this like weird like trauma. Like I said in the video that Bam sent. He's in the he could have easily pushed her off, but then he's like, there's a bunch of things you're thinking. There's kids in the room. That's the sister of the brother of the stream I'm on. There's a whole like slew of other situations where it's not as easy as like, well, oh, I'm bigger than women. I can just win this easily, like easy fight.
Well, also, let's go to Lactoid, Bam, Doobie, I go.
Yeah, I've heard the thing about assertiveness. I mean, I take issue a little bit with the stats being presented. Everything I can, it sounded wrong. I think Black children actually have a higher rate of being sexually abused.
Yeah,
but I think child abuse generally. I don't know if sexual abuse. I know Black
both,
women
both
have
child abuse and sexual abuse, right? According to
you have to go out of the race. So
according to CAC,
statistics, what you're gonna find Black people commit more crime no matter what the crime is, right? It doesn't matter what the crime is unless it requires a lot of wealth in a country where they don't have a lot of wealth. Other than that, Black people commit more crimes in basically every Western country, right? So if you're looking at sexual assault or and in that regard, and you recognize the majority of them are going to be family cases, close people within the same race, right? You're going to find elevated rates in that regard.
Okay.
But if you find, I've seen it before. I don't remember where. I promise you, I'm not just making this up. And if you DM me later or DM me now, so I remember later, when you break it apart of like white assailants with Black children or Black assailants of white children, etc., then you see the difference where the white children are targeted at a disproportionate rate. But again, that could be reporting, as Doobie said. That could be likelihood of believability. That could be money. That could be access, right? Like where whites might have more access to as opposed to vice versa. There are a lot of things there, but again, I would say that the psychological data as well showcases that predators go after individuals that are less likely to be assertive, less likely to speak up for themselves, and that this leads to a reduction if you are the assertive type of person that will proclaim loudly your boundaries. You're far less likely to be targeted.
Sure, that could be true, but even again, going back, it's much easier to be assertive when you're larger and stronger, right? And that's, I think, what I'm trying to say, which is that when you're larger and stronger than the person who's flirting with you or coming onto you or touching you, or even grabbing at your dick, right? And they're small and weak and pathetic, right? Like comparably, most women are physically. Just honestly, I'm not.
He's not trying to be sexist.
I'm not trying to be sexist here. This is a biological reality, right?
He's not being a misogynist. He's not.
But a woman. But hold on. But if I'm grabbing a woman, right? If I'm grabbing a woman, she might be afraid that I could kill her, right? Because I could easily kill her with like one flick of my wrist, and she's dead.
He's implying they're mentally stronger. It's fine.
Listen,
I don't think that maps on to what.
Stop.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You haven't spoken yet.
Right, but he's critiquing what I'm saying. You're comparing apples to oranges. It's not a comparison of men versus women. We already recognize that sexual assault in those situations is going to be more common because of that dynamic and because of aggression and gender differences, etc. You're not supposed. What I'm saying is you have to compare women in the workplace, right, where someone has access to 10 women or a woman has access to 10 men. the woman that is a sexual predator is going to choose the weaker, mild-mannered, less likely to assert themselves man. And so when you say man versus woman, it's not really a great comparison because the woman's specifically targeting the person that she thinks she has the power to hold over them in some capacity, or that she thinks they won't say anything, or she thinks that she's their boss, etc.
No,
So
okay.
There doesn't
But
seem
like-
to be
but like-
any, there doesn't seem to be any statistical overlap with like what like I get what you're saying. Like logically, you break it down like, oh, the weakest women must be the ones getting raped the most, but that actually doesn't seem to be like where the dead
That's
hope.
not what I said.
The women that get raped, because he's saying that women are more, like more assertive women are the women who are or would be the strongest, biggest, like the bigger,
Saying
stronger
weaker
people
men
easy
are the
to be
ones
more
that would
assertive.
get chosen by the.
We're not
assaulters.
talking
Well,
about
no,
rape.
I'm not talking
We're not
about what you're
talking
talking
rape.
about, Scott.
We're talking
I'm
about
just-
groping.
Right, but
Right? We're
I'm
talking
just
about
saying that
commonplace groping.
sure, but
It's very
Lactoid was dealing with sexual assault in general, and I'm saying that there
Groping
does,
included, yeah.
but there doesn't seem to
Right, but
be
they're gonna be
there
different.
doesn't seem to be an overlap of like strength and things like that. I mean, I'm sure there's some factor involved, but that doesn't seem to be the overwhelming factor. It does seem to be more of people who get sexually assaulted are people who like or people who are kind of like allow it to happen, because the person most likely to be sexually assaulted in the United States is someone who's already been sexually assaulted. Like if you've been sexually assaulted before, you're at a high risk for being sexually assaulted again. And there seems to be a type of woman who
That's like
who
correlation.
has like almost no chance of being sexually assaulted.
That's-
I need to
don't
clarify
think
something
that's-
that I've
hold on,
said.
that's-
And it doesn't
hold
have
on,
anything.
that's really
Look,
important.
Scott, we got you. Oh my God, just let me
Yeah.
finish what I'm saying. But you have a correction for everything. I'm just saying that there's a type of women that doesn't seem to be at like almost any risk of being sexually assaulted, and the factors involved aren't like her stature. It seems to be her ability to speak up for herself and like advocate for herself.
No,
Like
not necessarily.
uh,
This is really important.
that's just what the
because-
data says. I'm
So,
sorry.
I
No,
just
it's
need
not-
to
that's not what the data
clarify.
says. This is what
Yeah.
happens.
What?
I'll be very quick.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, Scott, you have
I
to
promise,
correct
super quick.
everyone.
This is what why I mentioned in the very beginning the difference between individual differences and looking at data and the stories that data tell, because that data tells a story that's not true. What ends up happening, for example, you can look at transgender sexual assault and compare it to the general population. And what you find is, holy fuck, there's something unique about this community where they're sexually assaulted at rates like triple of like regular white women. But then when you account for drug abuse, poverty, neighborhoods, etc., what you find is that the rates of sexual abuse between transgender people and women as a whole are relatively similar. It's not per se that it's a type of psychological profile. Rather, it is that the woman that is sexually assaulted is more likely to be sexually assaulted because of multiple risk factors, such as the type of environment she's in, or like, and yes, psychological profile is part of that, but that's not necessarily what the data says. It's not about a type of woman per se, as it is risk factors are going to, in the whole, when you look at metadata, you're going to see overlap there.
Lactoid.
The people that have all the risk factors are going to get raped
Well,
twice.
Lactoid. Bam. We can. Well, I'll throw it back to you. Then Doobie, Aiko, Corey.
Okay, so just to clarify, when I called women pathetic, I only mean in the realm of physical strength.
It was his friend,
okay?
his Eastern European
God.
friend.
Lactoid, go.
I only mean in the realm of physical strength, right? We all, this is like, well, are there some men? Sure, right? In the same way, sure, there are like there's some women that maybe can get on a men's sports team. Like it's possible theoretically, but like when you actually look at the numbers, like holy shit, is this rare? And so I do think this has a part to play. I agree with the analysis that just because someone who's been sexually assaulted before, yeah, sure, they're more likely to be sexually assaulted again. We got to look at confounding variables like drug abuse, how much money they have, what neighborhoods they live in, what communities they roll in as well. Because there's some stats about sexual offending rates that maybe I can't talk about here on Twitch. But when it comes to like the strength differential, I do think that's a somewhat. I think it's important not only in the actual analysis of the of the situation, but I think it's important at least the perception. Because if I'm at a bar and there's a girl who's like groping one of my homies, right, and I know that he can just go whomp and then she's like flipping over, like she can't hurt him, right? He's safe from her naturally, right? He's got this sheet of like muscle that she cannot penetrate. But if it's a woman, right? If it's a woman, and let's say I'm grabbing her, okay, and I'm a bigger dude, right? I'm 6'2", not to brag, right? But I'm a bigger dude, and I'm coming after her. She could be thinking multiple things, right? She could be thinking, I want to slap him and push him, but then he might punch me and he might follow me home and kill me. And I don't know this guy. He's much bigger than me. He is, frankly, men are much more aggressive than women and have a much higher proclivity to violence, right? I mean, there's so many things that are probably going on in our head that I think lead to someone being more justly afraid in that situation if they're a woman compared to a man. Because one of the reasons why men have such a hard time empathizing sometimes with like the plight of men. Yeah, with the plight of men who are, sexually assaulted, is because it's hard to put ourselves in that position, right? Like, it's hard for me to put myself in that position. I could just punch her, and then what? Then she's gone. She can't hurt me anymore.
Then the bouncer beats the shit out of you because you touched.
Yeah, another man, right? That's scary. Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
And you're 5'11".
So what you do is you just sit there and take it because you don't want to get your ass beat by the bouncer.
Let's go to 6'2", 5'11". Let's go to Bam.
That's all she's gonna be thinking about anyways. Like, is that you're 6'2"?
So there, like, just responding to that, I think there's a type of woman that does still slap the guy when he does that, and I think that, like, I don't know if this study exists as far as the specifics, but I like the type of woman that slaps him regardless, especially in like a public setting. It probably is. I would imagine is probably far less likely to face to be sexually assaulted, just because of the ability to like stick up themselves overcoming whatever that fear factor is. Because like everything we know about sexual assault points out that like guys aren't like pinning people down and like, well, not in mass. That's not the vast majority of sexual assaults. Responding to something that Corey said earlier. Corey said earlier about like the dealing with hypocrisy and wanting to keep things equal. One, I don't know if I'm necessarily I don't know if I'm super interested in equality, like in equality with these things, because I do think there's situational awareness, like situations are individual. I think it's okay to have a standard that you look towards, but that standard can account for factors that are going to vary from situation to situation. But I say all that to say, even if you were interested, like I didn't bring this up as a conversation that men should be going to prison for groping either. Again, like that was one of the first things. I think groping is like extremely inappropriate, and I think that like that cultural shift of like, oh yeah, you're a loser, like you're a creep, like I think that level of social pushback should be there. And even in like the private sector of like jobs and things, like not wanting to deal with someone who's doing that types of things, but I just don't know if groping alone is like bad as it is, reaches a negative behavior where I'm like, oh, okay, taking this person out of society makes life better, like putting him in prison somehow.
Yeah, but how do you do that? How do you change the social stigma and convince a bunch of guys that what happened to Michael, whatever the fuck his name is, that's like something he should like, that we should be shaming the woman about, or so on and so forth.
That seems to be what is happening. I think that social stigma. Now you could say, I don't know if it's genuine or if it's coming from a place of revenge against like, oh, women talk about sexual assault, but they don't want to take men serious. So now we have a situation. So I'm going to act extra pissed like women to show them they're crazy. Like, I don't know how genuine it is, but like the overwhelming response seems to have been like, oh, wow, what the F did she do that? And like I said, I'm thinking that the response, like my issue is actually, I think the response is overblown. I think that people are like, she should,
Well, yeah. See, your response is already that it's overblown, and then like this came out, but then also just like this whole Chris Brown tour is happening again, and every single photo is him grabbing some girl's ass. The girls are bent over, and they're the ones telling him
they're literally paying for it, dude.
They're paying for it, and he has to oblige, right? This is him. He's essentially doing OnlyFans he's doing
a hooker.
He's softcore prostituting. In a way, shape, or form. Is this not a form of like sexual assault as well, or do you think like
no? Because he's the one.
People are going to relate it because the Michael guy is going to be he's a celebrity that was hanging around someone that potentially wasn't a celebrity, so the person's infatuated with him, right? And then with all these male celebrities, no, I'm saying the way it looks and the perception is, well, look, if this guy's complaining that some girl grabbed him, well, I mean, look at Chris Brown. He's literally getting paid for girls to put. Well, the perception of people, Prime.
Yeah,
the way people are going to look at it, they're not. They're going to not take these
consensual
visuals
sex
so
work, right?
seriously.
We can call what like I haven't seen these photos, right? So I'm just gonna go in your description. But
hilarious.
consensual sex work isn't sexual assault.
Hilarious.
Like if he's like wants to do it, right, and he's being paid to do so, and it's not sexual. I don't know why you're mixing these two.
It's not even like he requested. Like he's the one that offered the service to them. He's like, hey, you pay $1,200. Like, give me $1,200.
What a life, dude!
Picture
Yeah, right?
Charging money to grab ass. Holy shit, my man has it made.
Like, once you see these pictures, you will understand. It's like the same people that are like, "Oh, you're a gynecologist? What a life!" And it's like, "Oh, but you have to deal with the infected ones too." Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh,
You know.
Yeah,
well, how much? Wait, how did you say $1,200 a squeeze? Is that what he's getting paid?
Well, no, it's just like basically
there's
VIP
a lot
members.
of very
He's saying that,
unattractive
like,
women that are like,
it's
Yeah, but $1,200 though per squeeze.
It's if you go
Fair.
on this tour, if you pay for the VIP backstage tickets, he's basically saying that like most people, like usually VIPs for like artists is you get a picture with the artist, and usually the artist is just like posted up with a peace sign, and it's really like like it doesn't feel connected. So he's like, you know what? They done paid this amount of money. I'm gonna take a pose in whatever pose you like. I'm gonna take a picture of whatever pose you want me to get in. So like he's like, some women are like pick me up, some women are like bent over on him. He's like, you know, I'm gonna give you your money's worth here. That's what he's doing. It's not just like sex.
Did anybody ever talk about what Rihanna did? Like, I know that whole story, like she got hit or whatever, but why? Why did that happen?
She was.
No,
They were fighting in the
talking
car.
back,
She was like,
obviously.
Does it matter?
I don't know.
I kinda. What she do?
She was.
They were both
she was
teenagers,
clawing
like-
at him.
Like if
was
she pulled a
fighting him.
gun, like
Wait, she was clawing at him. She was fighting him, and then she took at the time CDs were like how they kept their music. She took a bunch of his like pre-recorded music and like threw it out of the car. They were both like getting into it pretty bad.
wait, she was clawing him? I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, dog. She was like, they were fucking going at
I'm
it.
about to say
he
she's
had,
psycho.
He had like claw marks on his face and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, why did he get in trouble, but she didn't get in trouble? We're talking about equality for a second. When you claw somebody, shouldn't you get in trouble?
Because he punched the F out of her.
Her
He
face,
fucked her up.
Yeah,
just
he
look
fucked
at
her
her
up.
fucking face.
He
Well, to your
defended
point,
himself,
like
didn't he?
exactly, and he got what he got for defending himself. So a woman sexually assaults
You're right. You're right. I've changed my
You can
mind. That's a
fuck
good
her
point.
up.
Oh my god.
There's always the threat of law enforcement, where you can defend yourself,
pictures,
but you're still gonna you're still there. Yeah, good point.
Oh my god. So I'm gonna. This is useful. Okay, thank you for showing me that. I mean, sort of, because. So I'm gonna move on to Doobie, Aiko, and Corey. Before that, just quickly, talking about the type of women to not be assaulted, right? I told this story before, and probably to some of you guys. You guys been here for a long time. But about my mother, right? I bring up my mother often. She's amazing. But back in the old country, she worked in a textile factory. And there was her boss had this thing going on. He would like get women to sleep with him for like favorite shifts, right, and possibly a bit of extra money. And so like he was just like running through, like it was like a bunch of seamstress stuff, so it was like just a factory full of women, and so he was just running through them. And then he came out his office and he went to my mother and with the same old, and my mother like got up, like called him out in front of the entire floor, and I'm like, no, I won't sleep with you, no, don't touch me, like I know what kind of man you are, right? And yeah, like putting a few extra dollars, well, or whatever the currency was, in my pocket, isn't gonna change that, right? And it humiliated him, and he scurried back to his office. He never bothered her again. But yeah, just going on to what you guys are saying, it's not necessarily sexual assault, at least not in the story that I got. But it's on that spectrum, right? Where this person is using their power over their underlings to entice them to have sex with them. But
hot take. I don't think that's morally wrong. I don't think that's wrong. I think you have every right to go to your employees and say, "Hey, want a better shift?"
Well,
isn't that just adding sex work to their job description?
Hey. Speaking of that, let's go to Doobie. because he's made this argument before. Doobie.
So it's no different than wages. Like it's
it's no different than
if you
wages.
don't want to do it, don't do it.
Hey, Doobie, thoughts
Hi.
on all of this?
As a business owner in charge of employees, how do you...
So I think that I don't know. Obviously, women can rape men, right? I think that what's interesting to me, what I was thinking about while you guys were talking, while Scott was primarily talking the entire time, is I wonder if it's a class thing. Like, I wonder if the reaction, because my reaction to this is it's not a big deal. I think he's exaggerating. I think he's blowing something out of nothing. I think everybody's looking at this from the outside. Of these media people are blowing something away out of proportion. Yeah, she grabbed his dick. Who gives a fuck, right? But one, I'm a dude. Two, I grew up in a place where this was pretty common for people to be very forward, women even to be very forward in their sexual advances, right? Like I've been groped at clubs and shit before. I've been groped on the fucking street before, right? And I feel like this is like, I was wondering if my perception of this is a class because I looked into this actor, and I don't know his whole family history, right? But I know that based on what I found online about his family, about his upbringing, he's been in movies since he was like 10 years old, right? And a lot of movies, lots of projects, like recurring roles, not just like a fucking extra. His parents are immigrated to the U.S. From Jamaica. His mother has a master's degree in multiple businesses, at least 2 businesses that I was able to find. Father also is also a business owner, if I remember correctly when I was looking at it. So he seems to come from like middle upper class kind of family, right? And I was and this other guy, this Thai guy, the streamer dude. I was looking at his old streams, his family, the way that he carries himself, and it screams of like, and also he's very newly famous. Like he started his stream in like I think 2021, right? And he blew up with like his dance TikToks and shit. And if you look at the way he carries himself, he seems like somebody who grew up in kind of like a not shitty circumstances, but didn't grow up wealthy. Look at the way he carries himself. Look at the way his family carries himself. Like his father comes onto stream drunk and almost starts fights with people on the stream. They have to like drag him out of the room. Like just the way that they speak, it's just the way that they carry themselves. They seem like people from the kind of area that I grew up, right? And I wonder like what it made me think of. It actually reminded me of a Kendrick Lamar song from "To Pimp a Butterfly," where Kendrick is talking about how when he got out of the hood, he was going to these like music industry shows, and he brought his friends. And they're talking about like robbing people and shit, right? And I think like the phrase that Snoop Dogg uses like, "You can take the homie out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the homie," right? So he has this family and these friends who aren't wealthy people, don't know anything about like these kind of like environments, these kind of the kind of culture that he's like suddenly pushed into with his TikTok fame and YouTube fame. So they just don't know how to behave around these people, right? And what she did, I think, in 90% of situations in that kind of community, it would be totally fine for her to grab some guy's dick she wanted to fuck, right? And the guy would be totally okay with it 90% of these situations if he found her like attractive or whatever. But because this is somebody that doesn't really come from that kind of culture, isn't really used to that kind of interaction, and has been raised with the more like PC consent thing that is pushed in like schools and colleges and whatnot. To him, it's gonna seem totally alien, I guess. So I don't know. I was wondering like what you guys think about that, because to me it really does seem more like seems like it's exaggerated, but I think it's exaggerated because it's like some kind of twisted clash of cultures, right? Where she's doing something that's totally normalized within her circles, and to him, because he's just not in that circle, it's just not something that they do.
Well, the fact that it's normalized is like a bad thing. Like
No,
the
I
fact
disagree.
that you like, and there's some I think really good examples of this. This goes actually bleeds into perfectly of like the history of intimate partner violence or domestic abuse, where this is we know that it's been occurred for a while, but like early couples counseling, okay, when they were whatever counseling married couples, it was just assumed that if If there was actual like severe abuse, like the man or woman is being battered, like surely they would speak up. And like questionnaires were administered, like to screen for abuse. Okay, and like it seemed like abuse isn't really like running rampant at all. And yet, when they changed the questionnaires, okay, and they explicitly ask, like, is your spouse or partner like hitting you in the face and like slapping you around? The survey numbers, the response rate goes through the roof, and basically, the people in these relationships didn't view this as a bad thing until it was like called to their attention, like, hey, you shouldn't actually be hit in the face by your partner. Probably not a healthy dynamic. And so the fact that you're normalizing that behavior, or like, yeah, since you grew up around groping, ergo not a big deal. I think that's a testament to a perverse culture.
And to add to his point, and go back to you, Doobie. To add to his point, like there is education. I remember one. I work with social workers, so like I was like aware of all this stuff. But two, like this also what was happening when I was coming up through school when they were talking about like domestic violence within teen relationships, that so many teens they just don't know what a normal functioning relationship is. And so like at like if he's hitting her or the other way around, or they're controlling, right, is this what love is? I actually don't know. And so like and they're telling me they love me, right, and I feel something for them, so maybe this is just the way like relationships go. This is just the ups and downs, right? So like there's
Right.
a level of education has to go in. But yeah, DB.
What if there was a
Well,
genie?
that's
I'm
like
sorry,
that's
before I just wanted to ask it real
right.
quick because you can just add your point. What if there was a genie like that could come out and grant a wish and said that like, oh, okay, these type of like groping situations, like not we're not talking further than that. We're talking about just this like grabbing, maybe touching the boob, grabbing the butt, grabbing the dick. We these all these situations are still gonna happen, but the genies could snap his fingers and make it where no one was traumatized from it. No one felt bothered from it. They'd be like, "Oh, stop that," whatever. But like, no one had took the mental weight of it with them. Would would you do it? Like, is the action itself the problem, or do you talk about all the psychological and negative impacts it has? Like, what is this thing that y'all value?
We am a libertarians. You know
Or
my answer.
actually, before, I don't even want to
Consequential
say what you value
trauma
because it's still
doesn't
Doobie's turn. But just raise your hand if you would like do that if you could, like remove people's trauma from groping.
I mean,
I don't know if
No.
they're
I mean, I
getting
would
much.
Wouldn't
if
psychologically
that was the only
brainwash
option.
masses of people.
Well, Prim, I think
Wouldn't.
let me try to word it. Because I think I've mentioned this like I brought this up using my favorite tribe ever, right? The Sambian tribe in Papua New Guinea, where they suck dick as a rite of passage, right? As
And
children.
murder children if they won't.
Sure. So so in this tribe, because it's like normalized, it's something that they do as a rite of passage. There's not this attached trauma, right? That you'd have here if a kid was like forced to suck a dude's dick.
They kill the kids that won't do it.
Well, I'm
Nope.
still speaking right
Anything
now.
to do
Right?
with
Hold
it.
on,
That's
well,
just
we kill
their
people here all
culture,
the fucking
man.
time who don't do what they're supposed to do, right? So if people here don't follow the rules, they get shot too. Right? People die in cultures, yes. So, so in this culture, there's not this attached trauma, right? So I think the question that I asked you forever ago was, okay, well, if they don't feel traumatized by this thing that they're doing, is it immoral to teach them that they have been traumatized? To teach them that actually, hey, you're all victims of child molestation, actually. So you should feel traumatized and you should go to therapy. I think that's a bit of what's happening with the groping thing. I don't think he's actually traumatized, or he shouldn't be traumatized by some girl grabbing his dick. Okay, it's not scary. Yeah, someone touched your pee-pee, grow the fuck up. Okay, and I'd say the same to a woman. It's not that scary if a dude gropes your ass a little bit. Just smack him, say, hey, don't fucking touch me, and that's it. Move the fuck on. You don't need therapy. You don't need to go to class or group to talk to somebody about it. Just grow the fuck up, right? So, and I think that this like culture of like I don't even know how to word it. There's like this culture of like victimization where they make everything about like the trauma and oh god, you need to talk through this, and oh god, you've been therapized and you're hurt, and if you don't feel like you hurt, it's just because you haven't processed it yet. It's like this fucking thing where they're like teaching people that they're hurt, and in teaching people that they're hurt, they're actually hurting them. Right. So when I was talking about like the consent culture thing earlier, that's kind of what I was referring to. I don't mean that people shouldn't consent to sex. I mean that that it shouldn't be you shouldn't be traumatized to the point of like needing to process it. Like his statement was, "Oh, I'm still processing." Like what you got your dick grabbed. Like grow the fuck up. Like you're just you should have just said no, push your hand away. Instead, he just sit there, maybe laughed it off like a bitch. But maybe it's just because he didn't know how to respond. He's never interacted with that kind of person before. Somebody was that forward. Okay, sure, okay, whatever. But I don't think any adult person should need time to process what happened. It's not that fucking complicated. Yeah, some girl was attracted to you and she grabbed your dick inappropriately. Okay, move the fuck on. I don't understand this need to like traumatize things or make something into trauma.
It's like when a
So if
baby
I can-
falls, like if you make a big deal about it, then they'll
Oh, yeah.
cry. But if you
Babies
don't,
don't feel
they won't.
pain. They just
Or they're not. Then they're terrified of falling again, right? If you made a big deal out of it versus, oh, it's okay.
Well, see, what's interesting about bringing up the baby fall situation is it's actually there's a theory, and Corey might be fond of it because he's a big attachment theory guy. I know you are. There's a theory about how we create cluster B personality disorders, and one of the ways that we believe that it might occur is mixed signals from parents, right? So when you fall and you hit your head and it's really, really bad, mommy and daddy both freak out. And when you fall and you hit your head and it's not really that big of a deal, mommy might freak out, but daddy doesn't. And then when you fall and you like stub your toe and nothing happens, nobody freaks out. This occurs enough times and you create an understanding of a severity of injury and the emotional reaction that's appropriate to the severity of injury because you get more data. And this is why certain emotional disorders tend to be more common in single parents because you have less data to work with, right? You only have one parent. And then if you have a parent that's like an alcoholic that doesn't care when your brains are on the floor and then freaks out and gets really mad when you stub your toe, now you have really bad data. So it is interesting that we talk about how that victimization mentality and over therapy. And one of the things people don't talk about therapy is talk therapy fucks people up sometimes. And we act like that doesn't happen, but it absolutely does. Sometimes if you go to a bad therapist that doesn't have a goal in mind, that isn't like, okay, you have X problem. We want to solve X problem in 20 sessions. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how I'm going to figure out X problem in 3 sessions. And we're going to spend 17 sessions giving you the skills or correcting your environment or doing something to try and alleviate or solve X. And that's why cognitive behavioral therapy tends to be so good. Isn't because it's the best, but it's because it's very rigid. And so it kind of doesn't go off the rails with bad psychotherapists. And lastly, so I do agree with you, Doobie. And to piggyback off of well, to some degree, obviously, I don't agree that, the Papua New Guinea people that suck dicks or get murdered aren't traumatized. Like they're clearly traumatized just because they've dealt with it, and or the ones that couldn't deal with it are dead.
Yeah, I think you just made that up.
Because those. No, you can look it up.
Show me where they're
like, it's
clearly
literally-
traumatized. Where do you find that they're clearly traumatized by this?
I'm sorry. You think that I'm making up the fact that that trauma must be associated with this? You're correct.
Yeah.
I am making up that there isn't a study about this specific tribe who were forced to suck dick or be murdered, who then grow up in a culture where they force other children to suck dick or be murdered. That like there might be some fucking psychological issues there.
I can give you another example though, right? Like the
Same
Dinka.
fucking assumption.
Scott, have you heard of the
But-
Dinka
but-
tribe where they recruit young boys to blow cows? Because if you blow if you orally blow like female like cows, because if you do that, then they produce more milk.
This is
Well, hold on, they produce more milk, right? The boys don't seem traumatized by
This is
that.
a
I mean,
meme.
I think it's wrong.
They're doing cunnilingus on cows.
what.
Yeah,
So-
there's videos. It's crazy on
Yeah, I mean,
YouTube
no,
too.
just
National
what I'm trying to say
Geographic.
is-
back to our culture, right? Hold on. So,
But-
Scott, you're talking
but
about
Doobie-
you always talk about
Lactoid's
the
just
state and how
actively
the state
watching
is-
videos.
Like we live in a culture.
I
we live
was
in a
laughing my
country,
ass
where
off when I saw it the
what
first
we've
time.
normalized
So-
people being
so
put in
Doobie,
cages for not
what you were
paying part of their
discussing-
money to the tax man. Okay, so if you don't give your money to some dude in a suit that you don't fucking know or see, then you get put in a cage, right? That's totally normalized here. So yeah, if they're traumatized, I guess everybody's traumatized because we all live in fucked up cultures. They do terrible things to people who don't follow the guidelines.
I think there's I think that's a silly comparison for a lot of reasons. I do you actually want me to engage with that, or is that a serious
Yeah.
argument?
I feel like this is
Okay,
wait,
yeah,
no,
so-
this is
so-
about to go way off
yeah.
topic.
Yeah. So,
Why are we making
but
it to
it's fine.
ANCAP and taxes?
Well, no. It's fine. Real quick. There's a severe difference between being separated from violence and being in violence, right? So, like, we could look at adverse childhood events, ACEs, right? And so, for example, we know that there are psychological issues tied to ACEs, or at the very least, a strong correlation. And we know that some of them are like, is a family member in prison? Have you seen a dead body? Has someone close to you died at a young age? Did you grow up in low socioeconomic status where you were hungry sometimes? And when you have a certain amount of ACEs, I think you become like 16 times more likely to die as a heroin addict, et cetera, right? So we can understand that, like, the individual, when you look at it at an individual level, there's mental resilience, right? So to say everyone is traumatized by my logic is to just not understand the resilience and understand what my argument is. But when we're saying that some people are obviously traumatized because they have more traumatic things that they're directly associated with, as like nobody here had like their mom arrested because she didn't pay the IRS man. But if they did, that's probably likely a big childhood traumatic event. But we're separated from violence. And so I would say, just to anybody wanting to know more, read Violence is Golden by Jack Donovan. Great book. To finish what I was saying,
it seems like you're having
about your
trouble
point.
separating yourself from your own like cultural perspective. Because I
I'm
think
not
that
having any troubles.
it's obvious.
Don't
it's
say
obvious
that I'm
to
having
me.
troubles.
I think you're having troubles. I think it's obvious to me that
Well, you
what you
can't point to
consider
any
to be
troubles I'm having.
traumatic, what you consider to be traumatic, right, and what a child considers to be traumatic, is going to be dictated by the culture that they're in, by the upbringing that they have.
That's
Right?
not what
Which
I
is
said.
why
You seem to be
okay.
confused.
I don't think so, because
I
you brought up these
specifically- I gave
studies.
you a
You brought
specific
up
example,
these
which is
studies. You brought up these
ACEs.
studies that are about Western nations, right? And how people react to these traumas, quote unquote, in Western nations.
ACEs have been shown to also be true in other places.
How the fuck could you show that somebody's in some random ass tribe somewhere is going to get addicted to meth or heroin? If they're more likely
That's
to get
not what I
addicted to a
said.
drug.
There's no
This is
heroin in the
very
Dinka
confused.
tribe.
Yeah, so you don't.
There's
so
just
you're
cows.
having trouble separating yourself
Doobie,
from the thing
Doobie,
that
make
I'm
an
saying.
argument.
And a plethora of milk, apparently.
No, so
Lots
so-
of milk.
so-
They have
so
very
again-
productive
Lots of
cows for
milk.
some reason.
Again, no. So again, you didn't deal with
Take
anything
up
that I
these
actually said.
practices
You
here.
just kind of went on trying to randomly
Cheaper
attack
milk.
shit. Like learn to argue, Doobie. But lastly, what I've been trying to
I think
get to,
Iko needs to
where you
speak.
keep going on these silly dick sucking memes, right? Is what you're
Cowalingus.
describing.
Well, if
what you are describing, Doobie, is known as
was here-
intersubjective communication, right? And you are correct that intersubjective communication does play a role in our understanding of even sexual assault, such as groping. And so, like, the term that I think you might want to delve more into, if you're curious about that, is intersubjective communication, which is to say, like, when we, if I were to move to Vietnam, right, and I were to put up a sign that says no trespassing in English, I wouldn't necessarily expect the Vietnamese population to know that this is my private property and that they shouldn't go across this sign, because it says something in a different language that they don't read, and that they may not look like they're no trespassing signs. They might just go, "Oh, that's a funny sign in English. I wonder what," or in English, "I don't know what
What
that
do you
says,"
think
and they
milk
keep
tastes
walking,
like
right?
straight out? The udder.
But when you're talking, but if I were to put up a fence, for example, a fence is a clear communication regardless of
Is it hot?
like what language we speak.
warm.
Right, that fence.
Pussy.
It is warm, yeah.
As
That
Coblander.
fence is communicating. It's an intersubjective communication that's kind of a standard of, this is my property. And so the same thing can be said about sexual assault in those situations, which is, in some cultures, like say island cultures, for example, groping is really commonplace, right? Especially if you're at a cookout where you're dancing, like,
You ever had
you're
goat milk?
probably going to get groped. But if you're not, and so
Camel
that
milk?
situation and those class differences can play a role. So I do agree with you in that regard. But we do need to kind of accept that doesn't mean that that's necessarily good, or that it's morally good that a culture gropes people as part of their culture, to kind of piggyback off what Corey is saying.
Doobie, if you want to add something, a last thing, then I'm going to go to Aiko and Corey.
We're so far away from the thing I was going to say, but that's okay.
No, bring it back, Iko. Just completely change. I
He's
promise.
gonna
Well, I
say
just
it
wanna
on
know if
YouTube.
there are, like,
I'll just
are there
apply
other
it to
cows-
bovine
Honestly,
cunnilingus, okay?
Are there other cows that they didn't do
Wait, hold on.
cowalingus on to
Oh, God.
show that they produce less milk?
Look, so they not only
That's-
did they have the young boys like do blow the cows, I think
Yeah, I want to
it's
see
still
the
called
80,
blowing.
Blow
like
the
the
cow-
control
It's still
stuff.
called blowing if it's
blow.
a,
Blow is a male term.
Well,
Yeah.
what would you call it then? Like
I feel like the
eat
udders
out,
would
eat out.
be.
They're eating out the cows. They're eating out the cows. Yeah,
Are
yeah.
they? Wait. Are they on the vagina or on the udder?
The vagina. They're on the vagina.
Okay.
Yeah, they're sucking. It's not. It's
Relax,
not really
we're
eating
gonna
out
do
though,
that.
because they're blowing into it. That's why I'm calling it blowing. It's like they
Blowing
put their face and go.
But it is submissive, right?
Hold on,
Like,
they're
they're being
blowing
yeah, of
into
course.
the
They're
cows
they're
too.
motor boating.
They're motorboating, exactly. And then here's the other thing: they let the cows pee on their heads because it stains their hair orange because of the acidity in cow pee.
So you know which one.
So yeah, they're all walking around letting
It's
cows.
a uniform
pee
of
on
the
their-
job. It's a uniform of the job. I just need
It's
to know
the
if
weirdest
there are
video I've
cows-
ever seen in my
I need to know
life.
if there are
Parody that you
cows
saw
that
and
they
you thought
didn't
was
perform
documentary?
this on. I need to know if there are cows they didn't perform this on, and if they produced less milk, or if this is just we've just been doing this forever. Because
I don't think they did like a
A comparative
proper
study.
scientific study
Yeah.
on the.
Let's go to Dibby. If you have anything else you want to add, then we'll go to Aiko.
No, we can go to Ica. That's fine.
Okay,
Ical.
Ical.
I really don't have a way of transitioning this to like what we're talking about right now. But
You don't
I
have
just
to.
wanted to respond to, I guess, what at this point an hour ago Lactoid was talking about, which was his like East European friend, right, was saying. And I just wanted to say that when he said that there was a kernel of truth to it, I think there is a kernel of truth. The kernel of truth is that power levels matter, right? Like power relationships. And so, you guys were talking about it at that time in terms of physical power, like you're bigger or taller or whatever. But there are lots of different ways power relationships express themselves, right? Like if it's your boss doing it, or if in this case we're talking about like maybe potentially a fan and a celebrity, there's like different levels of power there. So that's one thing to consider is that most of the time in those situations, men have more power than women in those occurrences. So if a woman is groping, it's probably less of a problem for the man than if it was the other way around. But that's not without exception. There are situations where it might be a woman who has more power in that relationship, like if it's your boss or something like that. So I think that you just have to ask yourself, like, who has the power in that relationship? How easy is it to get out of it? And as Lactoid was mentioning before, how easy is it for the person being groped to stop that, to get away from it, to like make sure it doesn't happen? And so like all of those things are things that you consider. And because men and women like now I'm backing it up from the individual to the aggregate. In the aggregate, men tend to have more power, and so it's going to be more of a problem more often when it's a man groping a woman. But that doesn't mean to say that it can't happen the other way around. So we have this thing called prosecutorial discretion, and it's not just judges or whatever. It's not just prosecutors that have that. It's also victims, right? If they can choose whether or not they want to prosecute. So if this guy doesn't think it's that big a deal, it made him feel uncomfortable. He canceled the interview and he left, but he doesn't think it's like, he doesn't consider himself a victim, or if he doesn't consider this to be something that creates trauma for him, which I'm guessing it doesn't, then maybe this is the end of it and he's not going to prosecute or anything like that. He's just saying that, hey, this is inappropriate. The one other consideration I think might be changed my perspective on this is that if you're a celebrity, something like this, women hitting on you all the time, might become so frequent that starts to get annoying. Right? Like maybe the first few times that happens, you don't mind for the reasons that a lot of men don't mind. But then when it continually happens all the time, and you know that there's always expectations behind it. It might not just be that the woman wants to get laid. It might be that she like is trying to hook him. Like she wants, I mean, he's powerful, he's rich, he's famous. Like she might be interested in more, right? And so that's a kind of expectation that celebrities probably have to wade through all the time, constantly, is people trying to get something from them in some way or another. And I would imagine that if you don't put your foot down on that, like almost like broken window theory, like you stop it from happening at the very beginning, which is what the groping is. Maybe the groping itself isn't a problem, but all of the expectations that go along with it is a problem.
Yeah.
And if you're a celebrity, that kind of stuff has got to be happening to you nonstop.
There was an episode of Dave that kind of dealt with this idea, but like someone like, regardless of power dynamics, Brad Pitt probably isn't safe. like from women, like just to be walking out casually. I'm sure men too, but like you would
I
say
mean,
like,
think
oh,
about
he's a really
Harry Styles, right? Girls will literally chase him out, or any of the pop stars that literally get chased down the street. They can't even
That
be
was
like
funny
around
as
you.
fuck.
You know,
Just that sentence out of context is hilarious. Brad Pitt is probably not safe.
I get his point. He can't walk out without having like a slew of women like chasing him or
Like-
being
like,
all
like,
on him. And yeah,
And especially
Like,
him because
he
he
would
has
say that
this
he would be
reputation of
physically
dating
assaulted.
like younger like women all the time. So people in that age group who like see him, maybe they think, "Aha, I can shoot my shot." Because
Am I supposed to feel
he'll do
bad
that
for
sort
him
of thing.
about this? Like, is it? I'm sorry.
Now you're doing
yeah,
the guy
that-
thing. Look,
that's what we're
oh,
trying to
man.
do.
I'm doing the guy thing, okay? I'm
Yeah.
doing the guy thing, okay?
Well,
It's,
when
you're
it's
rich
not happening
and
to
famous.
that was
you,
my
Yeah, you're
point.
right. You're right. Oh my god, I'm rich and famous, like rich and famous, and hordes of women. Oh my god,
Yeah.
what a
Wait,
life!
it's not even
No,
rich
wait.
and famous. Like okay, let me tell you from the perspective of an educator. This is something I was told when I was first coming up and being trained on this stuff. I had like an 80-year-old teacher who was like training me, and she said this thing about how about vulnerable kids attaching to their teachers and then being inappropriate with their teachers. She said, you may think that this won't happen to you, right? Or you may think, let me tell you, it still happens to me. Like she's 80 years old. She says it doesn't matter how attractive you are or aren't. It doesn't matter how old you are, what the difference is or whatever. It's not that they're just hitting on the hot teachers. It's that maybe they come from a broken home where no one's ever like shown them respect or affection in their life, and you've treated them better than anyone else ever has, and then they start to put that into an inappropriate place because they themselves are not particularly healthy because they're not coming from a healthy home. And so there's that power relationship with the teachers, right? Where obviously it's always the teacher's fault if it goes in a wrong place. However, it's not always initiated by the person with more power. It might be initiated by the person with less power. And so you have that much more of an obligation, as the more powerful one to be careful and look for the signs of it, right? And so even for teachers, there are a lot of teachers who they have to deal with this. Maybe maybe it doesn't happen every single year, but it happens a lot, like maybe 2-3 times a decade, where you have to create more distance than you otherwise would between yourself and so yeah. So these things where you think the more powerful person is the one like with more options, but it's not always that way. And with a celebrity, you're putting that on steroids. With a celebrity, it's like every time you walk out the door. And so, and again, there's all this list of expectations that go along with it that you need to navigate. And yeah, maybe at first it's a lot of fun, like what Lactoid is talking about, right? But once it happens over and over, once it happens with enough frequency, anything becomes annoying. When you've been inundated with it for long enough.
It's not just annoying. There's a
Lactoid, you'll see
level.
once you get a better bike, the more you'll be annoyed with the amount of girls.
Once you become a real man,
I just
like
I understand that maybe like it's wrong, or sure. I'm just saying that like I have a hard time feeling bad for somebody who's rich and famous, right? They're living in a fucking mansion with all these fucking models chasing
there are
after
worse
them.
fates.
Well, that's the
it's
idea,
so
right?
awful.
No, but it's up to
That's the idea.
there's a
It's like when I hear like some yuppie driving their SUV complaining about the fact that it's front wheel drive instead of all wheel drive. Like I hear you, sure, there's probably a pain in the ass sometimes, but like I don't care.
No,
All right.
it's not just a sometimes thing. Like being a celebrity, like from everything that I've heard, being a celebrity is fun up until like a B tier celebrity. A B tier celebrity is like, oh, okay, I have the money, like the women, all of those things.
Fame.
But there's like when you're like S tier celebrity, like when you hear about the stories, it does like even it just sounds like miserable. Like yes, you have a lot of money. You can't go anywhere to actually spend it. Like you have to spend it like at your home. You can't if you drive in a car.
They can afford security.
Sure, if you drive in a car and someone happens to see notice you in the car, now you can't even drive because you're like swarmed by thousands of people. Like for example, I know it's one of the probably one of the more extreme examples, but Michael Jackson couldn't exist in public. Michael Jackson couldn't go to a movies. Michael Jackson couldn't go to a grocery store. Michael Jackson couldn't go visit. Well, I guess he could visit his sister because she was equally a celebrity.
And that was
But-
his whole life. Like even when he was like a real little kid, it was that.
Yeah.
like the concept of having even friendships, and then there's always 37 death threats at you, and then people will tell you like, oh, these are probably not credible, but like one of them might be, but we'll stop it if it is. Like it's celebrities.
Well, can I just-
being a really really famous person does come with like sacrificing a big portion of your humanity.
Well, can I just point out too, like, just kind of throwing a little bit of a wrench in you, but like, there's a YouTube video you can search called "Open Secret Leonardo DiCaprio," and like, I see all the time where there is, this like discussion from women about how disgusting it is that Leonardo DiCaprio like dates like a 19 to 22-year-old girl and then dumps her when she turns 23 or 24. But like all you
25, I
need to
seen
do
the
is
chart,
watch that.
Yeah. Huh.
Okay, all you need to do is watch that video and watch Brian Peck have his hands all over Leonardo DiCaprio, and know what we know about Brian Peck now, and what we know now, and know that Leonardo DiCaprio was probably sexually molested as a child in Hollywood multiple times, and all of a sudden his sexual proclivities don't seem that fucking weird. That he's got some issues and that he doesn't want to settle down and create a family. Like, Hollywood especially is a disgusting and dark place with a lot of fucking secrets. So I feel like it is interesting maybe sometimes to talk about how fame, can affect, because it allows us to see men in a similar kind of environment where like attractive women go out and are constantly under the gaze of multiple men, etc. But it is exactly that, an outlier, and I think there's a lot of unknown variables that make Hollywood difficult to understand because there's so much disgusting, horrible shit that so many people have said about Hollywood, and then everyone goes, that's just another scarred childhood actor. They're crazy. Look at them. They're on drugs now. None of those Hollywood executives fuck kids. Anyways, is there another one that's coming out and saying something? Well, who cares? I bet they'll die from a drug overdose sometime soon.
I'm not diminishing the childhood sexual assault part. I'm just diminishing like the rich people complaining about people, being cultural icons.
I mean, or like
that's what I don't like.
Or just listen to Justin Bieber's song "Lonely," right? Like, you can have everything and be completely fucking alone and isolated by the concept of fame, and feel horrible whilst being a multimillionaire because nobody knows you and that you're not able to have a normal life and you have nothing but eyes on you, and like you can be in a room of 1 million people that all want to touch you and all want to be with you, and you're in your own shell.
You could
wishing that you
quit
could just be somewhere
and
else.
leave and live off the millions, and in 4 or 5 years, everyone's just going to call you a washout, and no one's really going to call you a celebrity. But these people actively choose to continue to do these things. Harry Styles can complain that the women that he chooses are all just obsessed with him because of blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, he keeps singing and he keeps making the millions.
Go move to Spain.
Yeah, just leave. Just stop.
Yeah, it's hard to feel sorry for them when what you describe, Scott, is true. But I mean, the average person could also feels that way, right? Many people also feel that way, but they don't have the money to fall back on. They got to worry about the bills and they got to go to work.
Yeah, but these are you're comparing two different things.
I feel isolated.
Right. I mean, like, I understand what you're saying, that like it's difficult to empathize with people that don't have all of the common day-to-day stresses that we have that come from money, and that they bitch and complain about these other stressors that we don't experience. And it's like, that's cool, but like, I had to cut back on my groceries. Like,
or we experience them. We experience the isolation, the loneliness. It's empathy. Just not because of fame. It's because of brokenness, and more people feel that. And so,
I mean, I think, I don't
complaining
know.
about the same things we are.
I agree with you in a way, but I would say that if you can find Inside the Actors Studio interview with Dave Chappelle when he got back from Africa, he talks about Martin Lawrence as his idol, and how Martin Lawrence went crazy and was waving a gun down the street, freaking out, having a psychotic episode. And he says, these aren't weak people that get here. Maybe they're in a fucked up place. And he describes the process of how you can't become unfamous once you're famous. He says you can't become unfamous. You can become infamous, but you can't become unfamous. And described even like when he went to Africa, how they were calling him a crackhead and they were making up all these stories about him, all because he decided to walk away from Hollywood.
Who is
But you don't
this?
actually get to
Dave
become
Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle. Oh, Dave Chappelle. Okay, yeah, sure.
And inside the actor's studio, it's an old one from
Yeah.
like not long after he got back from Africa. So like I do agree with you. I think it's an interesting topic, and I don't think it really helps us understand sexual assault because these people are outliers that live kind of in a different world than we live. But I do think that maybe you guys are being a little bit unfair, a little uncharitable
Hmm.
to the pain
No, I
and
don't
the
think so.
and the impossible situation of fame,
So
especially because you can't really walk away from it.
I think this is very similar when Hassan said, "Look, streaming is hard. Okay, working a real job, that's not soul crushing, but streaming is." And what that implies here is a complete lack of perspective, which all these people have because they're rich and famous. Sorry.
Sure,
Right.
let's go to.
it doesn't make it easy.
Let's go to Corey. I went and before that, I'm going to do a quick story, then I'll go straight to Corey. But just to back up what Aiko said, is that I had a friend, a social worker, right? He was also because I met him in a hospital, but he was also a social worker previously at a school. And there was this girl who was acting up and being extremely inappropriate, and he like they're like, oh, will you go and talk to her? And so he like walks in, and she immediately like apparently I'm told she was actually quite attractive too, which compounds the situation. But she immediately was going like like escalated things like sexually, and he like walked out. He's like, there's no way I'm going to be alone in the room with that woman, like just that with that child, like just no way. Because like yeah, didn't want that kind of trouble. But the point is that it happens, right? Like this these kids being extremely inappropriate. Yeah, there's even more stories there, but like I should probably leave that alone because it's
Well, also on the thing about not feeling sorry for celebrities or whatever, like Nietzsche said, man is happiest during incremental increases in power. So what you have to understand is that suffering often happens relative to where you were before. And if you're like already at the top, there's nowhere to go. This is why suicide and depression rates are highest among the rich, because there's really like, I guess, like no way for them to sort of improve their lot in life. So experientially, it doesn't seem like they're improving. And whereas if you were born at the bottom of the economic spectrum and you're getting a $10,000 raise every couple of years, it seems like your life is going great. Even though you never reach the heights that those other people have, you would think that people at the bottom would be the least happy and people at the top would be the happiest. It's not the way.
Yeah,
It's not the way it goes.
I mean, it's Durkheim literally describes like the first sociology study ever conducted was discovering that wealthy white men were the ones that were killing themselves.
There is a correlation between happiness and income, though. That's important to note.
But it's not absolute. It's relative.
It's not absolute,
relative
but
to where you've been in
generally
the
speaking,
past.
generally speaking, like the more money you make in America, like people report as happier, they make more money. Generally,
shows wealthy white men.
Well, yeah, but that's
Unless they're
also
born that
that's
way.
also
Unless they're
time
born that way.
frozen. Part of the problem with that study is age, right? So like the majority of people make it out of the bottom income bracket into the middle class and into the upper class. Majority of all Americans become middle class or upper class throughout their life, and it's only 7%, I think, was the last time I looked at it, of people that stay in the bottom 20% their entire lives. It's very, very rare in America that you're in the bottom 20% of wealth and you don't at least make it to the second quintile. So a lot of times when you're comparing to, because usually what you're talking about is age, right? Like a 20-year-old with no skills is the person that's in the bottom 20%, even if they're from a middle class family, right? Because they live in a studio apartment, they have a shitty job, and they're in college. They have no money. They're in the bottom 20%, even though they're coming from the middle class. So when we talk about depression and the correlation with income, sometimes there's a confounding variable there, which is like 19, 20-year-olds with like trying to find a place to like that are just getting into the world versus like 55-year-olds that are like settled with a house and are retiring. It's like part of that is income, but part of that is the growth and lifestyle. And
Yeah, if you drop from the top quintile to the
figured it
second
up
to
like
the
10
top
minutes.
quintile, you're like that's gonna feel like a disaster.
Yeah,
And you're still wealthy.
I wish those wealthy white men would just like form community with the labor class, and I think they'd probably be a lot happier. Let's go to our friend Corey, and yeah, anyone else is something.
Who's the labor class? Just young people.
Not just young people. Like, I mean, the working class is not just young individuals, right? We know this. So
The working class
17 to
is a
20-year-olds.
meaningless term because it's like it's whatever the socialist says it is at the
okay,
It's like our Starbucks, the working class. It depends on the day of the week and
That's
whether or not we're
70-year-old
mad at
Walmart
Starbucks workers.
greeters.
Okay, all right, whatever. Thank you for this, friend. Corey, please.
Well, yeah. Similar to Ico, my point is a little bit different than an hour ago. But either way, I still have things to say about the current topic. Well, first of all, big shout out to my friend Scott, citing fellow Canadian Justin Bieber and his song "Lonely." That's awesome. Love to see it. But
I hated on him too much. All right, I feel guilty. As a millennial, we really loved shitting on Justin Bieber back in the day. All right, we're all guilty of it.
Every ounce of
We're all
shit he got.
Okay, we're all guilty of it. And if you tell me you're not, you're a fucking liar. All right. Like when I was like 10, 15 years ago, we were like, fuck that little kid. Like
I mean, he did some pretty awful things.
Yeah, I'm about to say
On
like
behalf of
rightfully
millennials.
so.
But
a lot of the shit he did was a lie. Like the car accident thing. He was being chased by paparazzi, and then he called the cops, and the cops were like, "Yeah,
What about
sure,
harmonizing
Justin Bieber."
the
And then
hard
they hung
R?
up
Oh, okay, so we're
Is
we're
this
talking
Drake?
about
Man,
Justin
hard
Bieber.
R's.
No, Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber.
Oh, Justin Bieber. Oh, okay.
Those are just
There's nothing wrong with that.
Corey.
As a kid.
it's not my original point, though. Just FYI. But even though I am a proud believer, Lactoid, your Eastern European friend, okay, apparently. So do they have the same position when it comes to, let's say, domestic violence and intimate partner violence? Of like, a man cannot be a victim.
And can we give them a name like Vlad or something? Whatever works for
It's Mika. I think I told you about him before.
Mika. Okay.
Yeah, Mika. He was the
Oh,
one
you
who.
talking about
Well, no.
Mika?
Yeah, I'm talking about Mika.
That makes
Doobie
sense,
knows him. Prime, you might know him. He's the Armenian that what's his that Majin and Solis were complaining about, saying that Armenians had it worse in LA in the 90s than black people. That eventually got them banned.
I never actually met that guy, but that's funny. But thank you. Okay, Mika. Go ahead, please, Corey.
Okay, so presumably, obviously, you probably haven't put this hypothetical before them, or maybe you have, but then they would presumably view, let's say, Terry Cruz's sexual assault as like not valid. It's like, yeah, you probably
Wasn't he a kid?
No, he was a grown man.
He was.
Who
It was a
sexually
director.
assaulted him?
A director.
Hollywood
Director
executive.
groped him.
Was it a
Director
male
groped him.
director?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at a party. Yeah.
Terry
he
Crews
might
is
he
twice
might
the
buy
size.
that.
Wait,
then.
hold on. Yeah, but if Terry Crews said he was traumatized by that, I'd call him a fucking liar. I don't think he's. I mean, I think that he probably felt like powerless in the situation. I'm sure as
Emasculated?
an actor coming up.
Mhm.
Yeah, emasculated would be a good word. But traumatized, I think that's a little dramatic.
I think people blamed him
well-
for not people not blamed him for not punching the guy, but people also
Dramatic
he
or
was
traumatic?
worried that like people would have blamed him as the big black dude if he did punch the guy because he's like it was a lose-lose situation.
I mean,
His size
if
didn't
he's-
matter.
if he said that he was traumatized, who am I to say otherwise? But I guess
Well, you're not
to that.
Doobie, and Doobie will tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Corey.
But to what iCal was bringing up earlier, this aspect of, let's say, your relative to you and your baseline, what you consider, let's say, suffering or traumatic, where like I totally agree with Lactoid that perspective is important, but also at the same time, like where your baseline is, it's hard to have perspective when you are suffering, as in like let's say for my own personal examples. Okay, so I'm transparent about the fact that I have Crohn's disease. Okay, and I'm part of some online communities for that. But then every once in a while, okay, well, they're support groups, so to speak, or exchanging advice. But every once in a while, a patient with like IBS comes in. Okay, and then there's the whole pain Olympics pretty much unfolds, so to speak, of like, yeah, who are you to come here complain about your IBS when we're having multiple surgeries and getting our intestines removed? It's like, is that really useful? Would I advocate of like downplaying this person's pain and suffering? I generally don't. Where like, yeah, perspective is important, but like who am I to say that your suffering is like not valid per se?
Well, but like, let's say it was like an IBS support group, and like somebody came in and they had like a little bit too much gas because they ate like a Taco Bell triple layer burrito the night before, and they were like, "I know what you feel. Okay, I had this burrito. It was, oh my god, it was rough. It was rough.
Food
I
poisoning?
know the pain that. In fact, I might have it worse than you. Actually, I know you're getting your intestines removed
That
tomorrow,
truly
but I mean,
happened.
oh my god, like
That
you don't know how hard it
conversations.
is. Like what I no, like
Corey,
I'm
Corey
sorry.
grants him the pass.
Well, hold on. We
Corey
do.
says, "I don't
We have this
understand."
problem, and I'm sure Scott can talk about this. We have this problem in psychological studies that measure like pain levels, right? It's usually you report back like 0 through 10. What is your pain level? And one person's 8 is going to be different from another person's 8 because 10 is always calibrated to the worst pain you've ever felt. Right. So
who made
if what
that?
you're
Do you know
feeling
who
is a couple
was-
notches down from that, then that's an 8, right? But then somebody else their 8 might be something that if you were to ever feel it would be worse than anything. you
Sure,
ever
but no,
felt.
but sometimes people are little bitches, right? And even if they're reporting an 8, like if they're being pathetic, I mean, come on, we got to draw a line somewhere, right?
Well, it would mean that they've never felt anything worse.
Well,
right?
no,
Because they
or
have
that-
no
so-
perspective.
so-
Exactly.
well, not even necessarily that.
Right.
Sure, but how do
They
you
could
get
be
that
dishonest.
perspective?
They could just not.
That's
want
not my
to-
problem. I'm go work at look. If you want to quit your fucking acting job and go work at McDonald's because you have no perspective, be my guest.
Well,
Okay,
according
but
to you,
you're not gonna.
nothing's
You're not
a
gonna.
problem. Like you
Because
said
you're gonna keep on
everything, nothing.
breaking in those millions and fucking models. That's what you're gonna keep doing.
So it is quick side tangent. It's very fun to know the history of that. Is long story short, Purdue Pharma just paid a bunch of people to and had a bunch of small subdivisions of pain doctors and clinics so that they could get these pain scales into hospitals so that they could sell more opioids, so they could get more people addicted to Oxycontin. But setting that aside, yeah, I mean, and again, this is a big problem in psychological research in general, is when you have self-report surveys. And bad methodology is something that has become rampant in social sciences. There's this, I was online a couple of weeks ago arguing with someone about, that famous CDC study that found that 1 in 5 women while they're at college are sexually assaulted, right? So the 4 years they're there, 20% of all women in college are sexually assaulted. And which statistically speaking, either means one of two things. Either college campuses, everybody's getting raped, or like a mass chunk of women are getting assaulted and raped. And parents are just like, go ahead, girl. And like, nobody's doing anything about it. And these are like rape dens, or women are just walking around in a world where there's an incredibly where 20% of them in a 4-year period get raped. And so basically by the time you're 30, every woman has been raped or sexually assaulted. It doesn't pass the sniff test. So when you look into the CDC study, what do you find? Oh, there's self-report surveys that were done on college campuses asking random students to come up and report. So of course gender studies, women's studies, and like people that wanted to shout about it and wanted to like express what had occurred. And then on top of that, they used the Likert scale, where they were like, on a scale of 1 to 5, like, have you ever been forcibly kissed? And if you said a 2, 3, 4, or 5, they were like, well, that's a sexual assault, right? Like, because they were like, they got kissed once and they were kind of uncomfortable, so they put like a 2 or a 3. So we see this often where data muddies our understanding of things. So I think whenever you discuss these things, I think it's really important that you understand data and you understand what's coming from, but you need to pair it to a mechanism, a causal mechanism, right? Like if you tell me X causes this, my evidence is this correlational study about such and such, you've said nothing. Like, you haven't supported your claim with basically anything, especially if it's social sciences. You've just given me shit that agrees with you. Give me the mechanism by which this thing occurs, and then show me evidence of the mechanism occurring and the cause and effect. Even if a study doesn't prove it, if you can show the correlational data and explain the mechanism and how it works, then we can have a conversation about cause and effect, about how we stop things, how we fix things, how we get past problems in our society, how we reduce crime, reduce behavior, etc.
It would also, I mean, like, everyone doesn't want to necessarily come out and do the like public story thing related to sexual assault. But it
For
is
sure.
yeah, it does seem like interesting that of all the stories that people that do come out and do, tell their tale about said celebrity or famous person or insert whatever here, we never get the story of like, oh yeah, I went to so and so's house, all the lights were off, he like snuck me 7 pills into my drink, and then
Well, Bill
like,
Cosby.
well, yeah, I'm sure going dating back to with the 70s.
We got
I'm
those stories.
yeah, but I'm just
I
saying
heard
that
from
like
somebody he was innocent, but I don't remember who.
Fanatic.
fanatic.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
Well, he's out now.
You can have a
So
debate on that, Lactoid.
But yeah, I think that it does say like it kind of goes back to what Doobie was saying earlier about there's probably some degree of like, or like it was a necessary pendulum swing with Me Too. Like
Mhm.
that was good, that has created a society where to some degree people are like traumatizing themselves from situations that maybe we used to consider normal. And then you have Corey, who's kind of an advocate of like these things, none of these things ever should have been considered normal, and it's a good thing that people are feeling more traumatized and speaking out about things. I don't know.
I
Probably
just wanted to clarify. I'm not saying that people should be more traumatized, but they should understand that it's probably almost certainly not ethical or moral behavior to do that.
well,
Those
I
are
don't
two
know.
separate things.
Not really. I feel like one comes with the other. Like in practice,
Mm,
like I understand what you're saying, but like
I agree there's some overlap, but these are two separate concepts to me.
Mhm.
Like I could like as I sort of shared in my experiences of like yeah, I totally have had when I'm around drunk people, especially some drunk girls, they and whatever uh if they see that someone has abs, the hands come out. And like, am I traumatized by that? No, but I totally view it as a you are morally transgressing, and I don't really judge you all that kindly.
Mhm. I mean, I don't know. I've been there, done that. Like it's interesting even when you pour into like um the aspects of dating dynamics and how things have shifted. Like there was a period of time where guys approached women, and if you wanted to like get a woman, you grab her, but you grab her softly. Like you you don't just pull her, you gotta grab her softly. And then we've had a transition to now it's like, no, you let you let the women grab you, or you let her touch you, and that's your sign that things are going positively. But um Prime would be an advocate of like all of this needs to be communicated out, and we need to like have more verbal communication. I don't know if it's necessarily, and not only I don't know if it's
Crazy.
it's
practical
not
or
possible.
yeah, I think it's probably unreasonable. I think there are a lot of like
Harry consent
It's
slips.
beyond unreasonable. It's impossible, right? Because like I can, I can get a general consent to touch you, right? So, right, but the problem then becomes, well, if I have a general consent to touch you, that doesn't mean that I have consent to put my hands down your pants, right? Like I have
Mhm.
like that, like that's an entirely different thing. But the problem is that every single action that humans do is a scaffolding of multiple actions that we then categorize in our brain as one action, right? Like if I go to pick up a cup, right, and bring it over here, I've learned since a toddler, the action of gripping, the action of contracting these muscles, the action of looking, the action of perceiving that, like there's 100 different things that are involved in that one action. And the problem is you don't know until afterwards what is the offending sexual advance that is undesired by the partner, right? Like I can ask for certain things and for a certain general consensus, but at the end of the day, Doobie is somewhat correct in what he described, which is that there's an intersubjective communication, right? There has to be a cultural understanding or an understanding between two people of things that are not always clearly communicated, but are understood as social norms, and that when people break obvious social norms to the extreme, they have done so intentionally. And that's why I use a clear example of like a no trespassing sign in English in Vietnam versus a fence. A fence communicates my boundaries, my property line very clearly, no matter what language you speak. But an English no trespassing sign only communicates to people that speak English and are used to seeing no trespassing signs that this means my property starts here. The same thing can happen with sexual advances when cultures begin to mix. If I'm a random white guy and I get invited to the cookout in Jamaica and I'm on the other side of the island, not the tourist part, and I go to and a dance gets the drinks start flowing, some girl might just fucking grab me and start slamming her butt on me. And like, that's not her assaulting me. That's me not understanding and communicating to this cultural group that I have boundaries that are not common or understood within their culture. I am the person moving into their culture, and at a certain point, it becomes incumbent upon me to be like, whoa, no, thank you, right? Because I'm not aggressing, but they're not necessarily aggressing because they're working within the cultural context of the world that they live in, the society and the culture that they live in, and that's a perfectly normal, non-aggressive thing to do.
You can respond. Doobie also I thought wanted to say something there, and I'll respond to all of this. Go ahead, Bam.
Yeah, I'm about to say with the like 10 minutes, I wanted to kind of bring it up because to see what other people's perspectives are since we had this argument. There are women, and I actually brought this up to my girl, and she actually said the exact same. It would piss you off. There is a number of women. It's not uncommon. It's not that uncommon of women who say that like, oh, they don't want a guy to ask permission to kiss them, but they want them to figure out how to do so other ways. Like, like their, body language, maybe if you could hold their hand, touch their leg, whatever, like get there another way, but don't ask me like, hey, can I kiss you? That was a turn off. That's a turn off to these girls. And Prom was like, no, F you. She needs to, like, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. Everybody should ask. Everybody needs to ask. And that creates the better society. But I don't think the women are being that unnecessarily unreasonable. I think there are plenty of ways to figure out if someone's interested in you. You won't hit you won't strike. Wait a minute, you won't strike 100%, but you can get a pretty accurate rate of figuring out if someone is okay with kissing without verbalizing it. And you can some examples being you can get within a facial range, like whenever your faces get so close. And she hasn't moved away. That can be a read. How she feels about hand holding, how close she is to you. Like there's all types of other cues you can take without asking.
What if she's wearing a neck brace?
She wearing a neck brace.
She can't move her neck.
And she still made her way over.
It's cold outside. It's baby, it's cold outside, right? Like feminists got so mad at that song because they're like, look at this creepy rapist guy. But if you understand the cultural context of the time, what you understand is that she's saying without saying, I want to stay here, but like I want to be a good girl and I don't want people to think I'm a bad girl. So like, oh, what will the neighbors think? Like, oh, well, this. And she's being coy. She's playing cat and mouse, but she's not actively saying no. And he's not actively saying, fuck you, I don't care about your boundaries. They're playing a game of cat and mouse. And at any point in time, she could be like, no, I'm leaving. And he'd be like, yeah, totally understand. It's like, let me help you out the door. But what they're doing instead is she's preserving her dignity within the social situation while still consenting to sexual activity with the man.
Okay, so Doobie, did you want to say something? Just to add to that, and after that I'll present my position so you guys understand it.
I think if I were to say anything, I would just agree with Bam and unfortunately with Scott. Yeah, I think they both hit on what I was saying earlier, which is going back all the way to the interaction on the stream, right? That I saw between this actor and this streamer's sister. To me, when I saw it just seemed like a clash of cultures. And when I looked into the backgrounds, it totally made sense that they're just coming from different cultural contexts. And to her, this is totally normal for her to do this. I mean, where I was growing up, very, very normal for women to be very aggressive, right? So yeah, it just seemed like a clash of cultures to me. And further, I think that this I guess I'd just be repeating myself. I really do think that we should, like Bam said earlier, there's a necessary pendulum swing, right? With the Me Too thing, people being more open about their experiences and more open about things that they're not okay with. But I feel like it's time for it to swing back a little bit. I feel like it went a little too far. Now I think we got to come back to reality a little bit.
Okay. So I'm gonna do multiple things. I'm gonna give you a story, another quick story. I'm full of stories today. I'm gonna tell you my position. I'm gonna go to Corey, and yeah, we'll go from there. Quick story. So, and I told this before one time before actually on Amazon Lily. Um, College. There was this girl, and we were, friends. She liked the anime, right? She's a black individual. She liked the anime like me. And I was in a room. We were it was the it's a floor. The dorm floor had both sexes. There's a term for that, and I forgot.
Unisex.
Go ahead.
A co-ed, yeah,
Co-ed?
co-ed. It was a co-ed floor. Yeah, so it was a co-ed floor, and I was on her side of the floor, and in her room, and just talking, right? And then she just like leaps on me, right? She leaps on me, she grabs me, and she like tackles me to the floor. She starts kissing on me. Like this is like random. I was just like chilling here. And like I didn't know what to do. Like it was like a very weird experience. Nothing like that had happened to me before. And I was like, okay, this is weird, and I just like struck it out, and I was laughing the entire time. Right? Like, okay. Like
Because you liked it, you dirty little bitch. Got it.
I end up like exiting the situation. And I don't know, like, but when I related that to the Amazon Lily group, right? Remember, like that was the all female discussion. They were telling me how it's fortunate that I went through that experience and how awful it was. But the point that I was making there was that like, yeah, like that happened and it was weird. And I think she was from the island, so like which is funny enough. So like no class of cultures, I guess. But in any case, my point was that I wasn't like traumatized, right? Like in fact, I hadn't even thought of that story for like years until that moment. When we were on a discussion about victimization, and like, oh, from your perspective, I guess this sounds like really bad, but I mean, I was like, whatever. It was something interesting that happened to me that day, and hilarious from my perspective. But it was weird. It was weird, and it was like unlike wanted, But so there's that. So my perspective here, I think that we would have a better world if we normalized uh, consent slash checking in with one another, right? If that was the expectation. So the argument was, hey, like a lot of women will shame men because like they asked, right? Like there are women who like Bam's girlfriend, right? Non-consenting girlfriend that that would say that it ruined the mood when a man asked for permission, right? That this is I don't like that, right? And he is somehow less than a man who would have just like gone for it. But on the other end, they also don't like it when men go for it and they don't like it, right? Like, oh, it was clear that I was into it, right? But that's the thing. It's actually not clear, right? If it was perfectly clear, that would happen a lot less. But men like, all right, well, maybe she's into it, so I'm gonna go for it, and then that ruins the mood. The best thing to do, right? A better society was simply check in. Hey, like I had a really good time tonight. Let's see you again. Would you mind if I kiss you or something like that? I don't know, like make up your own fucking script, right? Like, oh, no, like that would be a better society. Things would there would be less misunderstandings, less trauma in general, right? If we applied this to more situations, not just like kissing, but like that's a better world. And we can't get to that world if women are saying that like, hey, just like dice roll my consent and see what happens. Like you would like I think we brought that into other areas. They'd understand how problematic that is. And it's just best for everyone if we don't do that. So I want to get all your opinions on this, right? So like on your thoughts on this. But first we'll go to Corey and you guys can jump in.
Well, actually, I think you pretty much summed up. I think just about everything I was going to say. Like I pretty much am 100% in agreement with you. where we live in a better world if everyone adopted that approach. And the more I move towards that, the better. And I have no problem admitting that I almost use it as a screening tool, so to speak, of like, if you're a woman and someone asking for consent is a turnoff for you, I probably think you're an idiot and we're not going to be compatible. And like, yeah, I'll just move on. And also to that point, we have. I'm curious on this person's position because we have the ultimate authority on consent here. Someone whose slogan is "maximize consent." So I'm curious what Lactoid's position is on asking for consent for kissing someone.
You should ask.
There you go.
It'd be a good idea. And here, well, okay. This is my full fleshed out thoughts. Generally speaking, especially after the Me Too movement, if you want to stay on the safe side, and this is pseudo legal advice here, you should be as careful as possible. And one of the ways you can be as careful as possible is asking. Now, I've heard some people say, well, this can get ridiculous. Like, hey, when you're making out with somebody, may I please put my hand on your lower back? Sure. Can I rub it side to side? Yes. Can I rub it down to your butt? Of course. Like, at some point, it starts getting absurd. And the line of which, like, what
there are ways of
crosses
dealing
into
with that,
absurdity.
though, not getting that. Though, like, just tell me
Okay,
when to stop or when to not.
Sure, but even that's not perfect in the sense of like how early do you have to say that and how forward can you be? Like, oh, just let me know when to stop and then immediately grab. Like, no,
You can say like at the start of the date when you get in the car, hey, you look great. Let's have a great time. Tell me when to stop.
Tell me when to stop, right? Exactly. Tell me when to stop, and then you just grab her tit, right? Like, I told you, tell me when to stop, right?
That is not the context that I'm
exactly. It's not the context, and ultimately, the line what crosses into absurdity is going to be dependent on cultural context here. Do I think that if the wind's blowing and the sunset's right there, you look deep into her eyes and you're leaning in and she's leaning in? I think that's enough to establish implicit consent, right? I mean, the body language there is clear. Where it becomes difficult is when it's not so clear, or especially when you're dealing with people who, let's say, have a more difficult time
or socially
dealing with body language or interpreting body language. I've actually I know somebody who is he's an autistic man, and he intentionally has sex with men because he doesn't understand women, even though he's not gay. Well, you can not believe him, but I kind of believe him when he says, "Yeah, like women never tell me what they want, but men at least talk to me and they tell me what they want, and they
somebody's bi, okay,
maybe
and is,
sure you
choosing one over the other because it's easier."
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that could be the case. I can't get into this person's head, but what I'm saying is that, in terms of context,
I'm pretty confident if they fuck dudes, they like dudes.
Well, I don't know. There's people in prison who, for example, only fuck dudes because that's what's available to them. And if you have somebody,
that's another thing.
That ain't gay. That's jail.
That's gay.
Okay, sure. I think there's probably something a little bit gay about that, but there's some guys in prison who would tell you that's not gay.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
June,
I don't.
It's Pride
Month.
Go down
this road.
Being gay is fine.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that another day. But what I really want to emphasize here is that like the line is going to be culturally construed, and I do think that generally the best advice is to be careful. I would advise to ask before everything, even if it seems absurd. And I think maybe like unless you're confident in dealing with somebody who's not crazy, but in today's world you cannot guarantee that. Always assume, unless you know them well, that you're dealing with somebody who's crazy and will destroy your life if you give them any opportunity to do so.
Well, you're prioritizing not going to jail. It just depends on what you're trying to maximize. You're trying to maximize like your legal safety. And I'm
always trying to maximize your legal safety. Okay, that's my goal here. Okay,
he is a lawyer. I think the problem is that the whole you're ruining the whole game. Like the whole thing is like you're putting out these signals. That's how it's supposed to happen. Lactoid could easily just walk up to girls and say, "Hey, I want to bed you." However, he ain't got a motorcycle, so that he's really, really loud when he's coming down the street. He's signaling to all the women, "Look,
in his motorcycle.
I'm a dangerous bad boy, right? I can go zoom. I have a cool helmet, right?" He's putting out these signals.
I got a rider jacket
will come
too.
to him, and then he's gonna try to flirt with
a cool
them.
helmet too. But apparently, when the doctor gives it to you, it's not fucking.
It's not as
getting the
cool.
ladies.
So when you're with a lady, right? I think the problem is that they're putting like, if you know what you're doing, there are signals to clearly look for. There are signals to clearly
But hold on.
identify.
That's the problem right there. If you know what you're doing, right? If you know what you're
Mhm.
doing, look, I will trust Ali, right? That you are a Chad extraordinaire, right? We've already established this in previous streams, okay? But others have different experiences. So if you know what you're doing, carries a lot of weight to it, right? So a lot
Well,
to work for this
that's why the
conversation.
girls are turned off, because the guys that have to ask don't know what they're doing and they're not interested in that. Right? And that's why the girls are like, oh, well, the asking is a turn off, because it seems to be
How'd
it's
you
the
both
guys
make
that
that
don't
sound
know.
There's a
like
bit
it's
of
the
hold on.
hottest shit ever?
There's a bit of a selection bias, is what Ollie is pointing out, which is that when you're really attractive, like they are very clear about the fact they want you, right? But
Yeah.
when you're like you're normal, right?
They're kind of just shy and coy. And
They're kind of shy and coy, and then
no, I
you
don't wanna
kind
hang
of
out
got to
with
make
you
a little
this
more of an
weekend.
effort.
I don't want to do that. Oh, okay, sure, maybe if like so I guess the issue isn't that like
It's that meme,
everyone,
right?
yeah, everyone needs
Going
to
into
be
HR.
asking. Yeah, going into HR. Hey, how, like it's the meme. Ugly guy, best pick. A horrible pickup line. Hello. Hot guy, best pickup line. Hello. It's. So I think
It's
that's
true.
the issue, is that the women that are saying I don't want guys to ask are just signaling, hey, I don't want you to ask. I want the hot guy that I'm already into to just do it, because he should already know the signals, because he should already be experienced. If you have to ask, where's the it's lack of experience, and it's an ick for girls.
Yeah, and it's
Which,
not.
to
That's what I'm
Corey's point,
saying.
if you're just like trying to select out, but
And it's
So
the best
I
legal
hear
advice I
you.
can give you. Just be hot. It's
I
really
mean,
good.
indeed. Look, hon,
Pretty based,
we
pretty
can.
based.
Doobie can tell you all about his snail trail story, right? That was the woman who was giving him positive vibes. But
What?
beyond,
someone left a puddle in its seat.
Uh,
Yeah, it's
Not
not, it's
an
not as
actual
weird as
scale.
look. It's not as weird as Prime is making it seem. Okay.
You're a stud. Jesus.
Sometimes women leave trails when they're excited.
I'm learning
Or when it's
I'm
that
learning
time of
about
month.
Woman's turned
Corey
on.
and Doobie today.
No, I think that's a real thing. Like I get a scent for it. I'm like, oh yeah, she
think
wants
that's a
me.
real
She wants me. That's absolutely is a real
you mean
thing.
after you put
hold
your
on, okay,
finger in
Bam,
her?
okay,
Like,
Bam, I can tell you,
like,
Bam,
No,
yeah,
no,
let's
like
say
just
so.
like sitting down.
Bam,
I can tell
Bam,
if a
it
woman's
wasn't even
turned
that.
on.
Look, we hadn't even done shit, right? Like we hadn't done anything.
The way they
We're
sit.
No, I'm not even
like
talking
the
about
movie.
doing anything.
She,
Yeah,
she got up, made a drink, and there was a fucking just a fucking trail on the seat next to
Snail
me.
trail,
okay?
yeah. Like I
I'm
said.
about to say
very
that's
obvious.
intense. I'm about to say, but which I'm sure I'm smelling the same thing through the
Big
pants.
Papa
But,
dude.
like I can like be at the movies with a girl. Well, not in the movies because I smell popcorn, but like sitting in the car and I can like, and I like combined with a couple of behaviors, I can smell like, oh, she's like she wants it right now. Like it's a real thing.
Okay. All right.
Easy.
So that's how we just
So
figure this out from now on.
we-
If you smell the smell, then green light. If you don't smell
Yeah,
the
yeah.
smell,
And I
then
mean,
red light.
it just- you
yellow,
tell-
yellow
you tell
light,
your
yellow light.
honor,
You smell the smell, it's
you'll
a
tell the
yellow light.
judge-
Yeah.
Approach with caution.
you'll tell the judge, I smelled the smell, right?
It was in the air.
And he
smell.
would understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll get it.
I'm about to say if he says he doesn't know what he's talking about, I'm like, oh, judge, you don't get no pussy.
Yeah. I agree. This is all great
Like,
advice.
dang,
That would work. Yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Wow,
This-
judge, I thought you got pussy.
And since
I thought you
Lactose
got
said
Judges
it's
love it
official
when you
legal
say shit
advice.
like
My
that.
honor, you just don't get pussy.
But hold on, I'm gonna go straight to you, Scott. I'm gonna go straight to you. I promise, right? But like, yeah. So this is the the issue that we're talking about, right? To say that, like, well, if you know, right, then if you have that experience, well, especially when we're talking, like, we were just talking about young teens, right? Well, young teens don't have that experience. They're still, working it out, right? And that's if you had any luck in high school, right? That's another thing, right? Or if you had any luck in college, or any of that stuff, right? Like, you don't know
I don't
where
think
anyone
teens make
is.
these
Watch
complaints.
more Red Pill podcasts.
I think these are. I think like 28 to 30-year-old women make this complaint. I don't think 16-year-old girls
No.
are like, just figure it out. Like I think
Literally-
that young girls are terrified.
Yeah,
I think they're
Actually,
like,
I don't know. That's a good point. I don't
Young
know
girls
about
know
high
that
school
young
girls.
boys are
Fair
stupid.
enough, right? But I've heard this among college age women. So I can't speak directly to high school age women, but I've heard this among college age women. So I'll leave that there. But the point is that, like, well, no matter what the age though of the woman, you don't know the experience of the partner, right? You don't know what. Okay, Aiko. So we'll go to Scott. Aiko. Yeah, you don't know the experience of your partner, and you're just assuming that, oh, I guess he'll understand the signals. Like how we have so much like cultural content about how men don't understand women and how women make these vague gestures,
we need to teach them
right?
to understand women better.
But no. The way to do that
It's
is
an
to
art, not a
communicate.
science.
Yeah.
No,
But-
it is
no,
because
no.
the way because communicating it is not
Literally,
is
you
not
just need to have
working.
sisters.
No,
I think
I-
having sisters.
Can I-
No.
let me-
Look, the way to understand each other is to simply communicate, to use your words, to be big boys and big girls, and to let each other
No.
know what
No,
you
but
want.
that's not
right?
how flirting works.
I hear Lactoid,
isn't
right?
logical.
What Lactoid was saying, what other people feel as well, and what Scott was saying previously, right? That obviously, like, there's so many different actions involved in these things, right? And anything can technically be a problem and all that. Fair enough, right? Like at some point, yes, you can't ask for literally everything. You'll have to make assumptions at some point. That's fair, but to reduce the chances of harm on and misunderstanding on all ends, simply
Wait,
make an effort to ask to check
women
in, right?
complain
That's
about
why I
being
use that
asked
terminology
out to
previously.
begin with.
You
Being
check in with
approached.
you check in with your partner, right? And to make sure that everything's okay, right? Do you want more of this? You want less of this, right? Like, can I stick my finger in this new orifice? Like, yeah, like you could just do
say it
these
like
things.
that. Say it like that. They'll like that.
I've
never seen
Women complain.
May
about
I
the
stick my
initial-
finger in your
initial
orifice?
approach.
Yeah, say that.
Let me.
Women
let
are
me step
complaining
in
about the
here,
initial
right?
approach as well. They don't want to be hit on at work. They don't want to be hit on at the pub. They don't want
Complaining about being poorly approached. Generally speaking, women
No,
don't
they
have.
complain about being hit
No, they
on by
complain about the
ugly
wrong
people.
guy.
That's
The
what
wrong
they-
guy approaches them because I've seen multiple videos.
Yeah.
If the wrong guy says this, it's creepy. If the right guy
You've
says it,
seen
it doesn't even
videos.
matter.
Sorry.
I mean,
So-
this is
so-
this
I
is
also
this is
watch
anecdotal,
Andrew
this is
Tate.
anecdotal
Let's-
evidence.
let's
Women say
refocus
this
the
across
topic.
the board. If the right guy says
Let's-
the wrong
Handsome
thing,
guys
it's
can
okay.
rape women too. Let's put that out there. I also want to make that very clear.
Yes,
right?
they can,
Sure.
obviously.
Yeah,
But we're saying,
okay,
obviously, in
great.
the general dating dynamics, that a bunch of women will say, if the wrong guy says this creepy line, it's not going to work. But if the right guy says it, it'll
Yeah,
work. It's not the line. It's not the approach. It's if their person is attracted or not.
I hear you. I'm not pushing it, but I don't know how that has to do with what I'm saying. But hold on, let's go to Scott
So-
first and Nico.
So the problem here that nobody is identifying is that the difference between prescriptions and descriptions is the issue here. You guys are talking about them as if they're the same thing. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with you, Prime guys. The world would be a better place. That sexual interactions would be a better and safer place if active consent was something that was in the bedroom, that communication was clear, that, like, from, especially as Lactoid pointed out, from a legal perspective, you're not wrong in any of those things you're saying. And the reason I think sociologic and maybe some other sentiments are pushing back is because there's a difference between what you want the world to be and how women actually are. You don't get to police biology. It doesn't work. Like, you get to police consent, right? You get to, because you should, and we don't want people to, obviously we don't want rape, right? So at a certain point, like, we have to at the very least retroactively step in when something occurs. But the reality is that women are the sexual selector of the species. They are looking for the qualities that they want in a man, and you can't tell them they're not allowed to be attracted or unattracted to certain actions. We don't get to do that. As much as we might want active communication in the bedroom so that like we don't have to worry about catching a charge, or so that we don't have to worry about stepping into a situation that makes the other person uncomfortable because we don't want to hurt them, right? Because we think they want us to go and then they don't, and we find out that, like, we hurt them. Like, it doesn't have to be just like defensive. It can be that as guys we don't want to be bad guys. The problem is that women, quote unquote, get the ick when some guy is asking for active consent, because it showcases that they can't pick up on their signals, that they can't read their body language, that they are not masculine in their ability to understand when to act and when not to act, and that's not a leader in the bedroom, and that's not going to be a leader in their life, and that guy's not going to make them come. And it doesn't matter whether or not you ask for permission. They already know you're not making them come.
Friend, I would agree with you that you can't, like, argue up biology. Fair enough. But I don't think we're talking about biology. I think we're talking about a cultural, like a artifact, right? That this is something
no.
that they've been taught.
Nature versus nurture. I'm not trying to make 100% argument in one direction or the other.
Okay.
I recognize that like we as a culture have changed, which is why I brought up the "Baby It's Cold Outside" song, because basically everyone listens to that song and goes, "Oh, that's kind of weird." Like she kind of told you no 20 different ways, and yet you're still trying to fuck this girl, right? And so the culture at the time was one of preserving innocence, and like a man had to hear no 20 times before he finally accepted it. So I mean, there is a cultural aspect here, and I do agree that we can, as a culture, try and invoke a little bit more checking up, a little bit more of that. But at the same time, you can't be mad when women find it unattractive and when Chad doesn't do that shit and they love it. You don't get to go, you can be mad, but it doesn't change the fact that she likes Chad because he didn't fucking ask. He took it.
Hold on.
Because he read out
I
that the
think it is
situation
more socially.
was
I
that
think
she
I think
wanted
you're
it.
not giving it enough credit. Like I eat
Because
ass.
he's got a leather jacket.
I get straight into the booty hole. I do that now. And if you look back a generation,
Wait, what'd you just fucking say, Bam?
It's straight into the booty.
Straight in the
into
booty
the
hole.
booty hole.
Who puts it straight in the booty
Right
hole?
He don't eat it. He
my
don't
tongue,
fucking,
my
he
mouth.
don't play with
Yeah.
it.
Say
He
it right
don't
in
do
there.
shit.
So-
He don't make sure it's clean.
But
he just
but
goes
like if you
shitty
look
dick
at like
right immediately.
if you look at like Gen X, like if you look at like your parents, a lot of your dads
She got a
didn't
stomach ache
do
and he don't
oral
know
at
why.
all.
Yes,
Like-
because back then we believed in God, and now for some reason we have this. This is ridiculous. What do you?
So
You
I'm
stick
saying
your
that, like,
tongue up her ass with just no like just all the way up in there.
yeah, 100%. Get deep as I can get it. But like but I say that it's to say that like even our sexual proclivities, I think, are way more socially enforced. Like I don't think that it's like I don't think that this nature is what we're finding sexually attractive. I think if we as a society do make the idea of not getting consent, like if we make the men that do that weirdos, I think that women will slowly like become less attracted to those type of people. Like I do think it's something that can be socially enforced. I just don't think it's worth it to personally. But like I wouldn't say it's impossible.
It's the same problem
say
with
that sex
how you
research-
convince a bunch of
sex
women
research-
to be attracted to something they're not attracted to.
I would say that sex research has been some of the most difficult research to conduct in the humanities of all humanities based research. And what we know and what we can confidently say about, let's say, sexual imprinting or paraphilic disorders or kinks or about how culture affects sex is very, very limited. And we're all kind of in the domain of guessing. So the only thing that we can say for sure, right, is that there is an interplay between culture. There is an interplay between sexual imprinting and the way that we grow up. And there is a biological foundation for these things. And what percentage one plays over the other, we don't really know, and we kind of have to experiment with as a society. So I don't disagree that Prime and Corey are wrong to try and say like, hey, we should normalize checking up more. But we also have to recognize that may simply not work, and that may simply not work to your advantage if you do that in terms of being able to find the right woman or a partner. And being mad about it, you can be mad about it, but it doesn't change reality.
Sorry,
if that is how
no
reality
one's
is.
angry. No one's angry. So we don't have to. No one's mad about it.
I'm
I'm not
angry.
accusing anyone of being angry. I'm just
Okay.
saying in general, like there are a lot of people angry on the internet
Grr,
about
feminists.
women.
The only
and
other thing I would
drugs.
say about that, the only other thing I would say
Feminist
about
and
that is
socialist.
like even more so than like what women are attracted to. I think the tougher thing is going to be changing, especially with young inexperienced boys who have a desire to have sex. They're going to do what the people who are getting results are doing, and they're not going to do the things that aren't getting results. So like because people ask like
but that's
why
not bad.
why do men cheat? Why do men lie? Why can't they just be honest and straight up and tell me they just want to have sex and they don't want a relationship? Because men who are that level of honest have less success getting
Really?
sex than men that lie. So men continue to lie to to get what they want from it. Like that's just paying
I mean,
attention to
that's
what's happening
bad.
around them.
But
I'm not saying this. Yeah, of course it's bad. I'm not putting a moral equivalent, what you call it to it, attachment to it. Yeah, I'm just saying that like
Yeah,
if it
that's the
works-
reason why they do
if
it.
it works, then that is proof positive of the subjective value of the woman valuing that. If it consistently works that asking for consent gives them the ick, and not asking but instead reading those clues and developing the skills to read those clues, it very well may be just spitballing, right? That those skills are important towards a long-term successful marriage, because women are trying to test you in the sexual marketplace to see if you can vibe with them, to see if you can understand unspoken language. Because one of the biggest complaints that women have and that men have is that men are incapable of being able to read the emotions when women are communicating without expressly or explicitly saying. So it very well could be that this type of consent thing is an important skill for men to develop so that they can keep a woman happy, not just sexually, but in other forms of communication.
The only
throughout the entire marriage.
the only type of consent I've seen work is like emotional consent, where nowadays the new thing is when your girl's complaining, you ask her, is this a problem solving thing, or is this one of these things where you just want to vent? Now you're giving
I
this
hate
thing-
that.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? It works. That
Yeah.
shit.
I'm
works.
sure it does. I'm sure it does
That shit
because,
works.
but it's
Emotional
infantile.
consent works.
It's immature. It's bullshit.
It is.
It
First of all,
is.
I think it is immature. I think it is immature. Exactly that.
That's kind of what you're
We're
looking for.
babying them, right? Slightly taller children. Isn't that what my friend said?
Yeah. So
Wait,
like,
but Prime, that's what you're waiting. That's what you're asking for, though, right?
no. So
I mean, but
no, hold
that's
on.
not saying
What I
any
meant,
different
hold on.
Prime
than
needs to
men.
respond.
Multiple things. There's multiple things here, right? One, to what Scott was saying before, right? Saying that, well, this just might be something more inherent with women, and the way that they communicate on the sexual marketplace. You could see that argument being made, like, half a century ago, about how men just kind of take what they want. You can't be mad that a man, like a real man, like, sees what he wants and then takes it, right? Like, how are you going to tell men that they should go against their instincts, right? Now, I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say
Apples
we're trying to
oranges.
make a.
It's false. You can't say that because they're not comparable. Because in my example, it's about trying to ascertain the consent that she does have and being able to read those signals so that you're effectively not violating her consent. And in your example, you're talking about proactively violating someone's consent. They're apples you can't compare the two.
No.
The same argument.
Well,
wouldn't apply
even then, like, I just posted like a video in the side chat. I also put it in Twitch. I'm gonna post it again right now, and it's a video that went
Put it in the
viral.
Discord.
It's
where
in
we
the
all communicate.
It's in the Discord. Yeah, it's in the Discord and in I posted it everywhere. But I just wanted chat to see it too. But it's this woman who's describing a date that she went on, where at the beginning of the date, like when he asked her to come over, she specifically said, "I am not sleeping with you. I do not want to do that." And so she not only did she like not explicitly give consent, like she explicitly withheld consent at the beginning. And so then she describes that as the night went on.
Pause for a second. Why don't we actually just show this, right?
Okay, it's only 45 seconds.
Hey, Bam, could you do me a favor? Yeah. So, Bam, we'll show it. It's just easier when someone else does it because my computer. But yeah, we'll watch it directly, and then we can make judgments afterwards.
Is it in the chat?
It's in the Discord. You'll see it.
Yeah,
like he dropped
it in the
that.
Discord, and those of you in chat, I dropped it in there too.
Amit Shah parody.
The Amit Shah.
Yeah, it's in the.
Oh, maybe I can't. Cause
you see it.
1 second. Oh crap! I was in the wrong thing. Sorry.
Yeah,
I see it. Here I go.
So 1 second, guys. We'll all take a look at this thing. I was like spoil it with Ico here. I'm like, oh man.
1 second. I'm pausing it. And where are you guys at? Share.
Just hit the present button.
Yeah, I'm hitting it.
It's
right in there.
It's the
Don't make me
present button.
panic.
It's the button right there next to setting.
Okay.
There we go. All right, thanks.
Everybody here?
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, I am the problem. I went on a
Can y'all
date
hear?
with this guy, and he was like, "It's getting
Mhm.
late. Do you want to come back to my place?" And I was like, "Sure, but I'm not gonna sleep with you. Like, that's not happening." And he was like, "That's totally fine. Just come over." And I was like, "Cool." So I go to his place. He respects my wishes. He's so nice. He cuddles me all night, and I'm like, "Are you gay? Like what?" And like I just wanted him to like try, and then for me to be like, no, you know what I mean? I wasn't gonna sleep with him. I just now
Yeah, you
I
were.
feel ugly. This is what. Okay,
She was gonna sleep with him. No, let me. Just,
I have
I
my
hate
first.
okay, go ahead, Corey. I'm going right after you.
Okay, well, yeah. So, I think if you want to say something, Prime.
Just quickly before we start with any analysis of that, it does say parody, right? Amit Shah
No,
parody.
no. The account that was posting that video is a parody of something
Yeah,
else.
no,
but
the
video
TikTok
is
crew,
not
I've seen
parody.
it before.
Video,
Oh,
I've
okay.
seen
All right. Excuse me
millions
then.
of those
Excuse
before.
me.
It's just
All right.
reposting a video that's been out there for a while.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
The video is fake, for the record.
Was he not
Even
a
if
real
doesn't
human
matter.
being?
I'm
I
sure there's
believe
no
you.
truth to it.
Creatrix is like friends with her. She's a comedian that like goes on
Okay.
stage and tells jokes occasionally. So I mean, like this, but it is a parody of like
Of a
the
thing that
video
happened.
itself
Complaint.
doesn't have to be real. The concept might be a slight exaggeration of reality, but this isn't.
Louis C.K. has a similar skit
honestly,
where
not
he
really.
goes on
Yeah.
a date, like in that old comedy show that he had.
Yeah.
He goes on a date, he takes out a girl, like she says no, and so he stops, and then the next day she's like, "Why didn't you sleep with me?"
Louis
Like,
C.K.
Same thing.
Yeah.
happened.
famously known for
I-
not picking up on signals of consent, right?
Right.
Like that's why he had that bit because he couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out.
He
you
says,
know?
I didn't want to
That's why he got in trouble.
just like rape you. But yeah. Corey, go ahead. You can go ahead.
And he got consent.
Well, so I'm sure there's an element of truth to that video, even though whatever it's a parody or whatever faked. Although, let's say I would say no surprise towards the end. Okay, whatever, skit or not, she alludes to the fact that basically having low self-esteem. Like, yeah, since you didn't make a move, now I feel unattractive, and like, yeah, I would want to filter that out. Where that's sort of the complete opposite of my experience, and this is why I sort of use it as a filtering tool of like, I wouldn't want anything to do with that woman, assuming that they're somewhat real, because yeah, I probably think they're an idiot. Where my experience, generally speaking, is asking for consent actually pretty much turns them on more because once they recognize that they'll actually respect your consent and something that I actually think about, they're more willing to engage and actually push it further. And those are the type of women that I go after. That's what I'm interested in, and that's why.
Yeah, this is gonna be
Yeah, but
Corey,
this is for
I
like
think
hookup
self-selection
purposes.
bias
I
with both of us, right? Like you're
We'll-
gonna find more
we'll
girls
go
just
to-
naturally.
hold on, we're gonna Lacto
that are
and then
into
we'll
that
go to
and vice
Ali.
versa.
But to on your point, Corey, right? Like I've in bed, right, with various women. There's been a lot, quite a few.
All at the same time.
Various, the plethora.
But
My
but
fucking man.
But I've noticed though.
Big Papa Prime.
All the white women, right?
Nobody's.
But I've actually had that exact same experience where like I actively ask, hey, like, can I do this thing, right? And they're like no guys ever ask, right? Like it's really great that you did, and yeah, sure, let's do it, right? Because they're literally not used to it. It happens to them all the time. Just
Bro,
the people assume
just
That's
got
just because it's
kicked.
you, Prime. They were gonna say,
Ugh.
like to it, Ali.
They wouldn't let you do it
No
anyway.
guys ever asked.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh wait,
okay.
Lactor, can I?
Okay.
Okay. Listen, this video she's a comedian. She's making a joke. Whatever. This is just there are a million of these videos where yeah, Corey. I guess to your point, you want to single her out because she doesn't feel attractive because the guy wasn't hitting on her. But that's I mean that's kind of the truth of it. If you're having a conversation with a girl and it's late night and she says I'm going to come over and explicitly so I'm not going to sleep with you. She's going to sleep with you. That's what. That's what
I would not
happening.
jump to that conclusion personally.
You don't jump at it. Obviously, you play the game. Like she said, she wanted to feel it out. She wanted to make a move. If she didn't want to, she would have said no. But at the end of the day, that is what the intention of going over someone's house late night is. Like that's why you got invited
like 9
over.
times out
That's
of 10,
why you went
she
over.
wants to feel like she was hard to get. That's all it is.
Yeah, she wants you to try.
And I
She
agree.
wants to
If
play
someone wants to
coy.
play a game and they're stupid like that, I don't want anything to do with them. That's why I filtered them out. You're probably an idiot.
I mean, it's just part of the
Hold
game.
on, but that's why you go through it. You get the nut, then you ditch her. That's easy peasy.
Yeah, but this isn't like a relationship. This is like a one and done.
Oh well, yeah. I'm not necessarily looking for that.
Corey, that's so
Cringe.
sophomore, right? Like you recognize that, like
Let
Come
Troy go. Come on, please.
What this reminds me of are those fucking people, these fucking women who go to the gym and
You recognize women as people. It's on record.
yeah, I do.
Well, barely. These fucking.
and
it's a type of person.
They
type
show
of people.
they show up to the gym, right? And they're wearing these these tights that like accentuate every curve. and then they bend down in front of you to pick up something.
The TikTok fucking pants.
And if
The
you
fucking
look,
folds in it, and I'm like, bro, what?
yeah. If you look,
Some of them are fucking see-through.
Oh, they're absolutely like you can like, and the camel toe is coming through like it's fucking Egypt. It's crazy.
It's annoying.
And they're bending over in front of you, and you're just trying to work out, and you're like, oh, it's a butt right there. But if you look, then you're a bad guy, right? But if you don't look, then they feel ugly, which is ultimately why they're doing this in the first place, right? And they're trying to set you up. And so I actually,
they're not.
Yes, no, this is what they do.
They don't give a fuck about you unless they're attracted to you. They're trying to
set you up to post on
the internet. They also want the attention. Like it's also about setting you up. Sure. And if you're going, I'm going to bring it back to this video. I'm going to bring back to this video, right? Because in this video, she's like, I'm not going to sleep with you, okay? But I'm going to go back home with you, which immediately, red flag. What does that even mean? Like, if we're going back, like, I'm not going back to have like martinis and cuddle. Absolutely not. A tea party. Like, this is crazy. Immediate mistake to do that to begin with. So I'm with Corey. If a woman says, yeah, I'll come back to your house, but we're not going to do anything, like, and it's like, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh shit. I actually got work tomorrow. If you're, I totally understand. Like, I'll drive you home. No big deal. Yeah. Don't set yourself up like that. Okay. Because you're setting yourself up for nothing good. Because let's say, look, worst case scenario. Let's say she does come back, and then the mood changes a little bit, and then she kind of seems like she wants it at this point, and she says yes, right? And then you guys fuck, and then later she says, "I told you I didn't want to do it." Now what are you gonna say? Because she did, and then she changed her mind.
She happened to change her mind back. That phrasing somehow,
and then she changed her mind back. It is just a dangerous scenario, and I would advise not doing it. Okay, I think that
you're not a real human, you're a lawyer, so you're always thinking about what's going to lead to like a lawsuit or something.
They're trying to get you, dude.
Well, especially if she like texted that to you initially, so now she can prove it.
Now she can prove it.
Absolutely. And where's the actual consent, which is like not reported.
Yeah, she wants to fuck you. That she just does for whatever reason. I told you, you're a beautiful man for whatever reason. Okay. But she doesn't want to feel like it happened because she's horny and she has like no standards. So she wants to feel seduced. She wants you to charm her a little bit. That's like, just go through the fucking game, get your dick wet, then leave. It's easy. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck cuddles with somebody you're not like? Okay, you go home.
Don't cuddle her. Don't do that. Just
that's not what she wanted. She was cuddling, and then she said he didn't try it, so she didn't
exactly.
She
wanted her. She wanted
the cuddling is the pretext. It's just breaking the touch boundary.
Stick up against her ass or something.
Little red pill terminology.
Bro, this is the most ridiculous. This is the most ridiculous scenario ever. Okay, Doobie.
No, it's not. It's not.
It is. Coming back. What if she actually just wants to cuddle?
I've had this happen to me multiple times. Okay,
Doobie. What if she just actually wants to cuddle, and then she turns around and sees me like fucking hard as shit, like gotta keep away 2 feet away so she doesn't feel my boner.
Yeah, dude, get hard.
2 feet. Okay.
Hold on. Not only will she like it, right? She's gonna make sure that she calls attention to it because that's what's gonna lead to the fucking. Okay.
I was about to say
no, but then what if she says like I didn't want to fuck, I just wanted to.
Then why were you moving so much? It's a very simple.
That's gonna go over right. Like so I can't move. You're just like all of your other. No, that's what they do.
No, she's not. Okay, don't be like feel guilty about your hard dick. It's fine to have a hard dick. You have a natural. You're attracted to her. You have a natural human reaction. Who gives a fuck?
Free game. If a girl's like anywhere near your lap, like anybody's ever near your lap, always do the dick jump. 100% time. Always.
What?
Like just make it jump because if she wants it, she'll bring it up. She's like
online shit.
What was that? Do it again.
Been arguing
or she'll say nothing, and you're like, oh, okay,
ever.
Maybe she didn't. But you always do it.
Group of people.
It's a natural bodily function.
Through misunderstanding sexual interactions with women for a fucking hour and a half.
Time for Big Papa Fabian to tell us how to get some pussy. Let's go.
If she's in your lap.
You're right. The problem is we have a government, right? And the government is the one that sets these boundaries in the first place. So we got to assume that there's no government. Okay, that's how we get away from it.
Exactly.
If she doesn't want you to, if she says I'm not going to sleep with you, don't go home with her. Like she said it.
You're behind her.
Lie to it.
Jump that dick.
You got it.
That was you.
Yeah. So, like, you got these women exist in a culture that teaches them that they're whores and shames them for feeling like sexually
Promiscuous.
like
Liberty, yeah.
promiscuous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they
While
so they want the
simultaneously
sex.
shouting their abortion.
They are shamed. They're shamed for wanting the sex. So they need to internally they need to feel like the sex happened because they were convinced to have the sex, not because they wanted it from the start. That's all it is. It's just some weird fucking mental gymnastics they got to do. It's not.
Yeah, but I don't want to be stuck in the fucking situation where now, like, I want to
Then
tell her to
don't.
leave and go home.
Then
But I
don't.
like, but don't. That's
The
what I'm
argument-
saying.
The argument
You
is
can't tell
about
her to go
whether
home.
or not we ought have some form of either cultural or legal enforcement for active consent. We understand that you, lawyer brain, want to protect yourself, number one. And number two, you like clear communication, and that's what you're attracted to. And someone that gives mixed signals isn't someone that you're attracted to, and you're not the type of guy that has one-night stands with whores that play hard to get. That's cool, bro. That's for you. Totally understandable. A lot of us like to fuck hoes that play hard to get. And hoes
If
that
she
like to
mentions
play
she's a
hard to
virgin,
get
she actually wants
sometimes
to
say that
fuck
they
you,
don't want
okay?
shit.
And
then
I am
so- and then-
safer from both STDs and a
sometimes-
case than you.
But you get less
That's
pussy.
fine.
So
That's fine. That's you describing your values and
But you
what
also drive a
value,
motorcycle.
and I totally understand and respect
Selecting for the
your
kind of girls he
values
doesn't
and
want.
Corey
It's a
values,
trade-off.
Prime's values. What we are talking about instead is when we start to get into this position where people saying women ought not behave this way. And the problem with that is that women simply do, and it is their choice and it is their right to give mixed signals and to expect someone to understand to read in between the lines. And when we get upset at that, or when we say women shouldn't do that, you're saying the sun shouldn't fucking rise and the moon shouldn't fucking have phases. Like, it just is. That is how reality is. Some of this can be culturally changed slightly, but at the end of the day, women like men that are masculine, that are assertive, that are dominant, and they like to not be seen as a whore. They like to play hard to get, and they like to have a man that can read in between the lines and pick up on body
There are
language.
plenty
Those are all
of ways.
attractive qualities.
Scott, I hear you, friend. There are plenty of ways, one, to just be dominant without like all of this, right? Without these sort of games. To be very clear, right? You can have all.
Yeah,
of
just
them.
say you coming over, we're gonna fuck. Otherwise, I'll take you home.
Don't
That's how
hate
you do
the
it.
player.
Yeah.
Hate the game is fine, but at the same time,
Dude,
like, no.
I'm saying, but hold on, like when
that
we're
works for
talking,
you, Lactoid. Just so we're clear.
when they're giving advice to couples who are having troubles with their marriage, right? What are they gonna do? You want to tell them, hey, you got to communicate, right? You got to sit down, like let's take this one situation, the situation when you
It's a
guys
wildly different situation.
had friction in between. No, but it stems from the same thing, right? Because what I've been saying this entire time, like, communicate. Don't expect that anyone can read your goddamn mind, right? Like, if there's a problem,
It sounds like you're
That's the fun
frustrated
in
that
the
you have
game. There's
difficulty
no fun
picking
in the
up on women's
communicate.
cues. It doesn't sound like you're
No, okay,
actually
hold on. So
like making an argument against. They are communicating. They're just not communicating in the way that you want, because they're shit testing you and preserving their dignity at the same time.
I hear you. But that brings it back. Yes, as you've agreed. Yes, we have a culture that says that, yeah, you're a whore if you want sex, right? If you feel sexual lust. One, we should change that.
Can you name a culture where this hasn't been true throughout all of human history? Can you think off the top of your head a single culture in human history where women have given and demanded
I
active
have
consent
not
the entire
studied
time?
this. I have heard that there are cultures that have been a lot more sexual and have a completely different dynamic between the sexes than
usually
Western society.
Usually,
but I don't
they're
know. I'm not going
outliers
to make a
because
wild
of
statement
economic conditions. Economic conditions that have put them in,
please,
where they've had to
Scott.
limit childbirth
Please,
because
Scott.
they don't want to, because they have limited land and they have like.
Oh my
like,
God, Scott.
yes, like
I hear you. I hear you. There's all kinds of reasons for these things, right? But I'm saying that we can understand, especially in our in this moment in time, right? That women's
If you hear
sexual
me, then why do you keep
desires.
circling back?
If you hear him, you should just be quiet and have.
We need unity. We need unity amongst men. I'm serious. If we all get together and we say we're not gonna go home with the woman who says that she's not going to
Cartels-
sleep with us.
Cartels don't work
We
with three
form a- we
companies.
can form a cartel.
Much less horny dudes of all of like much less 3 billion horny dudes.
I
who are
have-
Convince
gonna be like,
two-thirds of men,
bro
don't go home with the women that already
Forever.
aren't
I
going
feel
home
like-
with you.
I have
Like
barely
Lactoid,
been able to
Lactoid,
get
there's
my
something-
point
Stand
across,
strong.
and now I'm
We
going to
will
go to
build a
Doobie right
wall of
afterwards.
men
So I'm-
linked
Hell
together.
yeah,
I'm gonna-
MGTOW.
Oh my god. I'm going to say my point. Then I'm
Silly.
going straight to my friend Doobie. All right, right after this. Okay. So my point is that when we like, this is all on a spectrum, right? And the best thing for everyone to do. There are men also. I'm not also trying to make it sound like that men are just so.
I agree.
Such
You
good
sound like you're on the
communicators.
spectrum when you're mad about this.
Who? Okay.
He's
Friend,
doing it on purpose.
Trouble
You-
getting
you
body
Fred, you're
language. We
trolling
get
me.
it. You know.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm trolling you this time.
But yeah, so I'm not also saying that men are perfect communicators, right? Like, we know this as well. There are men who can't like tell their partners like their emotions, right? Can't communicate like what's happening inside them. That's also a problem too. That's also something they should work on, right? They may express themselves in other ways, sometimes very destructive ways. And that's wrong. Hey, use your words. Be big boys and big girls, and use your words. This is better for society.
Mm-hmm.
And I reject, though I don't have the data. Now, I'll admit that I don't have the data. I reject the notion that this is primarily, or even like mostly, a biological imperative. I think we've
come?
seen. I think we've
Just
seen
curious.
that. Sorry.
Why?
Well, my next sentence was like, I think we've seen in culture how this idea is reinforced, right? And like, just taking it back to the original topic, it's there's something wrong with a guy who's asked, right, that you should be turned off. Like, oh, that's weird, right? We see that replicate within our mass media all the time. I think if we change that, and we just change the social expectations, just like we've been doing about consent in general, right? With men, hey, you got to look for consent, right? And then women, you want an expectation. There should be an expectation there that a man would do that, right? Oh, that's the type of man I would like. A man that actually respects me, right? And that this weird ideas, these vague ideas of quote unquote dominance, right? These things are artificially created. If that's what you want, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you want like a dominant man, but that can be expressed in all kinds of ways. This is, I think, just a good start to say that like when we are engaging in these activities, right? Just check in. So I'll leave that there for now. And we'll go to Doobie.
You made a lot of assertions without evidence for the record.
I
See, I agree with Prime. I agree with Prime about the cultural thing. I don't think it's biological. I think it's obviously cultural. But that being said, I want to make
Why?
sure that
He didn't answer why. Do you have a why?
yeah, hold on. Cultures do exist where women are encouraged not to behave this way, right? Where women are more sexually liberated, quote unquote, or more sexually promiscuous, right? So like, so the fact that these cultures exist, I think, speaks
Woodstock,
to
right?
it not being biological. And the fact that we've seen a shift within our culture surrounding this topic in recent decades, I think again speaks to the fact that it's not biological. It's not some inherent biological thing that women have like a tendency to do. It is something that is reinforced by culture that we can see, we can understand, we can see it. It's everywhere. Like so,
But you're not. But you
the
haven't.
culture
You
that
said,
does
you
is
said
it has an origin that we can track.
neither of you have evidence for this. Like Prime's evidence for it, that to back up his assertion that it's primarily cultural, is that that we see how it's reinforced in society. But the fact that society reinforces an idea via culture doesn't mean that it couldn't possibly stem from biology, and that's why society reinforces the idea.
I didn't say
and Doobie, your
possible
evidence. Well, I know you didn't say can possibly. I did because because it could be the other way, right? It could be predominantly cultural, right? But I'm saying, but it isn't necessarily an argument. I'm not making the argument that it is predominantly biological. I made the argument from the onset that sex research is very limited, and anyone that makes the claim that it's predominantly cultural or that it's predominantly biological is probably talking out of their ass.
But I think you did make the claim that it was primarily biological. I think that's why Prime disagreed with, is because you said that. I
didn't make it.
If you did it, then it sounded a lot like that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
No, what I've done is I've pushed back against the not. I push back against the concept that it must be primarily cultural, or that we can use culture to enforce or kind of or decrease these things. And what I'm saying is we don't know to what extent it's biological or cultural. And so the assumption that trying to culturally enforce things will work is in my opinion a poor assumption. Rather, it's just a guess. And Doobie, your evidence is that there are cultures where culture has played an effect in the way that women engage in sex and that.
Wouldn't this
That is
wouldn't this
simply
kind of tie
that is
back to what you
evidence
were saying
of
earlier?
an interplay between culture and biology, not evidence that it is predominantly culture.
Yeah, so wouldn't this kind of tie back to what you were saying earlier, right? The best way to disincentivize a behavior or to make sure that somebody's not doing a thing is to make it socially ostracized, right? Make it socially unacceptable for them to behave in a way. I agree with you, and I think
Yeah.
you could apply it to this. And I think again we can look through the decades.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
course
that.
of decades in the United States, and see that over time, as women have become more sexually liberated, quote unquote, women are far more sexually open. Where there are a lot of discussions surrounding this topic specifically. Right? That's why we're talking about it at all. And I think it's because
Well, we don't know that
they
that's
aren't,
good.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's obviously
Right.
impacted by culture.
Right. Well, I never said that it wasn't impacted by culture. This is
But
the
them
issue.
being open
Okay,
wasn't the
not
I think
argument.
the issue is just more
not just
complicated. And you
impacted
guys
by
don't,
culture.
haven't read a lot of sex.
Okay, yeah,
research.
but not just
Maybe.
impacted by culture, right? If you were just saying that we can't say what one way or the other, whether it's biological or cultural, I don't think primary would disagree with you. If you're just saying that we can't,
I've literally been saying that the entire time.
No,
I'm
it didn't
pushing
sound like
back
you were saying
against
that
the
from the start.
concept.
You were saying that there was a
Just because-
biological
just
reality
because
that
you
we
have
have
a
to deal
hard
with, and
time
we can't contend with the
vibing-
biological reality.
Right. Okay. Like I understand that I have been clearly communicating this. So
I don't think
maybe
so.
you should ask for clear consent in these
I think
situations, because when I'm
multiple
clearly
people-
communicating what I'm
multiple
saying,
people
you're
who are
straw
listening
manning
to
me
you,
and saying that I
multiple people who
don't,
are listening to
or
you
that I'm saying
He's
that
reading your body
disagreeing
language, Scott.
with your perspective of what you said and what you think you said. I think you should probably maybe you're just having trouble communicating today or something.
No,
but
I'm
that is
not
what you
having
said.
trouble communicating. And it is what I said. The problem is
Okay, that's fine.
that I'm not taking a strong positive position on one or the other. However, I am playing devil's advocate but I'm not making positive claims, but I am playing devil's advocate. And I've multiple times I said, it could be the possibility that I multiple times I said it could be that women are picking up on these cues because they're an enforcer. They are representative of good communication and ability to understand.
You said the words "I
multiple
could
times
be."
I've
Yes, I
said
heard
that's
you.
a
I've heard you
possibility.
say it could be. Yes, sure.
Right.
Okay.
Because I'm pushing back against the belief that you know that you can control or influence
Hold on,
these
hold on.
behaviors.
Tom's interested in knowing. He just wants to work towards it, and whatever ends up, he feels like is better than where we are now.
Right, but
Yeah,
it could cause a backlash that causes more problems.
To be clear, I didn't ever said that I know, right? Unless the only thing I think I know is that this would be a better one. That's like the strongest belief I'm saying here. What I said previously, my
positive claim, it could be a worse world.
Yeah, well, okay, sure. Yes, indeed. I don't fucking know. Yeah, the world doesn't exist, but I have no idea. Of course, yeah, sure. But that's the only thing that the only claim that I'm making that would be a better world. But beyond that, like I said previously, I don't have any evidence, right, to say that it's primarily cultural. I preface
But
that.
you also don't have any evidence that it would be a better world.
Dude, you're just trolling me today. I know
Kate,
you.
for
You
your
must
own
be trolling me
philosophy?
right
He's
now.
arguing for the argument's sake, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, do you have any evidence that it wouldn't be a better world, or that it would be a worse world if we went with his perspective?
Yeah, like.
So, but the
Do you have
problem
any
is
reason
the
to
problem
believe
is
that it'd be a worse world?
because no, what I'm saying is the problem is because we do not know enough about where this behavior stems from, whether it is primarily culture, or whether or not it's primarily biological. If it happens to be that it has a strong basis in biology, to quote Jurassic Park, life has a way. And so the problem is that when you start to enforce things culturally against something that has a strong biological precept, sometimes there are unintended consequences that are worse than the things that we wanted. Such as, I don't know.
But
a
the
large
fact
group
that
of
we're
women
having a
being
conversation from a
super into
don't know
consensual
means that he can
non-consent.
consider whichever worldview he wants to, because it's equally possible that like nothing he's saying is relevant. Like it would be one thing if we were leaning towards it's probably biological, then maybe that would need to be considered. But you're having the conversation from I don't know, so everyone can take their own perspective, and his perspective is
Right,
just
but he's
simply
having
saying,
it, but he's having one from its primary
right,
culture.
and he's
Because
leaning
the
one way, but
solutions are
someone else
cultural.
can lean the other. I'm saying you don't have to consider every factor and everything.
Yes. Jesus Christ, it's like you guys don't understand that sometimes people don't have a strong positive position, and instead they're trying to communicate that
Right.
data and like sometimes and nuance is important to understand.
For
Don't
sure.
the left
For
fucking
sure.
love
No,
nuance? How are you
no,
not getting
no.
it?
I understand exactly what you're saying. I just don't think people are interested in it. That's the only thing. Like I think that. No,
I mean,
I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm saying that Prime perspective was just
sometimes
on
truth is
the idea of
more
like
is boring compared to like
the idea. He
bombastic
just thinks that
positive
more
positions.
communication is better. He wants to have that conversation. He's like, and you're like thinking 3 steps down from that. He's like, well, what if that communication stems from a perspective that goes against the biological realities? And Prime didn't go that far. He's just stopping at like, I just think it would be better to have more communication.
Hold on.
Yeah,
To be
and
clear,
I responded to that.
wait, hold on. To be clear, right? I don't know why anything that I've said is an anti-nuance conversation, like anti-nuance statements here. Like, I am simply putting forth an idea. Well, anyway, Bam put forth my idea, right? And then we're responding to that. And hey, like, do you think it's a good idea or do you not? We're just like, hey, like, throwing our opinions about. Like, we can do that. We do this all the time. I don't understand what you're doing here. Like, oh, I'm not having a strong stance one way or the other. Yeah, but then like you're.
I mean, I am having a strong stance. The strong stance is that the desire for cultural enforcement of things that are difficult to know is probably fucking with something we don't know a whole lot about, and it's
Do you have any evidence of
and that
that?
it's a difficult thing and might more likely
Yeah.
lead to bad outcomes.
Any
It might
evidence
not
of
be.
that?
Do you have any evidence either way?
Evidence of what specifically?
What you just said.
Evidence that I believe that going into that I have a bias towards, and I think bias that I think is fairly evidenced through history and science, that when you mess with cultural institutions, dynamics, and social relationships without knowing the consequences, that you're more likely to have negative outcomes than positive outcomes. I would say that
Yeah, I don't think that's
sociologists
true.
and tons of studies over and over and over again would support that idea.
Hold on,
That it
we've
is
messed with
that when you
cultural
don't know a lot
institutions
about something
all the time
and you
throughout
start
history, and
messing,
in many of the cases, we've had very positive outcomes.
and more often than not, you have negative outcomes when you attempt
Like
to
when?
change.
What do you mean?
This is what I mean
what do you
about like
more
I don't know
often
if this
than
is
not?
interesting.
Is it like 50%, 55%,
Like when
60%? Like what do you mean more often than not?
Communication is good.
So like when the
66.32.
state or when like an academic institution, when you try and culturally enforce something, change something
66.
that you don't know the outcomes of is like a
Is
guess,
that less than
right?
2/3 or more than 2/3?
You're more
Well, we
likely.
can never really know the outcome of
So
something.
66.6.
So anytime we do anything, we're
Okay, I'm
kind of
not
taking a
listen,
guess.
listen. Trolling me about percentages because you guys
I'm not
don't
trolling
like
about
complicated
percentages.
conversations.
I'm challenging.
No, Black
the thing
America
that you're
made
saying, right?
is no. So the position that I'm saying
Aren't we
would
always
be
kind of taking a
fundamentally
guess
based.
when we do something?
Okay, would be fundamentally based in structural functionalism and the functionalist perspective, right? So if you study functionalism, which is a cornerstone of sociology, then the argument from the functionalist perspective is if something exists as an institution in society, it forms some function. Now that function could be reinforcing a negative thing, right? Like slavery, for example, is functional in a certain aspect, but it has all kinds of bad things to it. But when you willy-nilly try and change institutions without knowledge of what the presumed outcomes are, you are getting rid of something that is functional, that society does depend upon in some regard, because it wouldn't exist for an extended period of time if that thing, it wouldn't exist.
There's also a
unless
world
it
where
was
66,
functional
anything
in
over
some regard.
66% would be 2/3.
Didn't you say that about the government?
Even if it's a decimal.
The government absolutely serves a function, right? Like
Yeah,
every,
so I mean, there was a
institution
time and place
serves
where
a function.
slavery served a function that was helpful to the society that it existed in. Sure, okay.
Absolutely, I just
So
said
once
I said-
we evolve as a society, we're no longer in that place anymore. We can attack that institution, move to something else. And when we do that, we don't necessarily know it's a good thing to undo slavery, right? To free people, but we're kind of taking a guess that it might be a good thing. And I don't think we need to know for
Absolutely,
sure.
I
that
agree.
okay, well then what's the problem?
Because you
All I'm
asked
saying
me
is, hey,
for
that he's
what
guessing.
evidence.
He's guessing that living in a
You
world where
asked
women
me.
aren't encouraged to play hard to get, and men aren't encouraged
Don't ask me
to
a
take
question
chances
and
with
then
consent.
and then and then
Well, yeah,
goalpost shift.
I think
I'm
he's
gonna keep
framing
going.
the
Right.
question though.
Yeah, I'm framing the question. So I think all Prem is saying is that he's taking a guess that if we were to live in a society where women weren't forced to, weren't encouraged socially, culturally, to play hard to get, and to not really be open and transparent about what their intentions are sexually, and men aren't encouraged to play hooky, play Russian roulette with rape all the time. If that society frame things would be better, right? That's all he's saying. It's not that
Well,
complicated.
I would disagree.
Isn't this
with
your relationship,
men
though,
are
Doobie?
playing
Basically.
hooky with or playing Russian roulette with rape. But again, my argument was that I think that when you mess with institutions with very little knowledge of what those outcomes will be, that more often than not, that is likely to be degenerate or dysfunctional in some capacity. And the reason for this is that institutions exist in some capacity because they work. That doesn't necessarily mean that every institution is good, obviously. I gave slavery as an example of how some institutions can be functional in some regard and yet still be immoral or still be holding up other immoral things. But what we understand is that we have this body of history throughout the evolution of culture, society, religion, philosophy, etc., that is thousands and thousands of years old. And so when we take something that is a big part of that structure and we just go, let's deconstruct that, and we don't really know what it is that we're deconstructing, it is more likely, because that is functional to a functional system, that is to have negative outcomes than it is to have positive outcomes. And that instead we ought to be conservative, right? That is the entire basis of the Burkean conservative or the conservative mindset, is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if we see something that we do believe to be broke, then we should be careful, then we should study it, and we should, like, it's the classic example of like the fence in the road, right? Like the Democrat says we have to get rid of this fence, and the Republican says we have to figure out why this fence was here, right? And that is my argument in full, is that we ought to be more careful about trying to police sexual relationships and consent and all of these things when we know very little about it. And instead we should be more methodical, more careful about those institutions that are
great.
so
Couldn't
primary
someone
to our
touching
species.
dicks like give us sometimes actually communicate more information than even verbalizing it? Like if a girl walks up to you and she says like, "Oh yeah, I want to have sex with you," like you might even think she's joking, like she don't mean that shit, like, or like this is a prank or something. But if a girl walks up to you, looks you in the eyes, and grabs your dick,
Well, that
I
could
think
be a
that gives
joke or
you
a prank.
that gives you some
It
information.
would
That
literally
means,
just
like,
be the exact same thing of what you said.
you think it's a
It'd be a
joke?
bad joke and a bad prank, but you know.
I think it can be. Well, okay, so what if she grabs your dick and says, "I want to have sex with you"? Isn't that like
Double
the best
consent.
of both?
Well,
Yeah.
now you've added additional things to the communication, right? So of course it's more effective to communicate that I want to have sex with you.
What if she says, I want to have sex
What
with you
if
and
she
punch you in the
texts
dick?
you?
The physical
What if
act
she
of
texts
it
you,
and
touches your
saying
dick,
it
and
than
says
doing
it?
one. Right, of course, it's even more information. And for
One
Lacto
theory
to be
that
happy because there's written documentation. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking about
Well,
making
that'll
like
be
a
a joke,
contract
though. That'll
app.
be
I
a
think that'd be
prank.
great.
It already
But
exists.
I've
It's a really long prank.
Oh, it already exists. Well, there you go. I guess I'm not making money off that.
I
But
think it's literally just called the
Make a
consent app.
better one, Lactoid. Where's
I'll
the
make,
person
you're right. You're
hearing?
right. Make a better mousetrap.
What the
Exactly.
fuck was
Capitalism.
that?
Hell yeah. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. My bad.
Jesus.
One
Let the
theory I've had
Arab
for a
remind
while.
you.
What do you guys think about the idea that like, if somebody's like wet, right? You talked about the snail trail before, Doobie, right? Like this
Yeah.
indicates that they're into you, right? And so if they're not
In that
wet,
case, yeah.
yeah. So if they're not wet, that'd be some information against the idea that she's into you, right?
A little
It
bit.
depends. Yeah, it really depends.
Well,
little bit, yeah.
well, I think
It's a good indicator. Yes.
Yeah, tautologically, right?
It's a
If being
good
wet is an
indicator.
being wet is an indicator that she's into you, then at least not being wet is a lack of that indicator, which would indicate
Some girls
the
have
opposite,
problems
right?
though, Lactoid. Some girls have
Well,
problems.
hold on. I'm
Some
just
girls
talking
have a lot
about
of
being
problems,
generally
or they don't-
careful,
they don't-
okay?
They don't get that wet, or maybe the panties or thongs she's wearing is just like a little bit thicker than women typically wear, so it's not getting through.
Oh, okay,
So,
sure, but like
the one that I was talking about was wearing like really thin underwear.
I get that, but like again, there's going to be some
Generally,
percentage. There's going to be some percentage of women who like you're trying to add in exceptions to the general rule that I'm not trying to account for right now. All I'm saying is that
Please
if
get
it is
that
true, if it is true that the snail trail indicates that she's into you, then it would therefore must mean that the lack of a snail trail is evidence to the alternative, right?
Yeah.
And so if that's the
contrary,
case,
not a contradiction.
Yeah.
no, if that's the case, it will, because it's got to be either yes or no in this scenario, right? So the absence
No, it
of
doesn't.
the absence of information to it.
The
It
absence
doesn't
of
have to be a
information
yes
is
or
not-
no if
is-
she wants to fuck you.
No, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. The lack of being wet doesn't have to be an indicator that she doesn't want to fuck you. It just means so she could be wet, and that indicates that she wants to fuck you. But also, she could have a medical condition, you know,
I already said
one way
that.
or the other. To be fair.
I understand.
But-
yes,
but
you can run into a fucking woman who's got a medical condition.
Generally.
But I'm saying generally when you're dealing with women, okay,
Yeah.
if we're gonna
This
say
is
that
super
you-
autistic, but it's a Bayesian inference, right? Like
sure.
it's a combination of
Yeah,
different factors.
sure. You're
that
right. You're right.
one-
Okay,
that's
and this is
sits
one
in the
factor.
category, yeah.
And this is one factor where if what Doobie said before, which is the snail trail indicates that she's into you, this must mean that the lack of this indicator would point to the alternative, right? If we're measuring
No.
positive indicators.
Sure.
That's not how
If
logic
we're
works.
looking for positive indicators, okay.
Hold
You
on,
can
no,
disagree with me on
no,
the logic,
yes,
but I
the
think it
lack
makes
of
sense.
a positive indicator
Schrödinger's-
is not a
Schrödinger's
negative
vagina,
indicator.
okay, you can't really know either way.
Okay,
Schrodinger's
listen, it's
vagina.
not Schrodinger's vagina. Just hear me out, okay?
No,
I
no,
gotta
a lack of a
finish this
positive
point.
indicator
Okay,
is
but-
not a negative indicator.
Lactoid.
In a binary choice with a zero sum, I think it is. So if we're talking
No, it's
about
not.
making a decision,
It's not how
yes.
logic works.
Oh,
yes,
let
if you're
him
making
go, let him go, let him go, let him go.
if you're making a decision, right? If you're saying I only want to have sex with somebody who's consenting, and a snail trail is indication of consent, then this would be the lack of a snail trail would be a point against consenting,
It'd be
against
null.
her being consenting in this
It's
point,
null,
which
It
is
would be a
the
point
absence of a
against.
positive.
which is a contrary, not a contradiction.
But if the absence of a positive
Contraries
and the idea
contradictions are not the same
in the
thing.
absence of a positive point of her consenting, this would be a point in your mind. If you're weighing the calculation, the ultimate scales of consent, this would be a point against fucking her because maybe she's not consenting at
No.
this point.
The point against it would be like she goes to the bathroom
Motherfucker.
and like you hear from someone else that when she opened it up, like you heard from her friend, she was like, "Oh my god, I've never been drier in my entire life." You have evidence that her pussy has become more dry by your.
Maybe she
that
just
would be the
developed a
negative.
medical condition where she's super dry. I don't know. There's no way to really know.
Right.
Look. Okay, what
But
I'm trying
again,
to get to a point. Okay,
Absence of a positive is not a negative. It's a
Lactoid.
null.
Pussy wet, yes.
Lactoid
Pussy
hasn't
dry, no
seen
lactoid,
lactoid
yes.
spike yet.
I agree.
That
Go.
would make her-
Let Lactoid get to his point, please. Everyone, shut up. Let Lactoid get there, please.
so
Yeah, who's just making a logical argument?
Shut up! Oh my god, dude.
So, I, a civilized man, want to have sex with a woman who is consenting, right? So I'm looking for indicators of consent, right? And if there's not enough indicators of consent, it hasn't reached the threshold necessary for me to determine that she is sufficiently consenting to my dick, okay? Now, what are the things I'm looking for? I'm looking for, yeses. I'm looking for good body language. And what Doobie said, which is interesting, I somewhat agree with, that a snail trail is indicative of that she wants it. Therefore, the absence of a snail trail, it's missing that positive indicator at the very least. Now, if it's missing the positive indicator, this would mean, I would argue, that foreplay, including going down on a woman, is a little bit less consensual than not, because you're now introducing an action that mitigates the positive consent indicator of the snail trail because she's dry, right? Because she's dry and you have to eat her out to get her wet. But if she liked you, she'd be wet anyway, right? Or she'd be more likely to be wet anyway if she was wet. So eating a girl out is actually it's problematic. I would use that terminology.
Lactoid. Here's the problem. Lactoid. Engaging with the meme in fullest sincerity. We have to understand that consent to sex is not a fixed position, right? So the act of eating her out, she may consent to that action, but not want full-blown penetrative sex. And then via your skills, not your skills, because you're not practicing it, because you think it's submissive and wrong, right? But other people's skills, right, could change that non-static position, to a yes, right? So in fact, you could like
you're going to eat her out good enough until she wants to do it. Is that your argument?
That happens.
Sounds bad.
That's a real
That
thing.
sounds not good.
That's a real thing.
Happens.
That does not sound.
He's like, I
That
want to go
sounds
away.
pervy. That sounds kind of on the
You're
line.
revealing.
There,
You're
there
revealing your
absolutely. Wait a minute. Real
quick.
life example. Because you think that's crazy. There are girls who like. It doesn't mean they're not into you, but they're like, maybe it's like the second date. Maybe we just met. Maybe it's a little too soon. I want to do this, but I don't want to go all the way. I just don't want to do that. You eat them out. You rev the engine up, and eventually they say, "Okay, just put it in." Like you're like, what? Like, just do it, please.
Listen,
Like,
I might be an outlier. This is very important. Listen, but you're about to understand and you're about to laugh before I get to the end of my sentence. I promise. As a white man that likes to date black girls, there have been many situations where it was like, I don't know if I want to get with this white guy. And then there's like, but I heard that y'all are really good at this one thing. And then everything kind of just falls into place.
Well, not
and I
lactose.
promise you, there have been more than one.
That's
black
additional
girl that was
information,
like,
though.
I don't know if I want to have sex with this white boy.
You're
And
throwing the
then all of a sudden
calculation
they're
off.
like, holy shit! Yeah.
Well, this
outliers
is taking
exist.
into
You're adding in new
This is
information. I'm
not-
saying generally speaking,
No.
right? If you
No, you
pull
didn't
down
say
the
general.
panties
You
and
made it-
she's
you
not
made it
wet
a
enough,
yes, sir. You made it a
you just
yes,
said
no
wet enough.
situation.
Wet and not wet. Very,
they're
very
like,
No, you
they're-
made-
oh no, but wet is a
you
gradient.
made
I'm
it-
talking
you
about
made it-
wet enough to sufficiently achieve penetration.
No,
That
you
is
made
how
it-
you know
you
that
made
she
it a
really.
yes or
Well,
no
not there's other
situation.
things too, but that's one indicator of consent. And when you guys over here are like, oh, I'm going to go down on her because maybe she's not wet enough. Well, you're missing that important indicator, right? As Doobie said, the snail trail being
I
an
never
important
have
indicator.
that issue. I'm just saying this is a tactic used by many.
I don't have this issue either. I'm just saying as well. I think that
I'm
this
just
is a
saying-
problematic
I'm
thing
just
for
saying,
men to do.
There are a lot of trepidatious black girls out there that, will complete the process when they get eat out. All right. I'm just throwing that out there.
Literally the last time I had sex a while ago. But I was in this exact same situation, right? Like I had come to her place, expecting we're going to do this, and then she's like, I don't know, I'm not really feeling it. I feel bloated.
Prime
or
Daddy was engaged.
some shit. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Rapist.
one of those
Really?
things. And I'm like, all right, well, why don't I eat you out? And she wanted to do that because do a good job.
Baby, it's cold outside. Oh,
yeah.
Prime guys. You don't want to have sex, but like maybe you'll do something else.
And I did it, and then she's like, "Okay, let's fuck." So that's 100% the script. It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
It's completely consensual. If anything, they like ask for it.
All I'm saying is Prime
You're
read
like,
the
nah.
Prime read the signals, pushed the line a little bit, right? And got
He asked for consent though, verbally.
Hey, wait,
Here we
she
go.
said that she doesn't want to do anything, and he pushed it. He said, "Well, maybe a little bit of this." And then
He
she's
manipulated her.
like, she obliged.
Right,
She's like,
with his
okay.
words
And
and his
then,
tongue.
and then he
100%
worked his magic. And then he worked his magic, manipulated both physically and mentally, and got what he wanted.
Weaponized her limbic system.
Which is what he
This is the
came
biggest
here
cell
for.
phone.
Okay, so Prime does not believe in he believes in asking for consent to manipulate the girl into thinking he's a good guy. Ooh.
No, this is-
It's like when the drug dealer
Because
gives the
the
first
very
hit for free, right?
The very beginning,
That's how
beginning
manipulative
of this
it is.
whole conversation
Okay.
is about the concept of whether or not about the fact that this girl said she wasn't going to have sex but went to this dude's place. That's what we're reacting to, right? And then was upset that he didn't put the moves on her. And
Yeah.
Prime shows with his actions, not with his cultural prescriptions that he think
His
we ought to do,
ideologies.
but with his actual actions, his actual
No, he
biology,
did. He
what drove
followed his
him into
prescription. He
the
asked for
situation.
consent.
Yeah.
He used his words. He's been. Maybe I'm misunderstanding anything, but
She said
Prime's been
no.
advocating for
She
words
said
and
no.
language, and I believe he used
She
that.
said no,
Wait,
and
but
then he
you-
went
but
for
you
a
thought that was
different
crime.
route so that he could get a
And then he
yes.
pushed,
Yeah,
and
you
then
would've
he
been
got
okay-
yes.
You would have been
Can I
okay with
do it?
having sex there, but you knew when you went down, you knew there was
What
a
was
chance.
going to happen?
You knew there was a chance that the
Mhm.
situation.
Hold on,
That
hold
was
on.
the goal.
Hold on.
But you would have found if she never did. Like I think you even said you enjoy eating out. Like
I absolutely
more
is
than-
my favorite thing. That's my
than
favorite thing to
receiving.
do.
Yeah.
Love it.
With no reciprocation.
Very, very. Even if there's no reciprocation, I love eating out. I love eating out girls. Yeah, I would.
That's
But no,
icky.
but it's almost always reciprocation, so that's not a problem.
Well,
I don't like blowjobs.
Daddy.
But yeah, whenever
Yeah,
you did
like,
it,
it's fine.
but yeah,
But-
did you understand the like this may increase this may put the odds in my favor. Like, who knows? You know, if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't, you'll be cool.
You
But
were
were
confident in your
you knew what you were
skills.
doing.
Yeah, of course I knew what I was doing, but I don't see how that like goes against what I said previously,
So
right?
she had said no,
So
It doesn't.
if she had
Right,
said
But you
because
didn't
it-
want
because the
to.
example-
and then you
because
use your body language to.
my
And then you
body
manipulated
language,
the situation.
I use my
We
mouth.
agree with
well, in all kinds of ways.
No, we agree with you, Prime. No, we agree with you that you did indeed ask for active consent for the things that you did. And
Okay.
that doesn't go violate your previous thing. I think
Okay.
what we're talking about that isn't necessarily hypocritical, but shows a different domain of how humans interact
Okay.
is when we reacted to the video of the girl saying, "Hey, I told this guy I want to go to his place, but I'm not having sex. He didn't make any moves on me, so now I feel unattractive. I feel like why didn't he push?" The initial reaction, it seems to be, maybe I'm wrong, from you and Corey, is like, I don't want to play these games. I don't want someone that's going to say no, and then I try and push them towards a yes, etc. But what you've shown with your actions is that you do realize that sometimes no means maybe. That
Wait,
sometimes when a
that's-
girl says
that's not
no,
what we said.
what she
Well,
means is if you work hard enough,
That's what they
and if
basically
you try
said, yeah.
and get me in the right mood, it can become a
Okay.
yes because it's a no right now. But that is not a thing that's a thing that can change over time,
Oh, wait.
given your behavior.
Okay.
and
For
given whether or
lactoid,
not
no
you make
means
her feel
no. For
beautiful,
you
etc.
guys, I don't know.
Okay. If I,
No,
so
no, it's Killer
um,
Jazz.
setting aside the video is, let's say, a parody, but I'm sure there's some version of this woman that exists. Like, I don't think, at least the message that I got of
All
like
over TikTok.
Yeah.
the message that I got is like making a move didn't fall under the category of like, oh, I just wish this person asked for consent to sex. I think I thought that they were, and it could be wrong, they were essentially alluding to the fact that I wanted this person to make a move non-verbally, as in put the moves on them physically, just like go for it, as opposed to Prime's approach of like, hey, how about we try this thing?
Right, but she never said I wanted him to hold me down by the back of my neck, rip my pants off, and say, "Take it, bitch." Like she's saying we were cuddling, and I was like rubbing my hips a little bit, and then like nothing
didn't do the
happened.
big jump.
Yeah,
He didn't
I'm-
make any
You know what I mean?
moves.
Like,
He just
he
took
didn't
the
grab
no
the-
as no,
I'm
whereas
re-
Prime didn't take the no as no.
I'm
He pushed.
reasonably sure. I don't know for sure. I'm reasonably sure. Okay, this type of woman, whatever version, the asking for consent falls in the category of this will kill the mood, and this now turns me off.
Are you
Wait, he offered cunnilingus. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know any girls are just passing up a free head. That's So and he knew
Plenty of
what he
girls,
was doing. He
if they
used
don't want it,
that.
it's
I think
It's
it depends on if she
free,
likes
per
it or not,
se.
if she
Well,
wants it.
or consensual.
Well, I'm assuming this is a girl he had hooked up with before.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have
This is
just
true.
tossed it up in the air. So,
This is
like,
true.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
She said she wasn't in the mood. He's like, oh, well, I know how to do this. You want to do the other thing? She said, well, yeah, of course. And then he got sure, he asked for the consent to do the thing, but like,
I don't always enjoy doing sexual things. Like and I'm a guy, and like guys are supposed to be like all dick for brains. Like I think it's pretty normal for a girl even like to just not want to do oral or anything. I actually know girls that don't like oral, not because it doesn't feel good, but they don't like the feeling like they just peed on themselves afterwards. Just like basically having like slobber in their lap. Like it could be a lot of reasons why someone can enjoy like they want to enjoy levels of intimacy without like engaging in like sexual dynamics. But there's ways to like push that intimacy and create moods, because I think that it's not necessarily no means maybe. It's like coming in from ground zero and asking,
Pause, I
hey,
didn't
do you
say
want to
that.
do this? Am I
So
turned
sometimes
on?
no means maybe.
Yeah, I mean, just like it's just the idea of like, hey, do actions that turn me on, like that turn me on, and don't just ask. Like, do them and then ask, or do them and
No,
be there
because
with
again, that I think there's obviously whatever what women are interested in is a spectrum, and like I've had the opposite experience of like just by virtue of me asking for consent turns them on to other things. Like that's not.
It's a subjective theory of value, right? Like this is why you have to be a libertarian in terms of economics, and because you kind of all affirm the basics of libertarian economics, which is that value is subjective, right? That there is no such thing as exploiting, a worker or
The sexual
labor
marketplace.
theory of value, et cetera, right? Because we recognize that like I can walk down the street and smell a hot dog vendor in New York selling hot dogs for $2, and I'm like, I don't want a hot dog. Like $2 doesn't matter. But when I come out on my lunch break, all of a sudden $2 hot dog is amazing, right? Well, what changed is I'm not a person that always hates hot dogs. But when lunchtime came around, I was feeling a little hungry. I was a little peckish. All of a sudden, that $2 hot dog sounded like a good idea.
Maybe because if they do ask for the hot dog when you was in the mood, he got
The
you in the
sexual
mood. You was
marketplace
hungry.
is the only true
Like, I got a little
capitalistic
hungry. All of a sudden,
society.
I wanted a hot dog.
And then Corey
I'm
and
glad
Pine
that
want
you
to come
guys
shut
all
it down.
believe in the subjective theory of value. I appreciate that. I can't wait for you guys to all become Austrian in your thinking and give up socialism.
Should we talk about relationship
Yeah,
dynamics for
Lactoid.
15 minutes? We never engaged with the actual topic. We're just
Bam, I can't be on your side after what you said
Uh,
before about eating ass. So whatever you said, I disagree with.
Do you not? That I think that's unfortunate. There's so
Nah,
much.
that's-
There's a lot of world.
Lactoid seems very
That's
vanilla.
unfortunate that I don't stick my tongue. Wait, hold on.
I would never. do
All the way in is what you said. All the
Yeah,
way
all
in
the way.
Vanilla,
into
what's-
someone's ass.
all the
That's
way.
disgusting.
Lactoid, what's your favorite?
Like
what's
my
your
tongue
position?
actually hurts a little bit.
Are you a missionary champ?
Missionary through the sheets. Yeah.
Missionary through the sheets. Under the sheets, nice.
Missionary.
Sheets, right?
We don't have to. So Doobie is a chat extraordinaire, but at the same time, don't listen to him because he won't go
Degenerate.
down on a girl, right? If she has
Unless
sex
I
with
really,
someone
really,
else
really like
6
them,
months
okay?
earlier because he's afraid of
that's
the
normal?
dick
Okay, I
germs
thought you
might
were-
still be there.
Hold on. When you were
The
when you,
cells
I thought you
there are
meant,
fundamentally
I
changed.
on,
was
I thought
watching
you
a
meant,
Red Pill podcast, okay, and they said that
God.
women store the DNA of
It's
previous
just
sexual
gross.
partners.
You want it's fucking
so
gross. I don't want to
touching
eat
that
some guys
dirty
like
man
leftover like
seed
comment. Like, what do you mean?
DNA vagina.
I don't want to eat some dude's leftover dick cheese that's been floating around in there. I'm just not interested. In it.
True. Good point.
How long? How long is the
6
period?
months?
Realistically,
6
I don't
months.
fucking know what she's doing.
6 months is
No, well, he
crazy,
means ever. For Doobie, it's ever.
In the end, he
It
would
should be
prefer-
Only
ever, yeah.
virgins for the Doobster.
Well, I think all the cells in your body replace themselves every 7 years, right, Doobie? So if you wait 7 years, then it's a new person.
Ship of Theseus of pussy.
I don't know.
Pussy.
I've only had sex twice where I didn't eat a girl out, and I honestly just wasn't as good. It's for her, but it's partially it is kind of for me. I'm like, I don't know. It's just part of
He's
it.
just putting the signals out there, ladies. Bam.
Well-
All right, he's the
I was
one.
like, hey, well, technically, I'm in a relationship. Not even technically. literally.
98 and 2.
Yeah,
98
don't
and
say
2.
that.
Bro, did
You
you literally just
know.
Mitch Hedberg? I'm not a girlfriend. I don't have a girlfriend, but I do know a girl that'd be really mad if she heard me say that.
Nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm a human being. I'm an adult.
Yeah. But anyway, Doobie, you should,
You might be a single adult.
I know Doobie's
Should've what?
proclivities, so
Why do you say it like that? Like they're weird or something?
they're fucking weird.
Wait,
I mean,
okay, you might not put your
it's
mouth.
not
Do you at least
weird.
put like a thumb in the butt, something?
What's up with you? You guys in the butt? What the fuck?
I don't know. I like the
It's
butt.
an extra
Hold
orifice.
on,
It's
like,
an
I like
extra
butt
hole.
too.
What's up with you and not the butt?
I'll do anal if she's like clean herself. Okay, like if
Yeah.
she's like clean. But I'm not
It's
gonna sit
never
there and
clean.
say,
Enema,
what the
whole
fuck?
I'm not, I like anal, but I can't do it.
That's
I
why.
don't
That's
have
why
the
they
dick
invented
brain.
butt plugs and shit. Like you get toys for that kind of shit. I'm not gonna.
That's why there's coffee enemas.
So, Bam, in case you missed it, because he doesn't want you to miss
This is
it.
the most
it's
vanilla
making a
fucking
claim
panel
that
I've ever
his
heard in my
dick is
life,
too big
and
to
I
do
don't want
anal.
you guys
That's-
to know
so
this
just so
shit.
you
No, it's
know.
When
actually-
the fuck did
well-
you have a tank top on? When did this happen?
There's part. Yeah, that did
What?
just change. Is this
You
like?
You
just
have a tank-
shirtless.
We're talking about sex.
Trying to
you just
compete
put
with
tank
Bam
top
for the
on.
women.
What's
Yeah, listen to
happening?
the
It's a
conversation.
black
Getting
tank
Scott a
top
little
too.
hot, you know.
No,
No,
but
I have,
Scott
I
might
have-
be
I
might
have
be living through a
sunburn.
snowstorm right now.
I have
There's actually more to do with
sunburn
dick
and
shape.
and it's been bothering me all night actually on my shoulders.
Sorry about
Pussy.
that.
See, it's
You've
like
been born
flaking.
black.
Big Papa Fabian.
I was about to say, I know you black people don't understand this, but sometimes you get sunburn on your shoulders.
I'm
you
just
know,
shocked
and
that
it
the tank
itches
top
and
is
it
black
hurts
and not white.
So I have a
Is
lot
it
of.
still? Is it still
This
called a
is
white
like
beater?
when
It's
Lactoid
black?
told me he preferred one-ply toilet paper, which I still don't believe, by the way. But
It crumples easier.
yeah. I know that was the argument. Why not just use the brown paper then? The brown paper towel from school.
It doesn't. No, that's too thick. It's like it doesn't crumple very well. It feels like sandpaper.
So you just get,
Wait, what?
you
What
get
are you guys
mass
talking about?
layers
How do
of
we get
one
to
ply.
fucking toilet paper?
I-
It's
it's
one
so-
ply. It's gonna flush really well. Don't
Yeah.
worry
Would
about
any
it.
of y'all, would
Go
any of
ahead,
y'all
Doobie.
go 50-50 with your girlfriends?
Why don't we
Yeah.
save that for later?
50-50 for what?
Actually,
She pays half the bills.
Like on a date?
No. Let's save that.
That leads to the
I don't
topic
wanna-
that we didn't get to.
I don't want to shortchange it. Let's save that. Next, I'll invite you again next week, Bam.
Well,
Hopefully, you'll have time.
I'm surprised you brought up like you didn't bring up the guys that are doing the soft guy era movement instead of the soft girl era movement. That like, I'm surprised you brought
Okay.
that up instead of the other
I've
one.
never heard of a soft
Drizzle
guy.
Drizzle? You don't know about the soft
Yeah,
guy
I
era?
feel like
You don't
Dream
know
was
about the
talking to
Drizzle
you
Yeah,
about
I
it.
blame.
Yeah, Drizzle Drizzle, baby.
Drizzle Drizzle.
How
I think might be,
dare
like,
she
the
not?
first
Listen, if
new
I'm going to get a
slang
haircut,
of
if I text
boomers.
my girl and tell her that I'm getting a haircut and she doesn't send me $200, what the fuck are we talking about here? She's not my girlfriend. She don't care about me. She don't respect me.
Jesus Christ.
You seriously
She doesn't
need to Google
respect
Drizzle
me.
Drizzle.
Yeah.
It's
This is
hilarious.
like pissing off lactoids like good white conservative Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so annoyed by this.
Hold
Like,
up.
God.
I've been
This is the worst.
This is a rule I've made in trade for the engagement ring. I want a watch, if not equal to a slightly lesser, value of the ring that I got.
I mean, like all jokes aside,
A watch
bet
of all
she
things?
works, too.
So
Don't,
don't
useless.
don't Arabs go like hard like for weddings?
Yep.
I'm about to say, I'm like the
Yeah.
relationship dynamic. I respect it. Y'all don't play.
Give
Like,
me my money.
We had a whole conversation about this last week, in fact. So Ali, like, if you have an article on this drizzle
I've sent you.
phenomenon-
I've
Drizzle
yeah.
Drizzle. Oh,
Did you
fuck
send me
yes.
something?
Let's
I
talk
don't
about
remember.
I don't have an
Drizzle.
article. I've sent like video. It's
There's like
just
50
TikTok videos. It's
TikTok
just like
clips.
a thing going. It's a trend. It's not like articles are being written about this. I'm not that smart.
Oh, okay.
yes,
Well,
respond to the
if you,
sprinkle girl.
okay, well then
I'll
if you
find a
have
couple videos and I'll send
send
them
it
over.
sent
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, then maybe we'll talk.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
It's
I'm
a
sorry.
thing.
Yeah.
I think it's
Invite
the
Dream
first
then.
like new slang, internet slang created by boomers or Gen X. I'm not sure, like, because it's not old school slang, it's new slang, and it's
By older
mostly
guys.
older men. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yo, do y'all guys finally had Facebook long enough to start coming up with your own memes and shit?"
They just took
It's
sprinkle
amazing.
sprinkle and they did drizzle drizzle.
Yeah, drizzle.
Yeah,
Like it
it
doesn't
was
even
great.
sound like something like a Gen Z kid would come up with. It's not cool enough. Like it's just like
It's like a Gen X boomer thing making fun of
drizzle,
the
drizzle. But
girls.
yeah, sprinkle. I was about to say, she's that's like the middle-aged woman who is actually still fine for some reason, even though she has like terrible beliefs.
That's usually how it works. Terrible beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Oh yeah, terrible beliefs. Like they'll make food for you, and the horrible beliefs.
No, her thing is like basically.
I think me and Lacton were going to come at this from the same thing. The sprinkle is actually beneficial to the fellas.
Well, the sprinkle girl, she's like men are meant to be used to get what you want from them, and you manipulate their egos. You make men feel good about themselves, like, and they'll give you what you want, like, which is money, security, satisfaction. She's like, you just like, well, I mean,
Hey, Bam, I
it's
got a
true, but
question.
it's effed up.
You be a woman,
Bam,
and
I got a question as a
attack
white
the
man.
resources.
This is why I say to be careful.
I need, and the prime guys, not to like say you're not black,
Oh boy.
but I was just asking Bam.
There's
'cause
not
here.
a thing.
But I
Yeah,
got
this
a
can't
question
go
for the
well.
two black.
Just real quick,
I got a question. No, it's okay. I'm gonna be racist for a second. Hold up. I got
No,
a
it's
question.
okay.
Just this one time.
Yeah.
Guys, hear me out. Hear
All
me
the
out.
time.
Just
I got a question. Why? What? Please explain to me. I don't understand this as a white guy that's not into sports. I'm very confused. Why do all of these NFL and NBA black athletes keep fucking impregnating and getting in drama with like the same girls? Like I don't like you're an NBA all-star,
They're all
right? Like
groupies
you
for
have
groupies.
access to 1 million women, and like it'll be like the same chick that like fuck one athlete. Well, what is happening?
They're
Can
groupies
someone
for
that understands
groupies.
sports and black culture please explain this to me?
So there's like
it's the status. That guy fucked
Yeah.
this girl. I want to fuck this girl too because he fucked her. If Drake fucked
Is
her,
that
I
what
want
it
to
is?
fuck her.
Is
If-
that- is
Yeah,
it- is it like-
that's
is it
like
like
half
I'm a
of it.
bitch,
Yeah,
I'm as
half
good
of
as
it is
you?
like a status thing. Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're with like there are like rankings of girls, and if you can like get with the top girl, you get with the top girl. The other thing is, although these women, still desire money and all those things, even if they're groupies, something about grouping is like its own career at this
Groupies
point.
for groupies. Yep.
So like
Lena Powell.
so these
Right,
women,
that's what I'm confused by.
Yeah.
these women have money now as well. So it's like, oh, I date this woman, and yeah, I still kind of provide for her in weird ways. But around my birthday, maybe she's gonna buy me like a Lamborghini, and that's something because she has her own things going on, and she can somewhat relate to the like idea of not necessarily having to keep up with my every move because she's like goes off
So
and
you're
does
saying
whatever
it's
her
like-
work thing is.
So you're saying it's like high-end escorts that exist for like billionaires and shit that are actually like incredibly expensive because they're like
They're
super
elite.
intelligent and like they understand finance and shit. You're saying there's like a group of women that like understand the career, understand the drama, understand the culture, like and like have their own money and like kind of have their own thing. And so there's like a symbiotic relationship with like these girls that end up with multiple different like basketball or football stars.
Yeah, because they
seems
understand
so
how to
weird.
attract those type of
Alright.
men. They're like, oh, okay, I know what you want. I know exactly what you want. I know how to provide
Right.
it. I'm not gonna like. I know you're when like, especially like NBA players. You're traveling all across the country. Like you're gonna be in LA for 3 days. Like I know you're probably gonna f some other girls. I'm not the type of girl that's gonna comment on those things. Like they kind of understand the lifestyle they're
Keep
going
it low
into.
key.
Versus like if you're dating the
Okay.
regular girl from the regular town,
'Cause as a
you are
white
her
dude
actual meal
that-
ticket.
that pops into Black Twitter occasionally, some things are just fucking confusing to me. And
I
I'm
thought you
just
were going
like,
to talk about
this bitch is
dating
with
white
another
women.
That was
girl,
like
like, alright.
obvious. Yeah, that was that. But
Yeah, me
okay,
too. I thought I was gonna say that too.
Really,
Well,
really.
fucking
Okay, has
hell.
anyone watched Blue Mountain State here?
Well, we know why they
Mhm.
date white girls.
Okay,
Like,
so there was this there was a
obvious.
joke on the show where there was like this woman on campus that the football team would fuck, and if they fuck the woman, they win the championship for the year. If they don't, they're losing the championship. Show us
good
over.
luck, charm pussy.
Something
All right,
something
let's
I
go.
noticed something I noticed in rap was with Amber Rose and Black China. If you fucked Amber Rose, your career just fucking skyrocketed for some reason. If you fucked Black China, your career just fucking
damn.
went on a downfall, right?
Or
And
fucking-
I
or
need
Ruby
that
Rose is fucking
specific thing
Drewski.
to be
What the fuck
studied.
happened there, dude?
Or
Because
is
Lil
there-
Pump is still famous and rich and hasn't fucking said a word in like 3-4 years, I don't think.
Or
You can
is it that it's a
Amber?
correlation? Like, oh, when you're on the way up, like Amber Rose is there. When you're on the way down, all you can afford is Black China.
Black China, right?
It's like so it's the Pete Davidson of pussy.
Yeah, Pete Davidson dates
That
like
guy
all
slays
the-
though for
the white
somehow. I
women.
don't know.
my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Girls
somehow
love
it's not
BBD
confusing.
guys. Rich
He's got
BBD
a-
guys.
He's got a big dick. He's funny, and he gets the
It's not that
sympathy
funny.
because
He's
his
also
dad died in
famous.
9/11.
No, I'm sure
Also rich and
he may not be
Yeah, you
stand
say
up
he's not
funny,
that funny
but
'cause
I
he's
think
not
that
Bill
he's
Burr,
he's
but I
probably
bet he's fucking
fantastic at like
hilarious.
courting funny. Like there's different
Yeah.
funny. Like there's like
Yeah,
there's
rhetoric.
movie funny, there's stand up funny, and then there's like hanging out in the room. I'm like Pete Davidson looks like he's probably like
A good
takes
time.
over a room.
Like
Yeah.
the chill
And
dude.
he's got money too as well.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah.
He's got money. He's famous. Like it's just
Why do
He's
women
just really
love this
charismatic.
dude? Why do women love this rich, funny, tall, giant dicked man? I don't understand.
Fabian loves them
Like,
too. It seems.
Okay. All right.
No, I real talk though, I still don't get it because the dude looks like a fucking heroin addict to me. Every time I see it, I'm like, what? Really, Pete Davidson?
Oh, girls
Like,
love
like,
that. Girls love that. I
Yeah, I
haven't
know,
eaten
I
anything
feel
but a
you.
cigarette
His
all
face
day.
is like
Look.
really
They
fucking
can
weird
fix
to me.
him.
What? Listen,
Yeah.
I'm not saying. Listen, I'm not saying. Listen, I'm not saying that I don't get it. What I'm saying is like, as a, I guess 90% straight dude, I don't fucking know percentage wise. When I see a girl being like, I love Brad Pitt in Fight Club, I'm like, yeah, I get that. Like I see that and I'm like, yeah, that looks like a Grecian god of a fucking man. Like that looks like something I would
That's
sculpt
your
if I was
male
good
gaze.
at sculpting. But when I see fucking Pete Davidson, I'm like, fucking what? Like,
That's
It
your
looks
male
sickly.
gaze. The female gaze is different.
DB, you were saying
yeah,
something?
for sure.
Yeah.
I was just asking you guys if he has fake teeth because his teeth always look fucking weird to me. Like there's just something wrong with his face. It's just really.
I haven't seen
fucking
him, but
strange.
probably. I mean, there's almost nobody in Hollywood left with real teeth.
And I don't think
It's
the
really
rich
good.
and famous thing makes any makes any sense because I mean the women that he's fucking are also rich and famous, right? So it's not like they're
Yeah, but that means that
Yeah, he's not rich
Yeah,
compared
but
to
Wait, so
Kim
now
But
Kardashian.
he's
in
like
group.
he's like the greasy rich and famous guy, right? He's like the kind of like scummy guy, like the guy that would piss
Like
off your
fucking,
dad type shit. Like he's
Benny Blanco with fucking what's her name?
Yeah.
What's her name? Fucking
Selena Gomez.
oh my god.
Selena
He
Gomez.
comes off as a
Yeah.
love bomber. Like he seems like he gets like it seems like he's probably. I mean, I think comedians in general are like generally highly intelligent people, and I think they're really good at like understanding people socially because
Reading
their
the
job
room.
is literally reading a
that
room.
makes sense.
So I imagine that like he
Yeah.
meets you, he can tell a lot of things about you, and like that, like wow, I feel like you really understand me.
Plus, it's
And
the
he also
saddest thing.
attaches himself strongly to people like emotionally. He seems like he's a big on love bombing because he got like Kim K tattooed on him like within like
Yeah.
a month or something. Of
Well,
talking to
it's
it.
word of mouth
Also,
too, right? Everyone
it's also
keeps
the saddest
saying,
thing.
yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, like if you're with two fucking
A-listers.
that are like the pinnacle of women,
You think
right?
the other
Like, and
women want to
you're
figure
gonna
out
be
what
like,
it's about?
oh,
Yeah.
there must, right? Yeah, like they're gonna be like, what is that about? Like,
Dick hitting
I
them.
mean, fucking. Right,
Social
it's
proof.
like it's like fucking Ariana Grande and fucking Megan Fox were into this. There's got to be something there, right? Like,
Yeah.
Megan
Okay.
Fox was never that fond of me. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
Alright.
No,
He's
he's
probably
right.
a racist.
Wait,
Megan
wait,
Fox
Tell
is-
me
who's
she's a
fine
butterface.
to you?
think
And
white
who's fine
women
to you
are
in
ugly
comparison?
without
Just real
telling
quick,
me.
Cam.
A butterface.
Are you talking about
Um,
Megan
Ariana-
Fox?
If
Ariana
not Megan
okay,
Fox,
Ariana
who
Grande
then?
looks like the average hood rat with some makeup. Okay, she's
Rihanna was more attractive in that one video, like with Eminem.
Okay.
Rihanna's more
All right.
attractive objectively. I just want like
This
Megan
is
Fox
the
is also
most
attractive.
amazing panel I've ever been on. It has just been dudes aggressively and autistically arguing about relationship dynamics, and it has devolved into Hollywood pop stars and talking about women's bodies because we're such great feminists here, chat. And I just want you to know that all we do at the end of the panel is celebrate objectifying women based off of her toe thumbs.
Maybe Margot Robbie. I don't know.
The toe thumbs are just. But
You fucking look at shit up, dude.
yeah,
It's
this
fucking,
shit's
you'd be like,
crazy.
"Ugh."
Yeah. But no, but Megan Fox gotta be hot, right? Like Doobie, I don't know why I can trust you on these.
She's a butterface. She's a butterface. Okay.
No, hold on, pause.
Her
She's
body's
not a
even that
butterface.
great. She is a butter. What are you talking?
She's not
about?
a butterface. You know what it is? You know what it is? She's not ugly in the face. It's the problem is that
Oh,
she
Gal
has
Gadot.
the
That's a good one.
no. No,
Mm.
Also not
she
attractive.
has the traditionally listen. All right, Doobie, you're fucking crazy. She has the
What are you talking about?
traditionally attractive.
Doobie, what is
features,
it? Wait,
right?
what's attractive to
Gal
you,
Gadot
Doobie?
is a masculine woman. Like, I'm
Can you
sorry,
just give me one girl that is attractive though? Just
Anna
so
Darmus. Anna Darmus
Who?
is way more attractive than any of the.
Anna who?
Anna Darmus.
Right, now I
And
gotta fucking look
Armis
this up.
in like Knives
Armas
Out,
from,
in the recent
Yeah,
Bond movie.
Knives Out, the fucking cyber.
Anna de Armas?
Like what's it called? Blade Runner. She's.
I've
the-
seen this
the
girl
AI
at Target
Blade Runner.
before. I went to Target yesterday and she was there.
Oh my God. What's wrong
Thank
with
you,
Shut
Soy
up.
Adult, for the $2. Who he gave immediately. So screw you, Corey.
He does look kind of
I'm
regular.
gonna check right now.
Yeah,
It says,
yeah.
do
guys are
do
nuts.
boot eaters get priority in the after show? Yes, boot eaters get priority in everything. Thank you, Soyato, for the kind $2 super chat. And I haven't asked all evening, but consider supporting the channel. Subs to the channel, give bits to give subs if you've enjoyed this content. We give you a lot of content here. Consider helping out the channel so we can keep doing this. We do need your help. The super chat is our first donation, but if you're out there and you can help, consider helping us out. We could really use it. Subs to the channel, give bits, give subs, or use your Amazon Prime, just Prime Gaming here on the channel. 1 free sub for you. But it means a lot on our end. So thanks so much. Okay. Doobie, you were saying something
You know what it
incredibly.
is? You know what it is? I've actually just I learned something about myself. I think what it is I'm attracted to women who are like look soft, feminine, and corruptible. Okay, Megan Fox looks like she's been bouncing on dick for like she's
Hey,
been
you like
bouncing on
normal
miles of
girls.
dick.
No,
Alright,
I don't
go.
like
listen,
normal
Doobie,
girls.
I don't think it's
I like
either of
women who
those. I
don't
don't
look
think
like
it is.
whores.
Listen,
Girl, you
women that
talking
look
about
like
Anna
whores.
de Armas?
Ooh.
She looks like you want to like. She's looking like, oh, okay, she was probably a pretty girl in high school, but you kind of want to squint at her and
Nuts.
wish she was Mila Kunis.
No, listen.
She has like that
How
smoky
dare
eye
you.
thing.
Listen, Doobie, I'm with you, but a little bit caveat. I think the reason that girls like that, look like that, and kind of look unattractive because of it, is because they have all of the they like it's like a checkbox, and it's like I've seen this girl in Hollywood with like the lip fillers and with the white highlighter on the tip of her nose and with the 1 or 2 freckles with the exact same eye makeup and the angled eyebrows that are threaded to be the exact same thing over and over and over again. And because of that, it's just like this is the standard hot girl, I'm a sexy bad bitch look, and it comes off whorish and it comes off unattractive.
Doobie don't like
And it's not
hoes.
to say that it's not saying that it's ugly so much as it's kind of the same thing that sociologists said. I saw this girl at Target the other day, but instead of I saw this girl at Target, it's like, yeah, I see this girl literally every time I turn on the TV. Like literally every time there's a music video, literally every time there's a beer commercial. It's this type of hot that's supposed to signal to me that I'm like a dumb guy and my dick is supposed to get hard because this is the traditionally attractive hoe girl. And it's like she doesn't look like a person anymore because she's done too much to not be her.
Yeah.
Before we continue on with that, thank you, Corey Campbell, for the using Prime Gaming here on this
But it don't matter
channel.
because none of us could back her.
Really, really kind of you, friend. Thank you, Bam, for gifting a sub to Stocky Johnson. We are one sub from a hype train, right? Or sub or bits or I guess it's those two, or a resub as well. Consider helping us out. So so I can keep providing you all this. If you like this, if you think this is valuable, if you're here, if you can't find yourself here on a regular basis, consider supporting the channel and keeping us around. So we have 2 minutes before the thing ends and we can't do a hype train. So consider subbing to the channel, give bits, give subs. I know you're out there. Got a Prime Gaming sub to consider helping us out by using that on this community. Oh, thank you, iCal, for gifting 200 bits. That gives us a start on the hype train. So yeah, help us get to a level 2 hype train. We've got 4 minutes on the clock. Please support us. Yeah, and you'll get our emotes. And you'll get our my everlasting level. Yeah, ad fee viewing. So 60% left. Help us get to a level 2 hype train. Sub to the channel, give bits or give subs. Thanks so much. And if you're on YouTube, you can just give us a super chat.
The more
and
money you
super
give
chat.
Prime, the more Doobie and I will explain why Megan Fox is actually unattractive,
Oh my God.
starting with toe thumbs.
This is
right?
this is prime.
Oh, her
content.
fucking thumbs. Wait, okay, have you seen her thumbs?
Yeah, we've seen the thumbs. Yeah, the
She's
toe
genetic-
thumbs.
Oh yeah, because I'm
I was gonna
looking
say,
at
go
her
to the
thumbs
chat,
when I'm looking at
telling
Megan
you-
Fox.
Showing you an actual fine woman, Chloe Bailey.
But that Anadarmus, I just looked it up, and she is quite attractive. So I'll give you that one.
Okay, Bam, that's not attractive. I'm sorry.
What you don't
Looks like a
disrespect me like that. Come on,
but
Frogman.
this is actually going back to, maybe I do agree with Scott's point earlier about the biology thing. But the point that wasn't his point is she looks too eager to fuck me, and it makes her unattractive. That's what it is. She looks too eager to fuck, and
She actually
totally
comes
turns
off
me
really childlike, and well, not childlike.
Totally
But
turns
it's
me
really
off.
like
Whoa.
innocent. Yeah, childlike was the wrong word. But she comes off as like really
Whoa.
innocent if you hear her speak.
And
Like
you
she's
find
like,
her
oh,
attractive,
lovely.
huh?
It's a little bit sus. A little bit sus.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we-
like
no,
she did that.
but-
She did that fucking.
Take Lactoid's legal
commercial for,
advice, please.
She did that commercial for Diablo 4, right? Like right when Diablo 4 was coming out.
Who are you talking
And
about?
like it was literally just like, you're a gamer, you like to see hot famous people in cosplay, buy this video game because I'm a whore. And it was like, what the
that Megan
fuck
Fox?
is this? Like,
Or DeArmond?
no,
It was
Megan
Megan
Those were
Fox.
back in the days,
Oh,
right
Megan
before
Fox.
Gamergate.
Diarmus would never soil herself like that.
Oh, okay. But yeah, Chloe Bailey is finer than whatever woman you think is
She
fine.
did it. She did an advertisement campaign, and it was so
Claude
fucking
Bailey.
weird.
You're talking about an
Let's-
e-gamer type thing, yeah, an e-girl type thing, yeah. It's it happens.
Yeah, I never understood like. Well, I
Here you go, I'll put
understand.
it-
I
I'll
just
put it in
I
the
don't think
Discord.
that like what do they call them, the e-girls. Like that look is so weird to me. I
Don't like hoes, okay?
No, I'm
I
fine
like
with hoes.
hoes.
I love good hoes.
The e-girl look is like the e. Are you talking about like the e-goth girl look? Like the,
Yeah.
I mean, goth
I don't
girls
know.
have always been hot, man.
The only
Big titty goth girls.
hot goth girl to me is Raven from the original Teen Titans. Like I think they built like way too much sex appeal into her. Like it was like
So I have a
natural.
question
Well, I mean, all
because
of them, right?
maybe this is something. Maybe this
Nah,
is
Starfire
something
didn't do
you
it.
guys
How about
can-
and before you do, just how about the hype train, guys? We have less than 2 minutes left. Help us get to a level 2 hype train. 60% left. Support the community. This is why we're all here every week. Doing it for 4 years. Support the community. Sub to the channel, give bits or give subs. If you're out there, I know you are. Consider helping us out. Sub to the channel, give subs or resub if you're out there. And you haven't maybe resubbed in a while, consider resubs to the channel. Find yourself here on a regular basis. They're supporting us. Thank you so much. All right, go ahead, ask your question. I might interrupt you again because we have 90 seconds left.
It's chill. Yeah, there you go. Go for it. But my question is this: like maybe it's about like conformity, or like trends, or the fact that someone is like displaying that they're not unique, that they don't have a lot to offer, right? Like I know, like I saw a girl at the gym the other day who was very attractive, and I was on the Smith machine, and there's like two of them together, and I was
Smith
like, okay,
machine?
don't fucking stare at this. Well,
I'm joking. I'm
you know,
joking. I'm being sarcastic.
Don't judge me. You know what I mean? Like I
I'm
got fucked up joints, man.
I'm
I'm not trying
joking.
to fuck myself up. You know what I mean? I use the Smith machine. Don't judge me. And so like she was next to me, and like I was like, oh, that's an attractive girl. And then I saw like her Stanley cup with like the straw and like the little thing attached that like you buy for the straw. And I was just like, for the first time, I got and understood girls getting the ick. I was like, ugh. I was just like, oh, you're like you're that person. Like you have to follow the current trend. You have to like you buy useless dumb shit just because you want to fit in with like whatever the current TikTok trend is. Like I'm out. Like maybe that's part of like the unattractiveness of the e-girl look is that so many people do it now that like you're just like, oh, you're like everybody else. Like you're not offering anything to me. You're not a I don't see a unique person here with something that I've never seen of or never heard of or like can give me a new experience. Instead I see like the same girl that I see everywhere.
I mean, you got a lot from the Stanley
Yeah, I think
Cup.
that is some of it for sure. No, I think that is some of it for sure. It's like the walking brat stall shit that women do.
Yeah.
Or it's really gross to me.
I mean, you're saying if you don't like a makeup style, fair. But like or a trend, I mean, I guess that's fair. But
Right, but I want to say it's not the trend itself. It's what is it signifying, and I think what it
It's the fact
signifies
that they're attaching
is that
themselves
like
to the trend.
right. It's like they choose to wake up and spend time to do their makeup like every other fucking girl, and it's like there's nothing special there. It feels like a dead person, an NPC walking.
You need someone who's not like every other girl. Okay, I hear you.
I just don't. I just
yes.
don't like girls that look
And
like
doesn't
they
say that,
smoke cigarettes and vape.
preferably.
Like they don't eat well.
I
But I
mean,
think
me
maybe it's a
personally,
black thing.
I'm crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I want a girl that like graffitis and shit. Like, I don't know, you know, like
Well,
I'm, you know,
Wanted to commit crimes.
Wait. You want a girl that will deface private property, or
Vandalism is sexy, Corey.
no, I mean like an artist in a studio apartment
Oh,
somewhere,
okay.
like that is like, you know what I mean? That like does murals and like smokes cigarettes, even though I don't smoke because it's just like, because I don't know, that's the type of person I like. I like somebody that's like not uniform.
Ali,
Somebody you want somebody who's awful.
To
I
ask
get it.
you. Like, I got an offensive cultural question to ask you. And this is complete ignorance. Are there like girls who wear hijab but still get it in?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Hojabis? Hojabis are a thing.
Hijabis.
Hojabis
Okay.
are a thing, yeah.
So I didn't know if it was like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, but like you get them to the room, it's like, oh okay.
Yeah, man.
And there's the benefit of anonymity, right? You don't know who they are.
Well,
there's a lot of
burqa.
So even like here, we have a lot of social stigma for girls that like some girls are expected by their families to wear scarves and wear hijabs, right? And you'll notice that when they're going to school, they take the bus, they get onto the bus, and by the time they get off the bus, when they get to school, they're a completely different person, right? They go to the bus stop with the hijab, they get on the bus, they start taking it off, they're doing their makeup on the bus, they get to school, they're a different person. They come, it's a whole thing. Yeah, we have everyone has, you know, hidden cultures. They're not all pure and prime, but they're supposed to be, you know.
Okay. I mean, the makeup is like
sometimes
y'all have some like the cultural of y'all's makeup is like fantastic. I'm talking about like
we
the
love
girls.
makeup.
But I'm talking about like it looks like really really good. I'm
Like professionally done, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is a value, as much as this might be the most sexist thing, because like I don't like the hijab because I don't like, you know, an irrational religion forcing something based off of cultural traditions on people. But at the same time, I do.
But we shouldn't change culture, though.
Well,
Institution might be useful.
I mean, I think the data's in on which culture's better. Maybe not, but regardless,
See ya,
I do
Doobie.
think that there is a
See you
certain
later.
cultural
Peace out,
value.
man.
Oh, peace, Doobie. I do think
Right,
there's
better
a
go
certain
too.
cultural value to modesty that, like, even if the modesty is a lie, like I think sometimes we previously thought that modesty was about the actual modesty itself, and sometimes I think there is a value to cultural enforcement of the modesty, even if people are acting immodest, because it's kind of like an Overton window of acceptable behavior, right? Where like when the culture is like enforces this modesty, you have girls that or people that break out of it, but they don't break out of it to such a crazy degree as other people would, because they're only stepping out into the taboo.
Yeah, it's still down low.
Which is kind of outside of that small space. And because of that, there seems to be like a push-pull that works there. And when you have a society that has no conception of modesty, you get like Pride Month leather daddies slinging dick in kids' faces in the streets, being like, fucking, we're happy that we're gay. It was like, be happy, dude. Can you just like put some fucking clothes on, dude? Like,
Yeah, I have been seeing a lot of videos of like naked bike rides this month.
I
right,
think
you know
it's
what I mean? Like,
more
I
your
think there's
algorithm,
there's a
Bam.
cultural enforcement, and then there's people that play out of the bounds, but like they don't go so far out of the bound. And that, like, I think sometimes those lines of cultural enforcement are so much more effective than like laws and things of that nature, because it leaves room for gray area that might be a healthy gray area. But when we open it up completely, we just kind of get like degeneracy and hedonism and stupidity.
I think pride is like necessarily associated with some level of degeneracy and hedonism, and it's not because of gay people, just because like the communities overlap historically.
I was thinking of a question. Maybe it might be for next week. But whether pride should just be for straight people. Oh, sorry. So pride should.
You
The
want
opposite
to
of what,
amp?
the
Yes.
opposite of what I said.
Yes.
That maybe pride should only be for gay individuals. Because there's an argument about that. And that even maybe some bisexuals, in fact, shouldn't be there as well.
But not these bitches that are bisexuals that are dating straight men. How dare they?
Would you guys like to discuss that? Would that thing maybe something you might be interested in discussing?
I'm
What do you
open
mean
to
that-
it.
What do
but
you mean
I don't-
straight people aren't allowed at Pride? Like, how do you prevent them from going to the parade?
Take
Or
a full
is
sexual
there like
history.
a gay ID? Lactoid might be.
There's like a dick at the door. Yeah, I was about to say, and then like
If you
doobies,
Just call me gay.
doobies from that culture.
No. You like IDing people, you know?
This-
Oh,
giving
sure,
certain
sure,
certificates
sure.
for IDs, eh?
Give them the IQ
Okay, yeah,
test
yeah.
and based off.
This isn't a logistics question. I think it's just like setting like a cultural standard and norm, right? Which I mean, we don't know what would happen if we did so,
Pride-
but the but the idea that hey, like this space, is for
It's not
gay
possible.
individuals.
Is this like
but
Pink at
not
Pride Part
possible.
2?
because Pride originally, right? Like when you're talking about like, like was it, Milk, Senator in like the 1970s, and
yeah.
you're following Stonewall and stuff. Pride was, adopted a slogan of "Born This Way," right? And the presumption of Pride in the beginning and of the gay rights movement in the beginning is that you are born this way, and that we're talking about sexual orientation, right? That's the focus here: is lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. Really was, it was a part of it, but it was a very, very, very small, minute part of it that wasn't the primary focus, right? The primary focus is we don't have a choice. This is an immutable characteristic that you are punishing us with. When you fast forward to 1996, David Halperin, with over 12,000 citations, mind you, Saint Foucault, a gay hagiography, now you're talking about, quote, queerness is an identity without an essence, end quote, and that queerness is defined by your by being against the norm, and that queerness and gayness and pride and all of this is undefinable because it is what is always trying to destroy the system of cis heteronormativity and gender. It is gender abolishment, it is sexual orientation abolishment, etc. So to say straight people aren't allowed at Pride only worked back then when Pride was about sexual orientation predominantly. But now that Pride is a explicitly Marxist designed philosophy based around queerness, queer theory, that's what it means to be queer. You can't really exclude because you have no means of identifying. You have no definition of woman. You have no definition of queer. You have no definition of what is and isn't straight. So it's all designed to destroy normativity.
I'll let Iko go, but like this sounds like something we should have a more expansive conversation on. So yeah, but Iko, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the whole thing reminds me of Andrew Sullivan talks about. He came out. He's somebody who came out for gay marriage like in the early '90s, like super early, before
Isn't
anybody
Andrew Sullivan
was
gay.
Yes,
he is himself gay, yeah, but he's also conservative, and he was arguing for gay marriage because he thought that it was a conservative institution, and he wanted to bring people into that. And at the time, of course, now it's amazing that like because we think about gay people like fighting to have the right to marriage, but at the time that he came out and made this argument, the gay community was very much against him doing that. They thought he was being too heteronormative, that he was going to basically by normalizing gay people and putting them inside of these institutions, he was going to sort of like erase their cultural gayness. Like there was the organization in California that protested like his book signing. They were called the Lesbian Avengers, and they were absolutely like despised him for trying to bring heteronormativity like into gay spaces. And it's really interesting how HRC like sort of changes that, you know, in the 2000s. And then suddenly it becomes a struggle that gay people sort of almost, you know, like universally supported, and just collective amnesia on how like how the culture was just 10 years prior to that.
Okay, so this sounds like a good topic. So let's hold on to. I've written it down.
There's also
And
real quick. There's also a little bit of cultural amnesia as to some of the foundations of gender theory, but we can talk about that later.
yeah, yeah. I think
Nobody reads Gail Rubin or
that's
you know.
yeah. Okay. Anyway, so hold on to that. We'll do that.
Well,
next week.
Nambla does, but you
Oh my god.
she's on their website. They love queer theory because it's
and
pro-pedophilia.
Ambla. Okay. Interesting. Oh yeah, actually they do. They do love queer theory. You're right, actually, on that one. But why don't I'm gonna send the audience off.
Not that the rainbow people like them, you know. Like
They don't like
I don't
them.
know
They
that the
don't like
feeling's
them.
mutual.
Yeah, yeah. To be very clear.
But the founders do, right? Like Gail Rubin, Thinking Sex. Like she loved pedophilia. She's one of the founders of queer theory.
Sociologic, are you streaming? Sociologic?
No.
Okay, no. Okay, so then let's try Lactoid. He's usually streaming, and he is. All right, so let's send you off to Lactoid. But this was a great conversation. I appreciate you guys coming through, being a part of it all. I'm just